Chapter 1. The Celestial Master traversing through a fantastical realm, Lin Xiao struggled and persevered to become a golden core cultivator, ultimately awakening the system within him. From that moment on, the gates of enlightenment swung wide open. Emerging from the mire, a once downtrodden child of a slaughtered clan encountered the scorn and exclusion of her family. A once celebrated genius, now reduced to the ordinary, has returned reborn, resolute in her quest to wield her sword against the icy obstacles of the world. Lin Xiao became the steadfast support behind these women, witnessing their transformation from despair to the pinnacle of success. I am Yodaten, the child of a cattle herder from the valley below. My father, having heard tales of celestial beings atop the mountain, urged me to seek my fortune here. I am Su Yang, having been in the cultivation world for 2.5 years. Should the Celestial Master accept me as a disciple, the Su Merchant Guild will undoubtedly provide robust assistance. I am Zhou Yang, the third prince of the great Zhou dynasty, a foundational stage cultivator, eager to join the celestial sect in pursuit of a chance at immortality. On the summit of the great Zhou dynasty, at the peak of Lone Summit Mountain, the morning sun filtered through the dense foliage, casting dappled light upon the bluestone slabs. Ethereal energies mingled in the air, refracting radiant colors akin to glass. A pair of feet tread upon the stone, disturbing the swirling mists. The young man clad in azure clasped his fists, respectfully bowing. I am Lin Xiao. At the second stage of foundation, without a sect, I have come to visit the newly established sect of Lone Summit Mountain, hoping for your esteemed guidance. Despite his demeanor, a flicker of trepidation lingered as his gaze fell, daring only to glimpse the handsome man before him from the corner of his eye. Even in this posture, the overwhelming and mysterious aura emanating from the man rendered his face pale. He had once observed the celestial master of the great Zhou dynasty from a distance. That individual, at the peak of the divine transformation stage, could cleave mountains and fill seas with a single stroke, yet never exuded such an intimidating presence that compelled one to avert their gaze. This was undoubtedly a supreme being. However, the requirements set forth were exceedingly stringent. Those of illustrious lineage had already been dismissed without a word of critique, leaving in frustration. In contrast, Lin Xiao felt inadequate, yet clung to a flicker of hope. It was only when the man gently shook his head that he felt a mix of relief and disappointment, offering a final bow before departing. The subsequent visitors experienced the same fate, descending the mountain as they had ascended. Once all had vacated, a misty breath descended, blocking the ascent of the bluestone steps. Still standing in place, Lin Xiao gazed through the translucent blue panel before him, letting out a soft sigh. Not a single one possessed exceptional talent. Indeed, he was the master of this newly established sect on Lone Summit Mountain, having traversed this world for over a decade. From initial panic and helplessness to becoming a wandering cultivator, he had carved out a niche for himself in this realm of practitioners. He had once believed he would remain an unremarkable figure until yesterday, when he ascended to the Golden Core stage, and the system arrived belatedly, revealing that even becoming the protagonist had its prerequisites. Worldly Disciple Recruitment System, as the name implies, by accepting disciples and nurturing them, one could reap substantial rewards. However, the standards of this system for accepting disciples were exceedingly rigorous. White, green, blue, purple, black, gold, 6 tiers of fortune. Only those reaching the purple level could barely meet the foundational criteria for recruitment. Not only that, after discovering promising disciples, he could only personally bind them and impart his teachings. Unlike other sects, which may broadly accept apprentices and appoint elders to take on students, his approach severely limited efficiency. To achieve significant advancement in a short span, he needed to select disciples endowed with black or even golden fortunes, thereby maximizing the benefits. In his previous life, Lin Xiao was an avid reader of novels, and he understood that the sooner the system was activated, the better. At the first opportunity, he sought out a mountain peak, prepared to make meticulous selections. However, for 2 consecutive days, the most exceptional candidates who came to seek apprenticeship were merely of blue fortune. And they were all princes benefiting from the dragon's aura. Though the great Zhou dynasty was situated on the periphery, the solitary peak mountain was still within the town near the imperial city. The scarcity of talent left Lin Xiao feeling somewhat despondent. Fortunately, with the system's endorsement, he exuded an aura akin to that of a sage on this mountain, rendering him nearly invincible within the great Zhou dynasty. After a moment of contemplation, Lin Xiao shook his head and sighed, stating that if no suitable disciples appeared by the next day, he would venture into the city for a stroll. For now, he decided to eat. Food was the only thing Lin Xiao had not forsaken since his reincarnation, even though he had long since begun fasting. The familiar flavors of his meals brought back memories of life before his transmigration. While he was tending to his small vegetable garden, the rejected cultivators returned to the town of Qingshi at the mountain's foot. It was early morning. and the usually sparse city gates were bustling with activity as merchants entered the city. Ordinary folk, dressed in modest attire, stood cautiously along the road, waiting for the esteemed cultivators to pass by before rushing forward with excitement. Boldly, how did it go? Did you become the disciple of a celestial master? Xiaoying, come on. Tell us, is the celestial master handsome? You are the prettiest girl in our town. Dogsy, my father said you have a celestial affinity. Is that true? Though they had never delved into cultivation, they were filled with yearning and speculation about it all. As the commotion echoed behind him, a short cultivator at the back couldn't help but scoff. How dare they aspire to cultivation with such appearances, truly ignorant of their own limitations? Isn't their ignorance akin to our own treatment? Remarked a kind-faced cultivator softly beside him. The short cultivator paused, shaking his head. Even the scattered cultivators are worlds apart from ordinary people. In the pursuit of cultivation, you have already established your foundation. Why cling to compassion? It is merely a reflection of our past selves in these individuals. Let bygones be bygones. Rather than dwell on this, it would be more prudent to contemplate how to win the favor of the celestial master. His power is formidable, surpassing even that of the Grand Master of the Great Zhou. Should we seize this opportunity, our path to immortality shall surely broaden immensely. Indeed, the two cultivators conversed as they moved away. In the shadows, a ragged little beggar suddenly lifted her head, a glimmer of light sparking in her eyes. She gathered her tattered clothing, contemplated for a moment, tucked a large meat bun hidden in the corner into her garments, and walked towards the city gate. The city gate teemed with a throng of people. Some caught a whiff of her scent and hurriedly distanced themselves, their faces contorted in disgust. Undeterred, she swung her battle-scarred calves, her mind swirling with the discourse of the two cultivators. She was unaware of the true prowess of the Grand Master of the Great Zhou, but the reverence he commanded surely indicated his formidable nature. Perhaps someone even more formidable could aid her in exacting revenge. The very thought sent a cascade of memories flooding her mind, akin to a vessel overturned, spilling forth the vivid recollections of her past. The easily torn apart kin, the exalted practitioners, the once familiar friends who merely spectated, the steward uncle who, perceiving her vulnerability, selflessly provided her with all his savings before facing danger alone, and the beggars who, sensing her fragility, snatched away every coin. The young beggar bit her lower lip, clutching the large meat bun in her arms, her body swaying slightly. This bun was her most treasured possession. She had overheard the practitioners remarking that the celestial masters were exceedingly discerning, reluctant to cast even a fleeting glance at anyone. She pondered whether they would even deign to consume a meat bun. After all, when she resided in the manor, she had never even looked at such a bun. Since the celestial master appeared indifferent, why should she venture forth? By the time she contemplated this question, she had already walked quite a distance from the city, her feet likely to be sore upon her return. Yet having come this far, perhaps it was worth a glance. Passing by the fields, a few idle children picked up clods of earth by the roadside and hurled them in her direction, laughing and shouting. The young beggar hastily fled, laughter echoing behind her. But she dared not glance back, her eyes slowly reddening. Though she ran swiftly, the bare soles of her feet ached against the gravel, and she felt several impacts from behind. Mother, the world is so cruel, she thought, tears streaming down onto the ground. In mere seconds, she suddenly regained her composure and quickly wiped her face. Her keen eyes scanned the surroundings, instinctively wary of potential thieves lurking in the shadows. However, unbeknownst to her, the path before her had transformed into ancient, weathered stone bricks, leading straight up a slender mountain peak, resembling a celestial staircase. The young beggar gasped, gazing at the ethereal mountaintop, her heart racing with excitement. The celestial master was up there. Driven by an unknown force, she took her first step forward. Chapter 2. Enluing thunder rumbled ominously, as if the heavens were beating a drum, and serpents and dragons stirred. The sky was cloaked in darkness, thick clouds swirling ominously. On the solitary peak, Lin Xiao opened his eyes, somewhat surprised. A torrential downpour? This was quite fortuitous. The solitary peak stood 100 meters high. The ground had cracked under the scorching sun days prior, rendering the cultivation of spiritual plants nearly impossible. Once this rain passed, it would be ideal for loosening the soil and preparing for future endeavors. After finishing his last cup of tea, he rose, intending to retreat to the hastily constructed wooden cabin for a brief respite, when a sudden sensation rippled through the mist that enveloped the steps. Lin Xiao furrowed her brow, casting her gaze into the distance. A small beggar, cloaked in darkness and panting heavily, stood before the mountain gate, bewildered by the clouds that obstructed his path. A mere mortal? The eye of insight pierced through his frail form in an instant. A lux so pale it was nearly transparent began to waft from his being, the essence as insipid as a breeze, as though it might vanish entirely at any moment. What a pitiable child! With a sigh, she waved her sleeve. and a tempest swirled through the mountains. The small beggar tightly shut his eyes, feeling himself enveloped by the air. When he opened them again, he found himself at the foot of the mountain. Accompanying this gust was a voice, ethereal and dreamlike. "There is no fate between us. Please return." The words faded into the vastness of the cosmos. The small beggar stood dazed, never having imagined he would be sent down the mountain without even a glimpse of the immortal. Above him, the sky crackled with lightning, thunder rumbling ominously. A torrential rain was imminent, yet he felt lost. Without the immortal, vengeance would remain unavenged. If revenge could not be attained, what purpose was there in living? No fate. Only two paths lay before him: to find fate or to perish. Clenching his teeth, the small beggar ascended the stone steps once more. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. 4 steps. The downpour drenched his garments in an instant. Within minutes, the droplets converged into a stream, cascading downward. The ascent grew increasingly arduous. The small beggar braced himself, advancing 1 step and resting for 3. His body grew colder, his steps unsteady, as though he might tumble at any moment. A fever began to rise on his forehead, and his frail form swayed precariously. He succumbed to the stone steps, stabilizing himself as he crawled upward little by little. The ascent, hundreds of meters long, took over an hour before he once again encountered the mist. The small beggar gasped for breath, resting for several minutes to regain his strength. He chose not to reach out to the clouds before him. Instead, he knelt on the ground and bowed 3 times with profound reverence. Rising, his gaze burned with determination. The cold rain dampened his hair, but did not bend his spine. A veil of mist separated them. Lin Xiao stood upon the stone steps, her white garments billowing, gazing at the pain and resolve in his eyes. After a long moment, she sighed softly. The girl's persistence reminded her of her own early days in pursuit of the immortal path. Though not as lowly, her own opportunities had been hard-won. Teetering on the brink of death, although he may not meet the requirements, her heart's intent was clear, and taking her as an ordinary disciple would at least spare her the sufferings of the mundane world. With this thought, Lin Xiao waved her hand, parting the clouds before her. The white fabric swayed gracefully. The young girl, in a state of bewilderment, lifted her head, only to behold a handsome visage drawing closer. Murmuring softly, "What a beautiful celestial being!" Her body weakened, and she succumbed to unconsciousness. Lin Xiao supported her delicate arm, as slender as a willow branch. And upon hearing her dying words, he shook his head with a mix of emotion and sigh. On the brink of death, and still preoccupied with such trivialities? Without needing to probe further, he was acutely aware that the girl before him was burning with fever. With a swift motion, he retrieved a low-grade healing elixir and placed it into her mouth. Being immortal, she would find high-grade remedies more harmful than beneficial. However, even the simplest healing potion would suffice to alleviate a fever. As the effects of the medicine began to take hold, Lin Xiao lifted her gently into his arms and carried her back to his humble abode atop the mountain. Along the way, the rain seemed to come alive, avoiding them as they passed. He swiftly found a robe that had yet to be worn, deftly tailoring it with a flick of his fingers to fit her petite frame. With a single hand gesture, he cast a cleansing spell, banishing all dirt from her body. Lin Xiao laid her down beside his bed, covering her with a quilt. These were items he had purchased the previous day and had yet to utilize. As a foundation-building cultivator, he could withstand sleepless nights without harm. Most nights were spent immersed in his practice. Tucking the corners of the quilt snugly, Lin Xiao's fingertips glimmered with a verdant light. Freed from the grime, the girl appeared exquisite and endearing, her skin fair and radiant. In her peaceful slumber, she resembled a pure white lotus. In stark contrast to the filthy little beggar she once was, the only distressing sight were the scattered wounds adorning her body, a harrowing testament to her survival in the mortal realm. "Sleep well," he whispered, as the emerald light enveloped her. Observing her ethereal aura, still as delicate as a cicada's wing, he departed from the wooden cabin. The rain gradually subsided. With a flick of his sword-like fingers, he felled several towering trees to use as materials, constructing a new dwelling. The remaining scraps were transformed into a table, chairs, and a bath, leaving almost nothing behind. Taking advantage of the remaining rainfall, he cleared a small patch of land, sowing seeds of spiritual plants within. After completing these tasks, Lin Xiao chose not to linger further and returned to the wooden cabin. The girl had awakened, her eyes wide as she gazed at her attire and the soft bedding. Upon hearing the door creak open, she instinctively turned her gaze, exclaiming, "You are that beautiful celestial being." Lin Xiao frowned slightly, feeling displeased with her impudence. "You risked your life to ascend the solitary peak just to tell me this?" "No." The girl, momentarily startled, quickly regained her composure. Turning to kneel on the bed, "I wish to take you as my master, to learn the ways of the celestial arts. I humbly beseech you to accept me." Lin Xiao paused for 2 seconds, then inquired, "What is your name?" And Lu Ying, I possess remarkable skills. I can wash clothes, cook, and perform numerous tasks. My mother used to praise me, claiming I was the most talented woman of the dynasty. And Lu Ying immediately responded. Noticing his silence, she grew anxious, tossing and turning on the bed. At last, she discovered the meticulously wrapped meat bun she had prepared, nervously extending it towards him. What is this? Lin Xiao feigned ignorance. This is a gift I brought for you. Everyone strives to win the favor of the immortal lord, and this is the finest thing I possess. As Lu Ying spoke, she carefully unwrapped the oiled paper, revealing a slightly deformed bun. The young girl pursed her lips, concealing her innermost yearning, as if she were offering it to him. Here, it's still warm. Lin Xiao was genuinely at a loss for words. A meat bun worth 4 copper coins at the street corner, and you dare to test a leader with this? What leader could withstand such a trial? However, seeing the hopeful expression on the girl's face, Lin Xiao, having decided to accept it, contemplated for a moment and ultimately took it with one hand. And Lu Ying's gaze immediately followed the bun, landing on his hand. Yet, he pointed with his finger, the tip emanating a sharp, cold light, and effortlessly split the bun in two. Holding one half, he presented the other to Lu Ying. You possess mediocre talents and are unlikely to achieve great success in cultivation. I can accept you as my disciple, but if you wish to fulfill your ambitions, it will take over 100 years before you may glimpse any hope. The path of immortality is fraught with obstacles. Entering it is akin to living half a lifetime. If you are earnest, take this half and call me master. And Lu Ying appeared both startled and overwhelmed with joy, standing frozen in place. Lin Xiao sighed. After finally resolving to take on an apprentice, he hadn't anticipated it would be someone so naive. Had he known, he would have settled for that one who had trained for 2.5 years instead. Although this one was undeniably more charming. He cleared his throat and inquired, "Do you understand?" And Lu Ying shivered slightly and immediately nodded. I understand. If you comprehend, then eat." Lin Xiao sighed once more. "Yes, thank you, master." And Lu Ying's eyes sparkled as she took a large bite. Lin Xiao felt little appetite. Considering it was a gift from his apprentice, discarding it seemed inappropriate. So he held it to her mouth while stealing a glance at her. As Lu Ying devoured the meat bun, she was unaware that a green aura of fortune began to flow through her entire being. With each bite, the radiance swiftly transformed into blue and then purple. Before he could react, a dark brilliance soared skyward, enveloping the entire wooden house. Chapter 3, Blocked Spiritual Energy, 6 Meridians Unblocked Noon. The skies cleared. Clad in a Taoist robe, with bright eyes and pearly teeth, Lu Ying wielded a hoe, tilling the damp earth while curiously examining her skin. It's gone. All of it is gone. The scars left from her days of wandering have completely vanished. Even the painful gash cut into her face to prevent unwanted attention was now out of reach. Lu Ying was utterly elated. In a moment of exuberance, the hoe in her hands danced through the air with a delightful whoosh. Lin Xiao, seated nearby and engrossed in studying the system, couldn't help but cast a glance in her direction, suppressing a sigh. How could one be so joyful while laboring? She appeared stunningly beautiful. Could it be that her intelligence was indeed lacking? Yet, this was of little consequence. His gaze returned to the ethereal blue screen invisible to others, and he couldn't resist inquiring, "System, did you not assert that one's fortune is immutable?" The system remained silent yet responsive. In the next instant, a supplementary page materialized. Fortune. That is destiny, fate, inherent to life. With a mere glance, Lin Xiao absorbed the contents of the page. In essence, a person's fortune often feels familiar upon first encounter, and the heavens rarely alter it. However, there exist peculiar individuals in this world. Such beings are naturally untainted by cause and effect, transcending the cycle of life and death. Consequently, the heavens struggle to ascertain their fates, rendering their fortunes capricious. And Lu Ying was precisely one of these individuals. Previously, she had suffered the tragic annihilation of her family, yet she escaped calamity due to her untainted nature. Now, under Lin Xiao's guidance, her celestial path appeared promising, with fortune poised to reverse into darkness. As for why she became enshrouded in dark fortune instead of golden while being near Lin Xiao, who could effortlessly shape destiny with the system's backing, it was due to the inherent unpredictability of fate. Dark fortune, while superior to purple, carried a greater degree of peril. To endure it would lead to a broad avenue, while failure would naturally result in demise. In contrast, golden fortune resembled that of protagonists in novels, falling off a cliff only to discover rare treasures, or entering an auction house to acquire divine artifacts. Given their fateful connection as master and disciple, Lin Xiao resolved to offer his utmost support. Initially intending for her to remain by his side as a handmaiden due to her lack of celestial affinity, he was surprised to find her free from the entanglements of fate. Lin Xiao shook his head, amused by the whims of destiny. Meanwhile, Lu Ying, having fully cultivated the land, wiped the sweat from her small face. Turning around, she met Lin Xiao's smiling gaze, and her cheeks instantly flushed a deep crimson. Her already stunning master looked even more enchanting when he smiled. Hastily, she dabbed away the perspiration on her face and approached him. Awkwardly mimicking the gestures of the storytellers at the street corner, and performed a clumsy bow. "Master, I have completed the tasks you assigned." "Very well," Lin Xiao replied, glancing at her before waving his hand. Dozens of radiant celestial seeds promptly soared into the air, settling into the various crevices of the land. "From now on, this celestial field will belong to you. You must nurture it with care." "Understood." Luiying cast a tight-lipped glance, surprised that cultivation was akin to farming. Did that mean great cultivators merely tended to larger fields? Were those malicious individuals who came to harm her parents motivated by an accidental trampling of the land? As the girl's thoughts began to drift once more, Lin Xiao cleared his throat and said, "Extend your hand." The young girl suddenly regained her composure, shaking off her fanciful thoughts, and extended her small hand. "Oh." Lin Xiao placed his hand atop hers, and a surge of spiritual energy coursed through him, swiftly circulating within. His brow furrowed as he sensed a blockage of spiritual energy, the 6 meridians unresponsive. His initial observation had proven correct. She was indeed a child incapable of cultivation. Luiying gazed at him with trepidation, noting the attractive furrow of his brows, which caused her heart to constrict, flooded with countless thoughts. Ultimately, she pursed her lips and looked up in silence. Lin Xiao, offering no explanation, quietly attuned himself to her inner state. Among the countless mortals in the world, some could connect with spiritual energy while others could not. However, for him, the inability to cultivate was not a significant issue. It was merely a blockage of spiritual energy and unresponsive meridians. As long as one had the determination to seek out potent herbs for concoction, one could transcend the mundane and embark on the path of cultivation. As for where to find the precious herbs, Lin Xiao's gaze lingered on the panel that had unfolded before him. System activate. Oh no. Luiying, binding. Ding ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully binding a disciple. Rewards have been issued. Secret repository, disciple exclusive, function has been unlocked, allowing the host to withdraw treasures monthly as rewards. Small world, disciple exclusive, function has been unlocked, enabling the host to take the disciple inside to gather potent herbs. Please hasten to impart knowledge and complete the first nurturing task. Initially pleased, Lin Xiao was rendered speechless upon seeing the mention of functions exclusively for disciples. What was the meaning of this flawed system? After all his efforts to awaken 2 functions, they were solely for the benefit of his disciple. As for him, once he left this mountain, he would merely be an ordinary cultivator at the golden core stage. His enthusiasm waned. With a resigned shake of his head, Lin Xiao articulated the girl's condition candidly: spiritual energy blockage and unresponsive meridians. Luiying's complexion turned ashen, devoid of color. She understood the gravity of those words. From a young age, her parents had invited cultivators to assess her potential for cultivation, and they had delivered the same disheartening message. Such a beautiful and enchanting master. Is there truly no way? The thought of her inability to cultivate made her feel as though she would have to shed her lovely garments. And her eyes began to well with tears once more. "Why are you crying?" Lin Xiao's puzzled gaze fell upon her. "And nothing." Luiying hastily wiped her tears. Yet they flowed more swiftly. Overwhelmed, she lamented, "My spiritual energy is blocked, and my meridians are unresponsive. My master cannot teach me to cultivate." "Who said that?" Luiying's words and tears came to an abrupt halt. She stared blankly at her master, her gaze fixated on his lips, which seemed poised to part. The obstruction of spiritual energy and the blockage of the 6 meridians indeed pose a significant dilemma. Lin Xiao remarked, shortly, "I shall provide you with a set of scriptures to stabilize your mind. Ensure you rest well, meditate, and recite them. Later, I will prepare a potent concoction to cleanse your essence and open your meridians. It may be quite painful, but you must endure. If your energy dissipates midway, the path of cultivation will become as arduous as ascending to the heavens." After speaking, Lin Xiao cast a glance at the still-dazed Luiying and inquired, "Do you understand?" The young girl, startled, quickly nodded her head, exclaiming, "I understand." "What do you understand?" Lin Xiao asked patiently, and Luiying scratched her head and speculated softly. "Master is going to give me a bath later." Lin Xiao waved his sleeve, unsure of how to respond, and simply handed her a sheet of the Qingxin Sutra. "Thank you, master." And Luiying's face lit up with joy as she embraced the script, though she found the words on it quite convoluted. As she recited the phrases in her heart, her initial happiness diminished somewhat. "You may return to your room now." "Yes." The girl dashed back to her quarters, cheerfully waving her hand before closing the door. Though he anticipated that his interactions with the girl would often lead to exasperation, witnessing this scene warmed Lin Xiao's heart. Regardless, She had become his disciple, and as her master, he must exert his utmost effort. Lin Xiao's gaze returned to the system, revealing only a few primary ingredients. Fortunately, he had some savings from recent years, sufficient to procure the remainder from the local shops. Shortly thereafter, Lin Xiao, disguised as an ordinary person, emerged from the apothecary carrying the necessary herbs. After announcing his intention to take disciples 3 days prior, the city buzzed with discussions about the immortal master, making it impractical to attract undue attention. Assuming his original appearance would only invite trouble, and his current golden core cultivation was still somewhat inadequate. Today alone, he had received visits from no fewer than 10 foundation establishment cultivators. Though they were mostly loose cultivators lacking in fortune, they were not far from advancing to golden core. This instilled a sense of caution within him. Only atop the solitary peak could he feel a semblance of warmth, embodying the form of a sage. As he strolled to the street corner, Lin Xiao suddenly halted, glancing at the vendors. He retrieved 5 coins from his pocket and selected a beautifully red and round candied fruit skewer. The excruciating pain of cleansing the essence would be somewhat alleviated by the sweetness of this treat. Thinking of his weeping little disciple brought a smile to Lin Xiao's face. Suddenly, the thunderous sound of galloping hooves approached rapidly, intruding upon the tranquility of the street. Lin Xiao furrowed his brow, lightly stepping aside to the street's edge, only to witness dozens of armored soldiers on sturdy steeds, escorting a horse-drawn carriage at a swift pace. Vendors, unable to gather their wares in time, hastily retreated, watching helplessly as their goods were overturned and scattered across the ground. The second floor of the inn was abruptly pushed open. Upon seeing the mark on the carriage, a chill ran down my spine. It was the carriage of the state master of the great Zhou dynasty. What? The state master has also arrived? My heavens! Even a peak cultivator of the transformation realm is here to seek guidance. Who is this immortal teacher? Let us not jump to conclusions. It could very well be the only daughter of the state master, with both the state master's household and the royal family present. If I were the sole one chosen, would that not be akin to soaring to greatness in a single leap? Such a terrifying prospect. Lin Xiao furrowed his brow slightly, his sleeves falling to shield him from the dust. The great Zhou dynasty, from the initial stages of qi training to foundation establishment, golden elixir, primordial infant, transformation, unity, and the quest for truth. To clearly understand the path one must tread is to achieve greatness. Above great beings lies the sage. The peak of the transformation realm already represents the strongest presence on this land. Whether it is he or that solitary daughter, it seems illogical for them to come here. Could that prince have discerned my cultivation level? Remaining here lost in thought would yield no results. Lin Xiao turned his gaze towards Dufeng Mountain. His steps were unassuming, indistinguishable from those of the common folk, yet his pace was astonishingly swift, vanishing in an instant. Upon setting foot on Dufeng Mountain, an abundance of spiritual energy surged within him, potent enough to shatter a mountain range. A sage. If only I could possess such strength when I step out one day. Shaking his head slightly, Lin Xiao entered the room of Enluing, carrying herbs and candied hawthorn. The young girl sat cross-legged on her bed, quietly reciting the clear heart sutra. Sensing the sound, she suddenly opened her eyes, as if a gentle breeze had swept past her brow. Master! Enluing exclaimed joyfully. Well done, Lin Xiao replied, nodding in satisfaction. Truly, she was blessed with black fortune, even with her spiritual channels blocked. She had achieved such results using merely the narrowest of 2 meridians, her mind completely at peace. Moreover, during the time he was away, she had not wandered off but remained focused on her recitations, which pleased him greatly. The path of cultivation is inherently arduous. With her already delicate constitution, lacking resolve would lead to complete failure. I will prepare medicine for you right away. Lin Xiao approached, placing the candied hawthorn that the girl had been staring at into her hands. The process of refining and opening the meridians is excruciating. It is advisable to indulge in some sweets. If you can persevere, I shall procure more for you. Thank you, master. Influenced by the clear heart sutra, Enluing obediently accepted the treat, not questioning what might happen if she couldn't endure. Lin Xiao's gaze softened as he reached out to gently pat the top of her head. Keep it up. With that, he turned and exited the wooden cabin, beginning preparations for the medicinal concoction. This is a rather troublesome task. Different attributes of herbs may have conflicting properties, and a moment's carelessness could ruin the entire batch. As he began to brew the refining soup for the first time, Lin Xiao proceeded with utmost caution. Only after adding a few primary herbs did he relax, directing his attention towards the system panel. The urgency to accept the first reward for accepting disciples had yet to be addressed. As I opened the storage compartment, several glimmering items immediately caught my eye. Cultivation diary, Enluing. Item description, Enluing's cultivation diary, which can be extracted once a month. Upon use, 15 points of Lin Xiao's cultivation will be relayed back to the host. The experience package extracted monthly. Lin Xiao swiftly defined the item before turning to another. My heart flow, item description. With a single thought, all things become clear. The Zhuan Di Sutra, suitable for Lin Xiao's cultivation. My heart flow, moonlight echo, item description. Swordsmanship accompanying my heart flow, at the quasi-emperor level, suitable for Lin Xiao's cultivation. My heart flow, wind without trace, item description. Footwork accompanying my heart flow, at the quasi-emperor level, suitable for Lin Xiao's cultivation. A complete set of quasi-emperor level techniques. Lin Xiao was instantly captivated. As a mere cultivator at the golden core stage, his techniques barely reached the spirit transformation stage, categorically the most inferior. Now, merely taking on a disciple had granted him access to quasi-emperor level techniques. The key factor was their appropriateness. Throughout history, how many have struggled to cultivate ancient emperor scriptures due to differing paths? Forcing oneself to learn would only lead to madness. Yet, Lin Xiao had not even commenced her cultivation and already possessed the most fitting quasi-emperor level techniques. Truly enviable. It was no wonder she had ascended to such a high fortune. After perusing a few pages of My Heart Flow, Lin Xiao shook his head in resignation. It was not a cultivation technique suited for him. He could only await future rewards. With this thought, his gaze lingered on the final item. 1% of the power of an ancient emperor. Item description. As the name implies, upon use, one can obtain 1% of the power of an ancient emperor. Resonating with the heavens, lasting 5 minutes. Lin Xiao's mouth opened in astonishment, nearly exclaiming in disbelief. An ancient emperor. This was a figure of unparalleled strength throughout history. Even 1% of such power could crush a sage with ease. Not even a great sage or a sage king could withstand a mere glance. What a remarkable treasure. His frustration over not having a suitable cultivation scripture vanished, and Lin Xiao's spirits soared. Gazing at the bubbling green liquid, he could hardly contain the smile on his face. To think he would gain 1% of an emperor's power. Once he nurtured Lin Xiao, wouldn't the stakes rise to 5% in the future? He was not picky. Elevating his strength to that of a sage king would suffice. He wondered what the teaching standards were. If it was a sage, the time wasted would be considerable. As he pondered, the addition of herbs filled the wooden barrel before him with an extraordinary aroma. It was akin to bursting fruits on the road, sweet and delectable. Lin Xiao's eyes sparkled as he gestured to reduce the fire, rising from his seat. This elixir of refinement had successfully come to fruition. Chapter 5. Selecting treasures. The air was thick with heat, and the pungent aroma accumulated at the mountain's summit, soon wafting into the small wooden cabin. And Lin Xiao cautiously pushed open the door, only to find Lin Xiao standing before a wooden tub, stirring a verdant liquid with a stick, her heart fluttering nervously as she swallowed hard. This scene bore an uncanny resemblance to a tale of a cannibalistic witch from folklore. Realizing her thoughts were rather inappropriate, and Lin Xiao shook her head, attempting to dispel her chaotic musings. Her master was so charming that even if he were a witch, he would be the finest of them all. At that moment, sensing her gaze, Lin Xiao turned around and beckoned her over. And Lin Xiao took small steps and hurried to his side. Master, have you caught a whiff of the aroma? Lin Xiao inquired with a smile. His spirits high, not only due to the emperor's hidden cards, but also because he had acquired a disciple capable of cultivating the imperial scriptures. And Lin Xiao cast a fearful glance at the bubbling cauldron, instinctively clutching his garment, her voice trembling. Master, do I really need to disrobe and enter now? Lin Xiao's expression turned stern. He was a mentor, not a deranged killer. Wouldn't he plunging into the freshly brewed concoction spell disaster? Was this disciple lacking a few marbles in her head? Realizing she might have posed a foolish question that displeased her master, and Lin Xiao promptly sealed her lips. Though her thoughts were somewhat misguided, it was not a grave issue. The young girl possessed a kind heart and an inherently lively disposition, which sufficed. From then on, Lin Xiao could only hope she would unlock her meridians and exhibit a modicum of talent. After all, whether clever or simple-minded, he would garner feedback on his cultivation. If she truly could not progress, nurturing her for a lifetime would be no burden. With this contemplation, Lin Xiao shook his head and gently remarked, "The medicinal brew has just been simmered. It must rest for 6 hours to maximize its efficacy." And Lin Xiao, reflecting on her earlier pain, resolved to keep her mouth shut and behave like a compliant child. However, Lin Xiao had no intention of idling. Shifting his focus to the newly activated features, he glanced down at the young girl beside him. "There is still time. May I present you with 2 gifts? Gifts." And Lin Xiao immediately recalled the candied hawthorn she had just enjoyed, nearly drooling at the thought. She discreetly wiped her mouth, lifting her face with innocent eagerness as she asked, "Master, didn't you already give me candied hawthorn?" The process of refining one's essence was excruciating, with only a handful able to endure it. At least the candied hawthorn was sweet. Lin Xiao, choosing not to elaborate, stated plainly, this time. The gifts I bestow upon you are those to aid you on your path of cultivation. And Luing blinked her large eyes. Remembering the cultivators she had seen soaring through the skies on flying swords, instinctively tightening her grip on the hem of her garment. Suddenly, Lin Xiao reached out, taking hold of her delicate hand. There is no need for formality. I am your master. In response to the astonished gaze of the young girl, he nodded, suggesting that, barring any unforeseen circumstances, they would be living together in the coming years. As he spoke, their figures suddenly vanished from their original location. And Lu Qing felt a brief flicker before arriving in a different place, nervously grasping that broad hand, her petite frame leaning closer to his leg. Lin Xiao, however, appeared indifferent. Or perhaps his attention had shifted to the surrounding environment. They found themselves within a cave, its walls adorned with torches. Between every two torches stood a wooden door, inscribed from left to right with the words, Spirit Tool, Treasure Tool, Tao Tool, Saint Tool. Among them, two doors were darkened, temporarily inaccessible. Lin Xiao surmised that these chambers likely housed quasi-imperial tools and imperial weapons. After all, with quasi-imperial laws already in place, it seemed that casually obtaining imperial weapons, which sounded quite formidable, was no longer a rarity. Unfortunately, these treasures were designated solely for disciples. Should he attempt to wield them, he would merely handle mundane iron and armor. Lin Xiao sighed silently. Possessing a treasure trove, yet being unable to utilize it was undoubtedly the most torturous predicament. He could only hope that this young girl would prove herself, bringing forth surprises through her efforts along the path of instruction. His expectations were modest. A few imperial weapons and some arrays for slaying immortals would suffice. Disciple, your master's future rests upon you. Lin Xiao grasped in Liu Qing's hand and earnestly encouraged. You possess great determination. You can undoubtedly carve out your own realm. And Liu Qing, who had been observing her surroundings, was suddenly taken aback by the compliment, exclaiming, I will definitely not disappoint Master's high hopes. Indeed, Lin Xiao casually remarked, leading in Liu Qing to the door of the treasure tool chamber. It was unwise to blindly revere the saint tools. At the outset of her cultivation, the treasure tools were already the pinnacle of what she could wield. Choosing anything beyond that could potentially result in self-harm while attempting to harm others. Opting for something too superior might also attract the attention of equally potent adversaries seeking to claim the treasures. As he pushed open the small door, an array of weapons immediately filled their view. Swords, spears, halberds, axes, and hooks, jeweled pagodas, golden bells, silver fans, and bronze vessels. A dazzling array of weapons radiated brilliance, overwhelming in Liu Qing's senses. Instinctively, she clutched Lin Xiao's arm, exclaiming in panic, Master, Master, there are so many treasures. Do not be afraid. Your master is also intimidated. Lin Xiao gently stroked the girl's head, unable to suppress his astonishment. There were simply too many. Had the system gathered the world's treasures here? To retrieve just one item per month, how many months and disciples would it take to empty this place? This was a monumental undertaking, and Liu Qing gradually began to acclimate. Gazing at the vast treasure trove, her mouth fell agape, utterly unsure of where to begin her selection. Take your time. Choose the one you like best. All right. And Lu Ying tightly grasped her master's hand, wandering amidst the various weapon racks. Before long, she felt an inclination and selected a long sword adorned with red tassels. The blade shimmered like moonlight, exquisitely radiant, with two characters inscribed beside the hilt. Ruyu. Master. And Lu Ying tilted her small head upward. Is this the one? Lin Xiao inquired. Yes. Very well. I shall find you a potent herb. In a flash, they appeared in the midst of several medicinal fields. There were still 6 plots, labeled as 1,000-year, 10,000-year, 100,000-year, and sacred grade. From the sacred grade onward, the efficacy of the herbs could not merely be assessed by their age. The potent herb was synonymous with 10,000 years. With the experience of their first selection, Lin Xiao led in Lu Ying directly into the fields. After approximately 3 minutes, they discovered the desired fruit, the dragon blood fruit. It was said that this fruit tree was nourished by dragon's blood, capable of nurturing and fortifying the meridians. Following the forceful breaking of her pathways, and Lu Ying's body would undoubtedly be exceedingly fragile, and this potent herb would serve her perfectly. Having completed their selection, Lin Xiao brought in Lu Ying back to the mountaintop, bathed once more in the refreshing breeze at the summit, and Lu Ying gazed incredulously into her arms. After confirming that all that had transpired was not a dream, the astonishment upon her face remained indelible. The ability to traverse time and space so effortlessly was something she had never heard of from any storyteller. She clenched her tiny pink fist. I can do this. If this master teaches me, I will surely avenge my parents and the fallen kin. I will make those villains pay. The bitter medicinal concoction must be endured. Chapter 6. Opening the meridians, time flew swiftly. The medicinal concoction was soon prepared. Lin Xiao moved his fingers, channeling spiritual energy to envelop the wooden tub, bringing it to Lu Ying's wooden cottage. The young girl was practicing the heart purification technique. Upon suddenly opening her eyes, she beheld the steaming herbal bath, resolute determination flickering in her gaze. Lin Xiao set down the tub, turned, and declared, "We may begin." "All right." Without hesitation, Lu Ying discarded her new garments. Gripping the edge of the tub, she executed a magnificent leap, completely submerging herself within. The medicinal liquid swayed, akin to the undulating waves of the sea. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The tub continued to emit splashing sounds. Lin Xiao furrowed his brow, extending his hand to grasp the girl's neck, pulling her head above the surface. "You survived." The girl, nearly drowning, bit down on her teeth and cast a grateful glance. The potion had begun to take effect. She was utterly at a loss for words, her entire body seemingly pierced by needles. Her throat felt ablaze, having inadvertently swallowed a couple of mouthfuls. When Lin Xiao pulled her up, he released his grip. Observing Lu Ying's resolute expression, he couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. Surprisingly, he managed to persevere. Remarkable indeed. He was fortunate, as upon traversing to this realm, he could commence his cultivation, thereby sparing himself the agony of bodily suffering. Yet, during his practice, he encountered a fellow cultivator who had to forcibly open their meridians. The individual, burdened by 3 constricted meridians and 1 obstructed, lamented the pain so intensely that they nearly succumbed to despair. The terror in their expression was far too genuine to be feigned. At this moment, Lu Ying's current demeanor reminded him of a young maiden taking hesitant steps, undeterred by rejection, facing the harsh elements with unwavering resolve, all in pursuit of a fleeting chance at transcendence. Lin Xiao's gaze softened as he gently caressed her hair. "Does it hurt?" "It does." Lu Ying's voice trembled uncontrollably, each word seemingly consuming her entire strength. "It's all right to cry out, to express your pain." "Master, will you dislike me? Why would you think that? I previously spoke foolishly, and I fear my master might not approve. I do not wish to bring you unhappiness." As the medicinal energy began to permeate her body, the sensations intensified, causing the young girl to clench her teeth in tremors, her speech fractured. Lin Xiao observed this resilient and sensible child in silence. Despite appearing somewhat eccentric, her character and spirit were remarkably commendable. Clumsy yet thoughtful, determined yet naive, this child possessed the aura of a great emperor. Do not dwell on such thoughts. By accepting you as my disciple, I have embraced all that you are. Lin Xiao smiled gently. Whether clever or simple, you shall forever remain my apprentice. Lu Ying gazed at her charmingly smiling master, tears like pearls cascading into the medicinal bath. Finally, at the moment the elixir made contact with her meridians, the girl grasped Lin Xiao's arm and cried out, "Master, it hurts so much. Am I breaking apart? Oh, the trials of cultivation are unbearable." The words she uttered became mere fragments, her consciousness wavering. The pain was so excruciating that she would faint only to be jolted awake again, her tears flowing like a broken string of pearls into the tub. This torment persisted for 3 hours. Eventually, as the green liquid transformed into clarity, tainted once more, the girl succumbed to unconsciousness. Lin Xiao exhaled a long, deep breath. With gentle strength, he cradled the girl in his arms, fully acknowledging his little disciple. As he gazed upon her blooming form, his heart remained undisturbed. A thread of spiritual energy flowed from his fingertips, transforming into warmth to evaporate the droplets upon her skin. He then laid her directly onto the bed. The 6 meridians had been opened, paving the way for the circulation of the 8 meridians. Establishing a complete small and large circulation, hope for her cultivation was now within reach. He tidied the disheveled hair from her face and placed the heart-flowing Emperor Sutra alongside the dragon blood fruit on the bedside table before stepping out of the wooden cabin. Ding! Stage Task 1. Opening the meridians has been accomplished. Reward. Mid-stage Golden Core Realm awarded. Reward. Dao Artifact. Qianyuan's Sword awarded. A hum resonated as Lin Xiao closed his eyes, feeling a surge of pure spiritual energy coursing through his body. This cleansing not only solidified his unstable foundation, but also elevated his prowess significantly. At that moment, he felt a sense of superiority, almost dismissing the nascent soul stage. However, this sentiment quickly faded upon inadvertently catching sight of the system panel. Name: Lin Xiao. Age: 24. Strength: Mid-stage Golden Core. Cultivation Techniques: Golden Yuan Sutra, Wind Sword Technique. One Leaf Soars to the Sky. Disciple: Lu Ying. Established Sect: Xianmen, less than a year old. System Evaluation: Golden Core is but a mere dog, nascent souls abound. Retracting his gaze, Lin Xiao turned his attention to the Qianyuan sword beside him. The hilt was adorned with black leather, the sheath crafted from the same exquisite material. As he gently drew the sword, a melodious clang resonated, reverberating across the peak of Dufeng Mountain. The blade shimmered with a radiance that seemed to outshine even the moonlight above. What a magnificent sword! Lin Xiao felt invigorated. In this era, wandering cultivators struggled to thrive. His previous sword was merely a spiritual artifact, a significant expenditure of 100 spirit stones, a fortune he had yet to part with. Now, this Qianyuan sword not only possessed unparalleled sharpness, but also embodied a unique Tao essence, rendering his techniques more effective. It could even transform into a small dragon, summoning winds and rains, wielding spells just shy of the enlightenment realm. With such a treasured sword, Lin Xiao could boast a modicum of high-level combat prowess. At the very least, the Peak God Transformation National Master would no longer pose a threat to him. With a clang, he sheathed the blade that surpassed the moon's glow, returning it to the system space. Lin Xiao then shifted his gaze to the developmental tasks exclusive to Enluing. Stage Task 2, Breakthrough Foundation Establishment. Achievement Task 1, Achieve Qi Refinement. Achievement Task 2, Minor Accomplishment in the Emperor's Sutra. Achievement Task 3, Minor Accomplishment in Swordsmanship. Achievement Task 4, Minor Accomplishment in Body Techniques. There were many tasks, yet they were not overly complex. After a brief contemplation, Lin Xiao grasped the requirements for his disciple's departure. Achieving all tasks would lead her to her own Tao, transforming her into a formidable practitioner and enabling her to master the scriptures and techniques to a minor accomplishment. For a golden core practitioner like him, this was no small challenge. Nonetheless, as the saying goes, the master opens the door, but the disciple must enter by themselves. Lin Xiao was prepared to impart all his knowledge to Enluing without reservation. Whether she could grasp it or how swiftly she would progress depended entirely on fate. Even those talented individuals endowed with numerous spiritual treasures and elixirs would pale in comparison before truly powerful practitioners. Even in a world teeming with the indolent, Lin Xiao firmly believes that with such resolute willpower, Enluing can undoubtedly become an object of admiration if only granted a single opportunity. As for the young girl's past, should Enluing wish to share it, she is free to do so. It seems that the spiritual stones are dwindling, and the medicinal pills require careful replenishment. No one should impoverish a child. With the deadline for accepting disciples approaching tomorrow, a visit to the royal city is in order. Chapter 7. Collaboration. I am Yo Dabin, the son of a cattle herder from the foothills. My father has heard tales of immortals residing in the mountains, urging me to seek my fortune here. I am Su Yang, having been in the realm of cultivation for 2.5 years. If the immortal master is willing to accept me as a disciple, the Su Clan Merchant Association will surely offer substantial support. I am Zhou Yang, the third prince of the great Zhou dynasty, a foundational level cultivator, eager to enter the immortal sect in pursuit of a chance to ascend. On a serene morning atop the independent peak, after completing the customary procedures, Lin Xiao encountered an unexpected guest. The departing cultivators were taken aback, instinctively parting to clear a path, murmuring in hushed tones among themselves. Could it be that esteemed figure? Has he also arrived? Is this individual truly a reclusive elder? It seems that even those at the pinnacle of transformation seek a master. With the deadline for accepting disciples today, should we not strive a bit harder? Indeed, with the saint's extraordinary cultivation, Lin Xiao effortlessly intercepted the whispers of the crowd. He furrowed his brow in contemplation. That esteemed figure? Just as he pondered, a cultivator clad in a Taoist robe, approximately 5 feet tall, slowly ascended the stone path. With an ethereal presence and a youthful visage, he exuded an air of wisdom befitting an elder. His long hair tied back, he resembled a celestial youth, yet emanated the aura of one who had traversed the sands of time. After a brief gaze, a translucent blue page materialized before Lin Xiao. Name: Yin Yunlu. Title: National Master of the Great Zhou Dynasty. Strength: Pinnacle of Unity Realm. Fate: Blue. Responding to the national fortune, Lin Xiao raised an eyebrow. Having just deduced the identity of the national master of the Great Zhou, the blue fate was anticipated. Yet the revelation of his being at the pinnacle of the Unity Realm was a stark deviation from expectations. In an instant, Lin Xiao perceived the once ethereal youth, now transformed into a cunning and duplicitous elder. Bah! To still refer to him as a youth would be misleading, should one examine his bone age. He is undoubtedly a pretender clinging to the facade of youth. Inherently kind-hearted, Lin Xiao found it impossible to align himself with such a character. Thus, after a moment of observation, he shook his head and uttered the standard words of refusal. There is no fated connection between us. Please take your leave. Astonishment rippled through the crowd. The assembled cultivators could hardly believe their ears, their eyes wide with disbelief as they gazed incredulously at the calm and collected Lin Xiao. What had they just heard? The most formidable cultivator of the dynasty, at the pinnacle of the transformation stage, a master of the great Zhou, beneath whom countless souls reside, surprisingly fails to capture the attention of the immortal masters? This individual stands as the mightiest cultivator within a radius of thousands of miles. Even though the great Zhou lies on the fringes of the eastern continent of the wild domain, and despite the elder's advanced age, his unparalleled strength has already attested to his innate gifts. Yet, such a person is overlooked. The onlookers are left to ponder whether this immortal is truly adept or merely fearless in the face of danger. A few astute and powerful individuals swiftly turned away, fearing an unintentional injury should a conflict arise. Others, oblivious to the unconscious aura exuded by Lin Xiao, regarded him with disdainful smirks. Those who have embarked on the path of cultivation harbor a sense of pride, believing themselves superior, faced with repeated setbacks on this modest peak of solitude. Had they not been uncertain of Lin Xiao's prowess, they would have long since taken action. Now, witnessing the peak master entangle himself with a formidable opponent, they were eager for a spectacle. Some even harbored ulterior motives, contemplating that should Lin Xiao's strength prove comparable to the master, they could seize the opportunity like mantises stalking cicadas, their eyes glimmering with avarice. Such petty thoughts, of course, did not escape the gaze of Lin Xiao and Yin Yunlu. The latter, shaking his head in resignation, sighed softly. Before we address the matter at hand, allow me to clear away these insignificant beings. He unveiled a fraction of his aura, and the formidable might of the transformation stage erupted forth, instantly sending the nearest cultivator flying. A wave of spiritual energy, akin to a colossal tide, caused a multitude of foundation-level practitioners to collapse in disarray. Suddenly, a gentle breeze swept through, casting them all over the cliff's edge. Lin Xiao had made his move. Withdrawing his casually gestured hand, he glanced at the stunned yet elated master, remarking coolly, "Do not stain my azure stone steps." It was my impudence. In that moment, the master humbly regarded himself as a junior. His body trembled faintly. He recognized this feeling. It was unmistakable. It could not be wrong. The inquiry stage? No, at the very least, a formidable practitioner. Having consolidated the vast majority of resources of the great Zhou, he had mastered the strongest techniques, confident that he could contend with any opponent at the inquiry realm. Yet, before him, Lin Xiao loomed like an unfathomable abyss. The overwhelming power unleashed in mere moments rendered him utterly defenseless. Enough. On the peak of solitude, Lin Xiao, imbued with the aura of a sage, proclaimed with unrestrained confidence, "If you possess the strength of the pinnacle of the harmonization realm, why conceal it?" Yin Guosher's expression turned grave. He had indeed been discovered. Before such a formidable being, all facades are naught but illusions. He hastily bowed in submission, a wry smile gracing his lips as he replied, "My lord jests." Presently, the fortune of the great Zhou is nearly extinguished, surrounded by ravenous wolves, and a single misstep could lead to my demise. I am left with no choice but to conceal my strength. Let us speak of the matter at hand. Lin Xiao raised his hand, halting his lamentations. He is certainly not a mere do-gooder who rushes to assist anyone in distress. Furthermore, these are merely the words of Yin Yunlu. The veracity of the matter remains to be investigated. Fortunately, the national master, having cultivated to his current level of prowess, is no fool. Sensing Lin Xiao's impatience, he immediately laid the matter bare. In 2.5 months, a secret realm will be unveiled at the ruins of the great Xia dynasty, accessible only to cultivators below the golden core stage and under the age of 20. Our great Zhou has 5 quotas. Similarly, the great Chu, great Qi, and great Ping each possess 5 quotas as well. I suspect they have already conspired in secret, intent on plotting against our great Zhou. Seeking assistance from abroad at this juncture would likely arouse their suspicions. Thus, in this meeting with you, esteemed elder, I hope to exchange one of our entry quotas for your assistance in safeguarding my disciple from harm. The 4 nations of Great Zhou, Great Chu, Great Qi, and Great Ping emerged as autonomous entities following the collapse of the Great Xia. Great Zhou lies at the easternmost edge, with the remnants of the Great Xia imperial city situated within its territory. To be candid, the existence of the secret realm piqued Lin Xiao's interest, not due to treasures. For even the wealth of the former Great Xia pales in comparison to that of the system's treasury. However, those who gain entry will undoubtedly be the geniuses and elites among the 4 nations. True knowledge is gleaned through practical combat. By mingling among them, unlawing strength will surely experience exponential growth. Yet, these conditions warrant careful consideration. After all, this matter will unfold in 2 months. The specifics will depend on the aptitude of my disciple and her capacity to establish a solid foundation swiftly. I shall not intervene. Lin Xiao's tone was cold and rigid. This is a conflict between your 4 nations. At most, I will ensure your disciple's safety, preventing her from perishing in battle or suffering harm. Yin Guosher's expression fluctuated between green and white. Preserving his disciple was his bottom line, yet it was unexpectedly stated outright. Was it a mere guess? Or had he discerned my true thoughts? Yin Guosher leaned towards the latter. The enigmatic powers that be are beyond imagination. Ultimately, he exhaled a deep breath and replied earnestly, "Very well, I can acquiesce to this. So be it." Lin Xiao showed no intent of prolonging the conversation and decisively stated, "Notify me before the secret realm opens. I shall accompany you then." "Thank you, esteemed elder." Having resolved a significant concern, Yin Guosher promptly bowed to Lin Xiao, daring not to exhibit any airs of his position. In a realm where strength reigns supreme, one's mere displeasure could lead to the annihilation of an entire family. Even as a national master, possessing nearly invincible power on the fringes of the world, he too treads cautiously and anxiously along the path of cultivation. A single misstep could result in a tragic fall and the extinguishing of one's life. Chapter 8. Doctrines of Cultivation Master. As I watched the esteemed master of the Zhou dynasty turn away, a delicate voice called out from behind me. Lin Xiao, with her hair cascading loosely, hurried down the stone steps, her long locks bouncing like a fawn emerging from the forest. Breathing heavily, she came to a stop in front of Lin Xiao, her large, bright eyes brimming with uncontainable joy. "Master, you have awakened?" Lin Xiao cast a glance at her tousled hair, a smirk tugging at his lips as he suppressed the urge to smile, and inquired, "Yesterday, you successfully opened your meridians. How do you feel now? Has your body changed?" "Yes," Lin Xiao replied earnestly. "I feel light and full of energy. I ran swiftly down the mountain to find you." Lin Xiao maintained a calm demeanor and nodded. The medicinal concoction not only opened her meridians, but also cleansed her of the impurities accumulated in her youth. At this moment, her body resembled that of a newborn, untainted by the dust of the world, perfectly poised to absorb spiritual energy. "Did you see the dragon blood fruit and the scriptures I left on your desk?" Lin Xiao's expression faltered, her fingers intertwining as she shyly lowered her head. Perhaps, in the excitement of awakening from a great dream, she had forgotten to look. "I didn't notice," she stammered. Expecting a reprimand, she instinctively recoiled. But Lin Xiao merely shook his head gently, his tone warm. "No matter. With me by your side, your cultivation will be safer. That dragon blood fruit is best consumed raw. You may have it for breakfast today." As he spoke, Lin Xiao ascended the stone steps, imparting knowledge about the precautions and fundamentals of cultivation. Lin Xiao hurried to follow, unable to resist glancing at his profile. Before long, she shyly averted her gaze. Her cheeks gradually tinged with crimson. Handsome and gentle, her master truly was a good person. Upon reaching the summit, Lin Xiao looked down at the still bashful girl. "Do you understand everything I've said?" "Yes," and Lin Xiao nodded earnestly. "Now, recite what I just taught you," Lin Xiao instructed. With some hesitation, and Lin Xiao managed to relay about 5 or 6 points of the cultivation principles he had shared. After listening, Lin Xiao nodded with mild approval. "Your memory serves you well. Now, go eat that dragon blood fruit, and I will teach you how to draw spiritual energy into your body." "Okay," and Lin Xiao replied, her short legs racing back to her wooden cabin. When she emerged again, her lips were stained a vivid red, and she cradled the tome of scriptures in her arms. "Master, why are you eating so quickly?" Lin Xiao asked, retrieving a handkerchief from his sleeve and bending down to wipe the fruit juice from her lips. "At 14, you should not still behave like a child." And Lin Xiao pressed her lips together, her gaze evasive, as her heart raced. Being so close, she could even catch the fragrance of her master's garments. Just yesterday, she was a despised, wretched beggar. Today, she found herself cherished by a celestial being like her master. And Lin Xiao felt as if she were living in the clouds, both enchanting and fearful of falling. After completing the cleansing ritual, Lin Xiao summoned 2 cushions and sat opposite her. Opening the Sutra of the Provisional Emperor, characters transformed into golden symbols, soaring into the air under the influence of the sage's power. You remain untainted by karma, untouched by reincarnation. This text, which emphasizes the state of the heart, allows for profound self-awareness, making it the most suitable cultivation method for you. Now, lend me your attentive ear as I commence my teachings. And Lin Xiao, burdened by the weight of blood debts, displayed a carefree demeanor but understood that this was her singular opportunity. Thus, she listened intently as her master imparted wisdom. When it came time to practice the reception of spiritual energy, witnessing her master's flawless posture, she promptly closed her eyes without hesitation. Soon, tendrils of spiritual energy, guided with intent, began to flow gently into her being. Lin Xiao focused intently, discerning at a glance that Lin Xiao lacked innate talents like the divine body or Tao body. The disparity with others became most apparent during her initial absorption of spiritual energy, when Lin Xiao began his cultivation. His absorption rate exceeded that of his peers by 50%, a fact that had once filled him with quiet elation. Conversely, individuals with extraordinary gifts could absorb energy at nearly 56 times the rate of others, and some could even manifest extraordinary phenomena. Suddenly, Lin Xiao furrowed his brow, sensing an overwhelming force emanating from Lin Xiao. With a wave of his hand, he enveloped the summit of Dufeng Mountain. In the next instant, the entire peak was shrouded in darkness. A singular, unparalleled figure stood beneath the radiance, commanding the myriad sword energies that converged upon this place. Gazing upon her was akin to standing at the center of the universe, rendering it impossible to avert one's gaze. Lin Xiao's body trembled. What is this phenomenon? What in the world? I merely pondered it, and yet it has truly manifested? The manifestation appeared fleetingly before vanishing into thin air. Taking a deep breath, Lin Xiao felt a sense of relief. Thankfully, he had sensed something amiss and preemptively secured the summit of Dufeng. Had it escaped, it would have easily drawn the attention of other cultivators. Phenomena and physical constitution are known to every practitioner. Akin to solving a mathematical problem, one must comprehend the fundamentals, even if they have never encountered them before. Though in Liuqing's manifestation appeared simple, merely a person and a sword, the inherent might was enough to raise the vigilance of Lin Xiao, a being of saintly caliber. For those of the same realm, carelessly stepping into such a presence would result in immediate obliteration by the myriad sword energies, certain death. Unaware that she had inadvertently released a phenomenon, Lin Xiao maintained a serious expression, diligently executing the actions necessary to activate the Qi refinement section of the Sutra of the Provisional Emperor. In an instant, an immense force surged forth, drawing in all surrounding spiritual energy. Lin Xiao widened his eyes. The power of the saintly realm swiftly radiated forth, revealing that even spiritual energy from over 10 miles away was rushing toward this location in eager haste. Such grandiosity is not merely 56 times that of an ordinary individual. It could well be a factor of 10 or even 20. Is this what it means to be a genius? Lin Xiao felt a fleeting sense of melancholy. With such velocity, one day of effort equates to the arduous toil of others spanning several tens of days, utterly unreasonable. Coupled with an abundance of potent elixirs and treasures, what chance remains for the rest? Fortunately, he is a player with advantages. The dimness in his eyes was soon eclipsed by the radiance of the system. Lin Xiao accessed the task page, and the achievement task astonishingly transformed into a claimable status. A gentle touch elicited a familiar chime in his ears. Ding ding. Congratulations, host. For completing the achievement task, rewards have been dispensed. As his consciousness delved inward, two gleaming items immediately captured his attention. Spirit Gathering Array. Item description, upon use. One can master a formidable array capable of condensing myriad spiritual energies, allowing for serene cultivation without disturbing the surrounding environment, enhancing the rate of energy absorption by 5 times. To augment an already unparalleled advantage by an additional 5-fold, Lin Xiao couldn't help but draw in a sharp breath. The foundation of a genius sect is simply beyond the grasp of ordinary people. With a mere thought, the spirit gathering array transformed into a warm current, flowing into his body. In an instant, Lin Xiao mastered this array, potent enough to support a large sect. With a subtle motion of his fingers, he retrieved several spirit stones and began inscribing the array atop the peak of the solitary mountain. Chapter 9. A fortunate day. Meanwhile, at the foot of the mountain, on the second floor of an inn, the national master who had just descended was eager to seize the moment for cultivation, only to be profoundly impacted by the immense aura emanating from the peak. His face bore an expression of astonishment as he gazed toward the solitary mountain, soon replaced by a look of ecstatic joy. Such grandeur. Was it the work of a senior in cultivation? He had never imagined it could be a novice just entering the realm of cultivation, for in this desolate Great Zhou, no newcomer had ever stirred the spiritual energies for miles around. Only a powerful cultivator could generate such a sweeping momentum, akin to that of a predator. However, at this level, one would expect that regular meditation would not manifest so ostentatiously. After all, they are all cultivators. Being so flamboyant might invite disaster, especially if encountered by someone stronger who might take offense. Could it be that this was a show of support for him? Contemplating this, Yan Yunlu was suddenly moved to tears. Rising to his feet, he offered a deep bow toward the solitary mountain. Although the senior's tone was frigid, they were undoubtedly a benevolent soul. Grateful for such assistance, he vowed to cultivate diligently and survive amidst the encirclement of several hostile nations. For the sake of the Great Zhou, he would strive to continue the dynasty for another century. Unbeknownst to Lin Xiao, engrossed in the meticulous engraving of the array, his disciple's cultivation had sparked such profound thoughts within the national master. Merely inscribing this array had already placed pressure on him, who possessed a foundation akin to that of a sage. The quality of this array was undoubtedly exceptional. Regrettably, as a solitary practitioner, his understanding of formations was limited, leaving him uncertain about the specifics of the spirit-gathering array. Drawing upon the profound insights of his inner system, he completed the final stroke. Instantly, the swirling spiritual energy from the outside calmed, and due to the brief tumult, it lingered in place, enriching the spiritual essence of the great Zhou dynasty. Meanwhile, within, a significant transformation unfolded. The spirit-gathering array commenced its operation, causing the towering trees to surge with vigorous growth, while the planted spiritual flora swiftly germinated, taking shape within mere minutes. Wisps of ethereal energy, almost visible to the naked eye, adorned the summit of this solitary peak, rendering it akin to a celestial paradise. With a deep breath, one could feel as though 3 years had been added to one's lifespan. For reasons unknown, this thought crossed Lin Xiao's mind, and he shook his head with a smile, sensing his own body stirring with anticipation. Despite possessing formidable cultivation, Lin Xiao remained at the mid-gold core stage and could only strive to ascend further. Tonight, however, promised a delightful indulgence. Returning to his mat, he settled into a proper meditation posture. Lu Ying's delicate face flushed with vitality. The abundant spiritual energy enveloped her, instilling a profound sense of satisfaction, prompting her to attempt to break through to the second layer of qi refinement without even grasping the subsequent training content. Lin Xiao sat quietly, refraining from interjecting. Although he was only at the gold core level, as a solitary practitioner, he had amassed a wealth of cultivation knowledge. Coupled with his experiences from his previous life reading novels, he understood that one could not judge a genius by ordinary standards. With him as her master, any missteps could be swiftly rectified. Let her proceed. A dense energy gradually coalesced into a vortex around Lu Ying. The girl pursed her lips, attacking the threshold before her with unrestrained vigor, causing it to collapse spectacularly. The second layer of qi refinement. Lin Xiao initially anticipated that she would open her eyes, prepared to continue her instruction, but to his surprise, Lu Ying remained silent, immediately launching an assault on the third layer. Within mere tens of minutes, the breakthrough to the third layer occurred. Half an hour later, the fourth layer was breached. Just as Lin Xiao sighed, the fifth layer was surpassed. While contemplating whether to prepare lunch, the spiritual energy enveloping the girl finally dissipated with a thunderous roar, signaling her breakthrough to the sixth layer of qi refinement. Lu Ying opened her eyes in delight. Master. Indeed, Lin Xiao exhaled softly, smiling. To achieve the sixth layer of qi refinement on your first attempt is truly impressive. The sixth layer of qi refinement. Lu Ying exclaimed, astonished by her own accomplishment. Moments ago, she had merely surged forth with her intent, gradually sensing her limitations before halting. Now, witnessing Lin Xiao's appreciative gaze, her heart swelled with sweetness akin to honey. You possess great talent, and you will progress swiftly along this path. But remember that a solid foundation is paramount. If you rush forward without regard, you may easily lose your true self or even fall into the abyss of obsession. After offering praise, a note of caution followed. Understood. Lu Ying's expression turned serious as she nodded in immediate understanding. Subsequently, Lin Xiao imparted the method of stabilizing the foundational essence to her, elaborating on the latter portion of the qi refinement stage of the heart flow technique. True to the system's designation of her as a quasi-emperor, Lu Ying grasped the concepts with remarkable speed. In but a moment, she was able to channel qi throughout her body, enhancing both her strength and resilience. This practice further tempered her physical form, leading to rapid growth in her constitution. Lin Xiao was exceedingly pleased. When noon arrived, he instructed her, "You have performed admirably. Now, you need only to solidify your realm and refine your foundation, and you shall surpass countless cultivators. In your practice, meditation is paramount. Should you find it difficult to stabilize, recite the tranquil heart mantra I previously taught you. I shall prepare lunch for you now. Focus your mind and continue your cultivation." "Yes," Lu Ying replied with a firm nod, closing her eyes. Lin Xiao rose, still feeling a touch of the dreamlike. If he continued at this pace, would it truly be possible to maintain his strength below the golden core stage and participate in that secret realm in 2.5 months? How perplexing it is when a disciple's talent is overly formidable. Lin Xiao stepped into his spiritual garden, selecting a variety of delectable ingredients. He then entered his humble abode, retrieving his pot and cutting board. His standards for cuisine were exceptionally high. In an effort to replicate the flavors of his previous life, he spared no expense in acquiring a myriad of spiritual plants. Among them, he discovered several that closely resembled the tastes he once cherished. Undoubtedly, the flavors were elevated to a superior version, coupled with his years of culinary expertise. Even an emperor served by imperial chefs would not have the pleasure of such exquisite delicacies. In high spirits, Lin Xiao hummed a tune as he gathered additional ingredients. Eager for his talented disciple to savor them, he began chopping and preparing. Should Yin Yunlu from the mountain below witness this, he would undoubtedly be astounded. A sage of such caliber, cooking? The pristine spiritual rice, requiring no washing, was placed into the pot, accompanied by immaculate mountain spring water for cooking. With some leisure time at hand, Lin Xiao's gaze lifted slightly, landing on his second reward. Manifestation of omnipotence. Item description. Upon use, one possesses the manifestation of omnipotence. Gazing down upon all, unmatched in strength, a powerful phenomenon only accessible to those favored by the heavenly Tao. Additional note. Currently ranked 7th among the formidable orthodoxies of this world. His hand trembled slightly while chopping, nearly nicking his finger. Lin Xiao felt he had encountered enough astonishing events for one day, only to stumble upon yet another. If he was not mistaken, this manifestation of omnipotence was precisely what Lu Ying had just exhibited. He had not anticipated that such a formidable power could also be a reward. Taking a deep breath, he clicked to claim it. Instantly, a torrent of strength surged into his body, akin to a mountain flood or a tidal wave. He closed his eyes, focusing intently on mastering this formidable force. Before long, Lin Xiao felt himself merge seamlessly with the surroundings. As if he had been destined to exist in this realm. He opened his eyes, astonished. Only those who possess extraordinary visions can truly comprehend the immense power they embody. What was once merely a saying among cultivators had now become a profound realization for him, revealing its true worth. Clenching his fists, he turned to glance at Lu Ying, who remained immersed in her silent cultivation. A smile crept upon his lips. Perhaps he should add some spirit beast meat. Today is indeed a splendid day. Chapter 10. A storm approaches. Moments later, Lin Xiao lifted the lid of the frying pan, and a rich aroma enveloped the entire Dufeng mountain. The sweet, savory juices of the meat and the glistening greens mingled with a fragrance so enticing that it could lure one into consuming 3 bowls of rice in an instant, shattering Lu Ying's meditative state. This was utterly outrageous. The young girl stealthily opened her eyes, mischievously glancing towards the stove. At that moment, she caught sight of Lin Xiao, who was serving the jelly-like tender meat onto a plate. Gulp. Lu Ying swallowed hard, fearing discovery, and pretended to gaze ahead. Yet, within seconds, her gaze was irresistibly drawn back, completely abandoning her state of cultivation. Lin Xiao noticed her unusual behavior, shaking his head with a smile, and beckoned her over. Since she could no longer focus on her practice, she might as well join him. The girl immediately scampered over, her little nose sniffing the air, maintaining an innocent demeanor as she chirped, "Master, are you hungry?" Lin Xiao ladled out the glistening greens, the succulent juices captivating the attention of those nearby. Gulping again, Lu Ying nodded pitifully. Since yesterday, she had consumed merely half a meat bun, a skewer of candied hawthorn, and a dragon blood fruit. At her age, when her body craved abundant nourishment, combined with her initial foray into cultivation, she had yet to reach the stage of fasting. Furthermore, Lin Xiao noted in Lu Ying's eager expression. Sensing her hunger, the well-preserved meat bun she had offered him was a testament to her determination. Lin Xiao picked up his chopsticks, delicately lifting a quivering piece of meat and offering it to the girl, his tone gentle. "Try this, see if it suits your palate." Lu Ying looked up at her master, cautiously grasping his sleeve. Leaning forward, she took a hearty bite, devouring the entire piece of spirit meat. The rich flavor burst in her mouth, the fatty portions crumbling with a mere press, while the lean meat was tender and fragrant. Combined with the sticky sauce draping over it, the experience was transcendent, as if she were about to ascend to the heavens. Lu Ying squinted her eyes like a small beast, cradling her chin in her hands, while happiness bubbles, reminiscent of an anime, floated around her. "Master, you are truly remarkable," Lin Xiao said with a smile, as he offered her another helping of vegetables. "Would you like to try the choice some?" "Absolutely." In mere minutes, the young genius, who had just embarked on her cultivation journey, transformed into a devoted eater, holding a bowl disproportionate to her age. She tossed spirit rice and spirit plants into her mouth with abandon. Lin Xiao shook his head slightly, but did not intervene. The spirit plants and spirit rice were imbued with spiritual energy, while ordinary cultivators might suffer from meridian swelling after overeating, and Lu Ying was different. A little excess was of no consequence. With the spirit gathering array, the cultivation speed of spirit rice and spirit plants had increased 5-fold. Considering the previous reserves, they would sustain them for quite a while. With 3 dishes and a soup, along with a small barrel of spirit rice. Most of it found its way into Lu Ying's belly, when she contentedly set down her bowl and let out a satisfied burp. She was taken aback to find that the table was left with little more than remnants of soup, a flush of embarrassment blooming on her face. She tucked her hands into her thighs and lowered her head, at a loss for words. How terribly impolite. Fortunately, Lin Xiao was unconcerned about such matters. Surely, it was not because his own bowl had been filled with food beforehand. After lunch, Lin Xiao began to impart another aspect of knowledge pertaining to the cultivation realm. The two resumed their seated position on the cushions. He reached into his sleeve and produced a translucent crystal, roughly the size of an adult's fist, with a pale blue hue, which he flicked into in Lu Ying's embrace. This object was known as a spirit stone, recognized as the currency of the cultivation world. The teachings resumed, and Lu Ying absorbed the information swiftly. Although her mind sometimes wandered in ways that eluded conventional thought, she was unafraid to ask questions and earnestly sought to comprehend every aspect of cultivation. Coupled with her prodigious talent and the mysteries of the realm, she soon developed a broad understanding of the cultivation world. Observing this scene, Lin Xiao could not help but feel a sense of admiration. Having a master to guide her made all the difference. These seemingly fundamental concepts were insights he had painstakingly gathered over several years through cautious interactions with other cultivators and participation in gatherings. Some encounters had even led him to the brink of life-threatening danger, incurring countless expenses before narrowly escaping. It was these harsh experiences that shaped his current cautious disposition, always leaving himself an escape route. Frowning, he retreated behind the crowd. When he broke through to the golden core stage, he had chosen to do so in the most remote dynasty of the eastern region, specifically to guard against those malevolent individuals who hunted for treasures. Now, having attained the level of a sage atop Dufeng Mountain, the urgency had lessened. Yet, the thought of those fantastical novels, where characters effortlessly shattered ancient stars and drank from the Milky Way as pinnacle beings, left little sense of security in being merely a small sage. The path of a loose cultivator offered no future. His thoughts wandered a bit too far. Lin Xiao coughed twice, retrieving the text of the primordial emperor's scripture, continuing to elucidate its key points for Lu Ying. Meanwhile, the extraordinary phenomena triggered by the young maiden had already spread across the four nations, permeating the realms of various cultivation organizations. In the heart of the Great Qi's stronghold within the Great Zhou, the clamor was incessant. Our adversaries are formidable cultivators. Do we truly stand a chance? The mere act of appearing does not equate to support. The Great Zhou has exhausted its guile. What do we possess to compel the venerable experts into action? Indeed, what he can offer, we too can present. According to our strategy, once the Great Zhou falls, that territory will become the domain of our Great Qi. Cultivators at the Foundation Establishment and Golden Core stages engaged in fervent discussions, their words dancing around the topics of the new sect, the national master of the Great Zhou, and the mighty experts. The man seated at the head of the table propped his face with one hand, dismissively waving his other hand, signaling the conversation to cease. As he spoke, all fell silent, bowing respectfully in his direction, their eyes filled with reverence. He was the leader of the Baihu Hall within the Great Qi's Intelligence Bureau, a formidable cultivator at the nascent soul stage. In times of peril, he had repeatedly leveraged his strength to hold back foes, ultimately transforming danger into safety. Here, his words held weight comparable to that of the Emperor of Great Qi, Qingfeng, Yuling. You too must return to Great Qi at the swiftest pace and deliver the intelligence to the national master. Lu Qing, you will head to Qingshi town, disguising yourself as a wandering cultivator to gather local intelligence. The rest shall cease infiltration in other cities and concentrate activities around the capital of the Great Zhou. Dugu, you remain. Yes. The cultivators swiftly exited the hall, while a middle-aged man named Dugu stepped forward, kneeling on one knee. Master. The leader produced a jade pendant and a letter, whispering instructions. Dugu, take my token and meet with the envoys of the Great Chu and Great Ping at our designated location in 3 days. Understood. Dugu replied succinctly. The leader nodded in satisfaction, smiling as he remarked, you have lingered at the pinnacle of the Golden Core for a decade now. Should this endeavor yield a collaboration, I shall petition the National Master's Court to procure protective elixirs for you, enhancing your chances of breaking through to the 12th level of the nascent soul. Dugu's breath quickened, his head bowing lower. I shall not disappoint your expectations. Haha, splendid. Off you go. A new nascent soul cultivator can indeed sway the tides of battle. In this conflict, the Great Zhou is destined for demise. Laughter crescendoed, gradually ascending to the heavens. If celestial beings gazed down from above at that moment, they would witness countless cultivators from the four nations converging toward Great Qi. A palpable sense of impending storm brewing in the air. Chapter 11. The ancient Jiang clan. The following day, at dawn, Lin Xiao paused to rest in the small wooden cabin, a glimmer of brilliance passing through his eyes. With the assistance of the spirit gathering array, an entire night of cultivation had equated to a week's worth of accumulation. Having just entered the mid-golden core stage, he sensed nascent signs of ascension. heightening his anticipation for the cultivation feedback in a month's time. In such circumstances, the presence of a prodigy like Lin Xiao is indeed even more astonishing. Lin Xiao rose from his seat, invigorating his stiff limbs, preparing to check on Lin Xiao's progress. Upon pushing open the door, he found the young girl seated gracefully on a meditation mat, clad in a neatly arranged Taoist robe, already engaged in her breathing exercises. Ethereal strands of spiritual energy caressed her cheeks, her long hair floated gently, and her slightly solemn visage exuded an air reminiscent of an ethereal fairy. The purple mist flowed from the east, and during this time, the ambient spiritual energy was particularly rich and pure, an opportunity no practitioner could afford to miss. The girl had memorized this well, her cultivation will turning incessantly, prompting a nod of satisfaction from Lin Xiao. As he embarked on the journey of teaching a disciple for the first time, he had done minimal research. Fortunately, Lin Xiao was sufficiently perceptive, sparing him from numerous troubles. After observing her for a while, Lin Xiao set up a small stove to prepare a pot of spiritual rice porridge. By the time the girl completed her last breath of purple mist, the porridge, infused with spiritual beast meat and herbs, was ready. Lin Xiao scampered over, her little legs pattering, inhaling the delightful aroma wafting from the stove. Tilting her head back, her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Master, it smells wonderful," Lin Xiao teased. "Do you enjoy food so much?" Lin Xiao, feeling bashful, scratched her head and replied, "As long as it's cooked by master, I love it." Lin Xiao was somewhat surprised, glancing at her. Indeed, she had become more articulate than a couple of days prior. Lin Xiao's face flushed with joy, and she offered no further response. With hopes of revenge dawning, her life had begun to flourish. The prospect of savoring her master's delectable dishes daily filled her with immense satisfaction. Lin Xiao stirred the pot, sensing it was nearly ready, and served her a generous bowl. Lin Xiao settled in a chair, took a small sip, and was instantly captivated by the delightful flavor. As happiness bubbled within her, her expression akin to that of ascension. Once she had consumed an entire bowl, she regained her composure, cradling her second bowl like a precious treasure. After finishing his meal, Lin Xiao casually placed his bowl and chopsticks into a wooden bucket and began discussing the day's agenda. "In the morning, I will teach you swordsmanship. We will head to the capital at noon to replenish our spirit stones and herbs. If there is anything you desire, feel free to mention it in advance." Lin Xiao paused for a moment, slowly setting down the bowl that was poised at her lips. "What is the matter?" Lin Xiao inquired. "It's nothing." Lin Xiao took a deep breath and attempted to articulate, "I would like to purchase some information." "Of course, what kind?" Lin Xiao pressed her lips together, feigning nonchalance as she said, "Information regarding the left chancellor of the great Zhou, the Yin family." Lin Xiao fell silent for a moment before nodding in acknowledgement. "Let us eat first." Lin Xiao did not possess any unique insights into swordsmanship. However, after practicing for so long, he had inadvertently cultivated a semblance of sword intent. Though the heart-flowing, moonlit sky song was a quasi-emperor sword technique, he found himself inexplicably articulate in its teachings. By the conclusion of the first lesson, Lin Xiao had already managed to execute several basic forms. With deft strikes, thrusts, and delicate movements, an ethereal rhythm naturally emerged, as if my heart's flow instinctively ignited. The figure of the young maiden became elusive, appearing both near and far. This was the first stance of my heart's flow, seeking the unseen. In the past, Lin Xiao's performance had always been stunning, and Lin Xiao had already smirked. However, today, as the sword's momentum waned, he promptly spoke. "Let us pause for now." Lin Xiao retracted her sword like the moon, uncertainly clutching her hands. "Master, recite the heart-calming mantra twice," Lin Xiao instructed. Closing her eyes, Lin Xiao felt the murderous intent within her gradually dissipate. Upon reopening her eyes, a tinge of guilt flickered within her gaze. "Having a tragic past as motivation is beneficial for you now." Lin Xiao approached and gently patted the top of the maiden's head. "But remember, do not let emotions sway you. If your mind is unsettled, silently recite the heart-calming mantra." "Master," Lin Xiao sniffled, her voice choked with emotion. "I still want to eat candied hawthorn." "Very well, I shall buy some for you." "Master, I am here." At noon, after leaving behind a sumptuous lunch, Lin Xiao disguised himself and soared toward the capital city of the great Zhou dynasty on the spirit sword he had once wielded. He descended into a grove several hundred meters from the city, blending into the throngs of ordinary citizens entering the city. By handing over 10 copper coins at the city gate, he was granted entry. Having visited a few times, Lin Xiao was somewhat familiar with the area. After a brief detour, he arrived at a pawnshop run by cultivators, where he presented his spirit sword. 70 spirit stones, the nonchalant owner stated. "That is far too low." Lin Xiao countered. "The minimum is 90, or else I shall take my leave to Lin Xiao Pavilion." The owner, taken aback, cast a glance at him. His bottom line was indeed 90. A person of distinction, He smiled. An open-minded individual. 90 it is. Huazi, bring a box of spirit stones. Lin Xiao also contributed some lesser-valued materials and potions he had accumulated, reaching a total of 100 spirit stones, which he took with him. Merging into the crowd of the capital, he wandered aimlessly for half an hour before heading to a second concealed underground shop. After 3 knocks on the windowsill, someone opened the window 10 seconds later, rasping, "What do you want?" "A bowl of mixed soup," Lin Xiao replied. The shadowy figure quickly closed the window, and, shortly after, a lowered voice emerged from within. "What information does the esteemed sir seek?" The left minister of the Great Zhou, the Yin family, Lin Xiao lowered his voice, deliberately altering his tone to disguise his identity. "That is worth 10 spirit stones." The other party seemed hesitant. Lin Xiao frowned. "So expensive?" "For the Great Zhou dynasty, aside from the royal family and the national master, no information exceeds 5 spirit stones. In remote areas, spirit stones hold more value." The intelligence operatives appeared to be utterly unperturbed, whispering, "This is already the lowest price." When the information first emerged, there were eager buyers willing to pay for 500 spirit stones. Lin Xiao furrowed his brow and tossed out 10 spirit stones. In no time, the other party handed over a thick stack of intelligence, about the width of an adult's index finger. He turned and sat at a round table, immersing himself in the contents. The intelligence regarding the Yin family was rather straightforward. 2 months prior, a group of individuals suddenly arrived, showcasing their formidable might, and utterly obliterated the left prime minister's residence. Not a single soul survived. It was said that among them were potent beings capable of divining the heavenly secrets and plotting against blood relatives, intent on exterminating the clan. Such a tragic event could be succinctly described in just a few words. The real substance lay in the subsequent revelations. The ancient Jiang family. They were the orchestrators of this massacre. One of the 6 foremost powers in the eastern domain, it was rumored that a great emperor had once emerged from their lineage, protected by imperial artifacts. Regardless of the ever-changing talents in the world, the Jiang family remained steadfast and unyielding. The following content briefly outlined the immense power of the Jiang family and the process through which the Yin family was held accountable and punished. In simple terms, a few practitioners from the Yin family had, during an outing, clashed with a member of the Jiang family's collateral line over a coveted medicine king, resulting in the latter's escape. Unable to contain their fury, the Jiang family directly annihilated several Yin family practitioners and summoned their affiliated clans, leading to a thorough slaughter of the Yin family. In the face of such a colossal force, the Great Zhou dynasty dared not even breathe loudly. In the realm of cultivation, power is paramount. Having traversed the world for many years, Lin Xiao believed he had grown accustomed to the bullying of the weak by the strong among practitioners. Yet, this intelligence once again reshaped his understanding of the so-called ancient families, revealing their sheer tyranny. A mere slight could lead to the slaughter of hundreds within a clan. Grasping the intelligence, Lin Xiao exhaled deeply, a faint wry smile gracing his face. Indeed, the path of dark fortune was fraught with turbulence. However, his meager 1% of imperial cultivation prowess could certainly find its application. Chapter 12. Return to the mountain. Not wishing to delve further, Lin Xiao stowed the intelligence into the storage bag of his sleeve. He then made his way to the outskirts of the city, to a street dedicated to serving cultivators, where he purchased spirit plant seeds and spirit beast meat. As he selected items at the stall, the vendors began to converse. Recently, the number of cultivators in the city has surged, and many are unfamiliar faces. It is said they hail from the Great Qi, and just this morning, they caused quite the disturbance in the eastern part of the city. Oh, do elaborate. What else could it be? 2 arrogant fellows crossed paths, and neither would yield, leading to a fierce brawl. If it weren't for the presence of 2 spirit regulators on the scene, half the block would likely have been destroyed. To witness bloodshed so early in the day is truly ill-fated. Just wait until one of them encounters someone from the Jiang family. They won't be able to spring back up. What concern is that of ours? We should focus on our own affairs. If these unfamiliar cultivators continue to multiply, the Great Zhou will not be far from chaos. Sigh, the world is indeed in disarray. After all, cultivators are human too. The relentless pursuit of survival is a common sight everywhere. Lin Xiao opened a piece of spirit beast meat, admiring the marbled patterns reminiscent of plum blossoms and the fragrant aroma akin to chestnuts, nodding in satisfaction. I'll take this one, he declared, including those seeds. That totals 3 spirit stones, the vendor replied. Lin Xiao tossed 3 spirit stones, which the vendor collected eagerly, wrapping the meat and seeds in a piece of parchment. Safe travels, my friend, he called after Lin Xiao, whose figure gradually faded into the distance. Only then did he return his gaze to his companions, remarking, another formidable cultivator at the golden core stage. The others wore serious expressions, while the young vendor looked displeased. The ambitions of the Diqi are truly alarming. Do they really set their sights on the capital? It seems they no longer wish to conceal their intentions. This is not within our purview. Gather the data. Once tonight concludes, it will all be sent to the National Master's residence. Understood. At the end of the street, Lin Xiao resumed his journey. Having gathered the information he sought, he cared little for the intrigues among the various dynasties. As long as they did not disturb his solitary peak, all was well. Subsequently, Lin Xiao ventured into a district inhabited by ordinary folk, purchasing candied hawthorn, expensive delicacies from a tavern, and an assortment of colorful sweets. After perusing a stall selling accessories, he selected a silver hairpin. With her long hair cascading down, the young girl managed well in everyday life, but it became troublesome while practicing swordplay. This silver pin would serve her perfectly. Finally, Lin Xiao visited the ruins of the left chancellor's residence, located in the heart of the capital. The ground had long since collapsed. Countless sword marks had utterly ravaged the estate. Even after more than 2 months, the overwhelming sword intent still emanated from the site. Approaching closer, he felt as though his skin were being sliced. Having experienced the power of a sage for an extended period, Lin Xiao immediately recognized the strength of the assailant. A powerful being, perhaps a mid to late stage formidable entity, to annihilate a small clan. Such a strong presence had accompanied them. Did the true Jiang family not harbor sages? Perhaps even a sage king? His gaze flickered momentarily before Lin Xiao shook his head. It was futile to remain lost in thought. He might as well pay a visit to the Jiang family himself. With 1% of an emperor's power as his safeguard, in a world where emperors are absent and sage kings remain hidden, he felt confident in his ability to engage with the pinnacle of worldly doctrines. With these thoughts in mind, Lin Xiao drew forth the Qi Yuan sword, its brilliance illuminating the air as he soared into the skies. Upon returning to his solitary peak, he found Lu Ying seated on a mat, diligently practicing her cultivation. His heart softened as he observed the girl, stepping forward. Before he reached her, she sensed his presence. Opening her eyes and joyfully exclaiming, "Master," Lin Xiao spoke gently, extending his hand to tousle the girl's exuberant hair. "How has your cultivation been progressing?" It seemed that the progress had slowed down since the beginning. It was only after the master departed that she experienced a breakthrough. And Lu Qing, feeling a bit shy, scratched her head. "Do not overly pursue speed." Lin Xiao coughed lightly and remarked, "You are still young. It is more beneficial to focus on solidifying your foundation. Cultivation is akin to erecting a grand edifice within your body. If the foundation is unstable, no matter how high the structure, it risks collapse." Understood, and Lu Qing nodded promptly. She adhered to every word of her master. At that moment, Lin Xiao suddenly noticed a small section of her hair that had been neatly severed and instinctively inquired, "Did you accidentally cut it while practicing your swordplay?" And Lu Qing bit her lip and nodded. The moon blade was too sharp. Shortly after the master left, I inadvertently severed my hair, and I chose to continue my training, considering the potential troubles associated with sword practice. She had intended to ask her master for assistance in switching to a shorter hairstyle. However, before she could voice her request, a beautifully crafted silver hairpin appeared before her. "It seems I have been remiss in my considerations," Lin Xiao said, shaking the hairpin. "I meant to purchase this in the afternoon, but alas, I was a step too late." And Liu Qing's mouth opened slightly in surprise. "Master? No. Thank you, master." She stammered as she accepted the hairpin and examined it closely. It was a silver pin adorned with a tassel resembling a red cord. The etchings on the silver glimmered enchantingly under the sunlight. "It's so beautiful," the girl exclaimed, entranced. Lin Xiao smiled. "I am glad you like it. Do try it on." And Liu Qing's small face stiffened momentarily as she looked up and said, Master, I don't know how to style my hair." Lin Xiao was taken aback. He had not anticipated this. He, too, was not adept at such matters. Yet, observing the girl's upturned face, he contemplated for a moment before taking the hairpin. "Allow me to give it a try." And Lu Qing blinked her large eyes and promptly seated herself cross-legged on her mat. Lin Xiao recalled his experiences from his previous life watching videos and attempted to gather her hair. "How is this?" The girl exclaimed. "You've poked my head. It feels a bit loose. It seems like it will fall out at any moment. I shall redo it then." "Oh, so you have things you don't understand as well, master." "I am also a practitioner. How could I possibly know everything?" "Keep your head steady." After numerous attempts, they finally discovered the technique. The silver pin secured her thick hair in place, with the tassel swaying gently to one side. All done. And Lu Qing could hardly contain her excitement as she sprang to her feet, shaking her little head from side to side. To her delight, it no longer felt precarious, and a broad smile illuminated her delicate face. "Thank you, master." Lin Xiao's lips curled into a slight smile. Nurturing such a young disciple reminded him of the large cat he had cared for before his transmigration. Whenever he rewarded it with treats, it would gaze at him with similarly joyful and sparkling eyes. uncertain of who might adopt him in the future and whether life would be favorable. He had heard that upon reaching a certain level of cultivation, one could traverse the vastness of space and even alter the flow of time. His aspirations were modest. If possible, he simply wished to return to Earth for a final reunion with his loved ones. His choice to pursue cultivation was motivated not only by self-preservation, but also by this profound yearning. Reflecting on this, Lin Xiao retrieved candied hawthorn and neatly wrapped pastries. Shall we discuss the information about the Yin family while we indulge? Very well, replied Lin Xiao, her previously raised smile settling into a composed expression as her small fists clenched together. Chapter 13. A moment of enlightenment. The demise of the Yin family could be succinctly summarized in just a few words. Yet what followed was a more elaborate depiction of the formidable Jiang family. Established in the eastern domain since ancient times, the Jiang family boasted the support of thousands of Taoist traditions, thriving for over 10 millennia without decline. Each of their descendants possessed a heritage far surpassing that of the Zhou dynasty, even when faced with lethal challenges, such as the assault from the sovereign emperor thousands of years prior. They ultimately transformed adversity into fortune. They stood among the elite of the cultivation world, epitomizing an unparalleled lineage. After all, entities as formidable as the emperors represent a force capable of dominating an era. Though long departed, the Jiang family remained a colossal entity, revered and cherished by many. As Lin Xiao conveyed these details, Lin Xiao remained silent, merely extending her hand to grip his sleeve tightly, her youthful visage devoid of any expression. Lin Xiao continued to delve into the subsequent details, which comprised an in-depth investigation of the events from that day. This included the assistance rendered to the Jiang family in their obliteration of the left chancellor's Taoist tradition and the reasons behind the Yin family's involvement in the fierce competition for the title of Medicine King. Given that these events had transpired 2 months prior, the information was meticulously compiled. When she learned that the Medicine King was a shattered mirror flower, capable of refining elixirs that allowed non-cultivators to absorb spiritual energy, and Lin Xiao trembled violently, her complexion draining of color. It was not difficult to comprehend why her usually mild-mannered brothers were so adamant. In the entire Yin household, only she and her mother were unable to cultivate. Poor child. Lin Xiao sighed softly, reaching out to ruffle her hair. If you wish to cry, then let it out. No more tears, and Lin Xiao replied, her eyes reddening as she clung tightly to Lin Xiao's arm. Crying is something only children do. I am the only one left in my family. I cannot disappoint my mother and father. They would undoubtedly be proud of you. Lin Xiao crouched down to meet her gaze, his tone gentle. Would you care to share your thoughts with our master? I wish to avenge them. And Lin Xiao took a deep breath, summoning her courage to speak. It may require a long time, she pondered. Is our master not afraid? Lin Xiao chuckled softly. The Jiang family is indeed formidable. However, should he succumb to fear, he would never earn the favor of the system. Do you comprehend the protagonist's intrinsic worth? If you are unafraid, why should the master be? I desire to cultivate and practice swordsmanship. And Lin Xiao wiped away the tears that threatened to spill, her small face imbued with sincerity, vowing to one day eliminate each and every villain, compelling them to repent for their misdeeds and seek justice for the suffering of others. If she cannot achieve this, she would rather perish on her path. If she can, then after all is said and done, she wishes to be eternally united with her master. The final sentiment could be omitted. Lin Xiao understood that she currently possessed nothing and was fervently eager to grasp something. He refrained from voicing his thoughts, instead stroking her head with a complex expression. Thus, once more, her cultivation commenced. Reciting the cleansing heart mantra 3 times, she suppressed all the resentment within her, focusing intently on her practice. Spiritual energy coalesced around her, forming miniature whirlpools, as her heart's flow operated at full capacity, rendering the young girl's presence strikingly potent. This was the quasi-imperial scripture meticulously tailored for her by the system, with values perfectly aligned, making the cultivation process effortless. Before long, she was thoroughly immersed in her practice. As her momentum stabilized, golden characters emerged from her body, swirling around her. Lin Xiao observed for a moment, ensuring there was no risk, before turning to the field cultivated by the girl to plant spiritual herbs. Not long after, a familiar voice resonated in his mind. Ding! Hidden Task 1. Entering the state of enlightenment has been achieved. Reward: early stage nascent soul realm granted. Reward: protective sacred artifact, golden silk glazed lamp granted. Buzz. Energy surged into his body, propelling his strength beyond the golden core threshold, achieving 3 consecutive breakthroughs. Pausing, Lin Xiao introspected. Above the golden core, a significantly diminished version of himself sat cross-legged in the void, emanating a formidable aura. In just 2 days, he had shattered 4 minor realms, ascending from the early golden core to the early nascent soul. Should this be revealed, no one would believe it. Lin Xiao gained clarity about his own being, adjusting to the sudden changes of his breakthrough, casting a complex glance at the earnest little one diligently practicing, to uplift by first suppressing, to experience suffering, then to grow stronger. Hiss, who is the true protagonist, him or Enluing? This is a question that warrants careful contemplation. The girl's performance was astonishingly abnormal. Were it not for his personal journey from the qi refinement stage, he might perceive this as a trivial feat. The state of enlightenment was something he had yet to encounter. Perhaps, this is the terrifying nature of genius. Lin Xiao exhaled. Indeed, relying solely on mediocre cultivation makes it exceedingly difficult to navigate this harsh world. The universe is vast. Only the system can soothe his battered heart. System, activate. With a mere thought, the golden silk glass appeared in his hands. It was an exquisitely crafted wide-mouthed bowl, entirely fashioned from golden threads, with delicate gaps that, despite their presence, would not allow water to leak through. It resembled a piece of art that one would expect to find in a museum. However, to overlook its strength due to its delicacy would be sheer folly. This was a sacred artifact, a treasure said to be forged only by the sages, infused with divine metals and treasures of the Tao, which, when activated, unleashed the might of the cosmos. If it were a weapon of divine caliber, it might prove somewhat awkward, as it would be of little use after descending the mountain. Yet, as a protective sacred item, it could be utilized on the mountain for an extended period, benefiting both him and Enluing immensely. What a remarkable find! Lin Xiao felt a surge of excitement as he held the golden silk glass, quickly comprehending its 7 abilities. Among these, 13 could envelop the wielder in a layer of divine protective light. In moments of imminent danger, this light would activate, shielding against potentially life-threatening attacks. Notably, the first layer defended the body, the second protected the soul, and the third offered a shield against insidious abilities such as magic breaking and soul capturing, all while encompassing both aspects. With these 3 layers combined, a radiant power would sustain for at least half an hour. The 47 additional abilities were specifically tailored for the holder. In essence, they could rebound soul damage, absorb spiritual energy from an opponent's attacks to replenish the protective divine light, summon 2 divine phoenixes for assistance, and store a significant amount of healing energy, among other capabilities. This was indeed a treasure of boundless utility. After all, at the stage of sacred artifacts, it transcended mere materiality. Lin Xiao cradled the precious glass, and with a slight exertion of will, 3 beams of divine light entered the young girl's body, gradually dimming their brilliance. He had employed his full strength to ensure their quality. At this moment, with a subtle perception, he detected that the protective layers within her could last for several years without dissipating, nodding in satisfaction. After all, it was a sage's shield. Possessing this would provide an extra layer of security for future ventures. Lin Xiao also applied a layer of protection for himself and continued to study the artifact for a while before setting the golden silk glass aside and returning to his mat, quietly savoring everything that the nascent soul had to offer. Chapter 14. Practical sparring. As evening approached, the young girl officially broke through to the 9th level of qi refinement. The instant she opened her eyes, a brilliant light flashed, and the characters that had surrounded her coalesced into her body, enhancing her vibrant presence. Master. Indeed, quite commendable. Lin Xiao applauded gently from his mat across from her. Commendable barely scratched the surface, breaking through the 9th stage in just 3 days. Especially as she was just embarking on the path of cultivation, was an astonishing feat, although aided by the spirit-gathering formation and the auspicious signs along with enlightenment. Such a rapid advancement in cultivation was still remarkable. With this pace, it won't be long before you surpass your master, Lin Xiao remarked with a smile. Enluing blinked her beautiful eyes in surprise. Surpassing her master. She had never even contemplated such a possibility. In her eyes, her master's strength and mystery surpassed even that of her lofty adversaries. If she truly could surpass her master, would avenging herself not be within easy reach? Observing the girl's dazed expression as she began to drift into fantasies, Lin Xiao clapped his hands to bring her back to reality. Progressing in cultivation too swiftly is both a blessing and a curse. He coughed twice, stating, "Your talent is commendable, but your accompanying abilities must also keep pace. Starting tomorrow, I shall teach you how to meticulously control your spiritual energy, engage in practical combat, and some fundamental spells." Enluying's small face turned serious. Yes, the path of cultivation cannot solely rely on talent. Effort, luck, and foundation are all indispensable. Subsequently, Enluying continued to hone her swordsmanship, while Lin Xiao set about preparing a meal with the freshly acquired ingredients. In a short while, the aroma of the dishes had the girl entranced. After devouring 2 large bowls, she hazily regained her senses and grasped the sword hilt once more. Delving into the exquisite art of swordsmanship, Lin Xiao was amused yet greatly pleased by her awareness. An ordinary person burdened with such a blood debt would likely be consumed by hatred, unable to extricate themselves. They would appear entirely transformed, gloomy, and withdrawn, with a heart perpetually filled with violence. Yet, Enluing was not like that. She remained a normal girl, striving forward in her own manner. Occasionally, however, the clarity of her doe-like eyes would glisten with sorrow over her fate's unfairness. Perhaps this was precisely why she could be deemed a genius. As her master, Lin Xiao silently witnessed the girl's growth. The next day, Enluying's routine gradually became more fulfilling. Alongside swordsmanship, Taoism, control of spiritual energy, and footwork all integrated into her life. Splashing sounds filled the air as the girl playfully kicked her delicate white feet. Watching the water droplets cascade against the bucket's wall before slowly flowing back into the medicinal liquid. "Master, do I need to soak my feet every day from now on?" she asked, tilting her small face upwards. "Proper blood circulation can stimulate the movement of spiritual energy within you, allowing for quicker mastery of footwork during practice," Lin Xiao replied. Seated nearby with a book in hand, his gaze steady. "Be quiet. Complete immersion is necessary for optimal absorption of the medicinal properties." "Oh," Enluying immediately straightened up. Yet, her mischievous, large eyes would occasionally dart left and right, unable to remain still. Lin Xiao sighed, redirecting his attention from 100 tasks of a qualified master, and revealed a wooden spinning top from his palm. "If you find it dull, why not give this a try?" He demonstrated first, with the infusion of spiritual energy. The top trembled in his palm before standing upright and spinning. As the amount of spiritual energy increased, the top spun faster and faster. In the end, it even subtly floated a few centimeters above the palm. Enluying's eyes sparkled with starlight. "Oh, that's incredible." The control of the spinning top's rotation hinges upon the input of spiritual energy at both ends and the angles involved. If one side is greater, the other will inevitably shift, and should the manipulation be overly clumsy, it may fail to spin at all. The top lost its momentum and fell into the palm of the hand. As Lin Xiao explained the key points, he handed it to the young girl, inviting her to give it a try. "All right." Enluying took a deep breath, opened her small palm, and instinctively infused it with spiritual energy. The top quivered slightly, wobbling in her hand, nearly flying away. The girl quickly shielded it, realizing just how challenging this seemingly simple task truly was. "Take your time, no need to rush." Lin Xiao's gaze leisurely fell upon the book beside him. After soaking her feet, Enluying still couldn't get the top to spin. This was not her fault. Many cultivators in the golden core stage likely struggled to master such precise control. This method of training was his own invention. Derived from the memories of his past life and inspired by the fantastical novels he had read, each attempt methodical and deliberate. Because of this, he could simply wave his hand and achieve feats that many could only accomplish through complex techniques. Enluying remained undeterred, eagerly practicing her swordsmanship. For her, time stretched infinitely ahead. When it came to his disciple, it was crucial to maintain a respectful distance to prevent any disruption of hierarchy, which could ultimately lead to unspeakable horrors. Lin Xiao, seated on the meditation cushion, furrowed his brow. Returning to the book cover, he glanced curiously at the title, 100 Things a Qualified Master Must Do, a masterpiece recommended by Elder Yao Guang, read by all major sect leaders by candlelight at night. Was this book also a riddle? Blocked. As time passed second by second, on this solitary peak, master and disciple were cut off from the outside world, wholeheartedly engrossed in their endeavors. When evening arrived, Lin Xiao set aside his book. Enluying seemed to sense something, her sword tip tilting as she pointed excitedly at the slowly rising Lin Xiao, her face alight with enthusiasm. "This sword is incredibly sharp. Master, don't let me hurt you." That foolish girl. Did she truly believe that after just 2 days of cultivation, she could surpass a sage? Lin Xiao's lips twitched slightly as he stood. He did not draw the Qianyuan sword. Instead, with a flick of his hands, his sleeves and hair were automatically gathered. He transformed from a celestial-looking Taoist into a nimble warrior. Simultaneously, the unique aura of a sage locked down this space. Without matching strength, it would be difficult to harm even a blade of grass on this solitary peak. "Oh," Enluying's eyes widened in astonishment. "What an impressive display. Her master is so cool. Oh no, she wanted to learn too. I shall temporarily suppress my strength to the pinnacle of qi refinement." Lin Xiao shook his hand, stretching his body that had not been exercised for several days. "Feel free to unleash your full potential. There is nothing you need to hold back." "Master, I am coming." Enluying's delicate brows arched, her steps swift and mysterious, and in an instant, she stood before Lin Xiao, the moon casting a radiant glow upon her. The Xuandi Sutra circulated rapidly, and in that moment, Enluying could defeat even foundation-level cultivators several realms above her. Lin Xiao's gaze sparkled with satisfaction as he took half a step back, twisting his arm. His spinning body narrowly evaded the sharp edge of the sword, and his fist, propelled by momentum, thundered down upon the sword's body. Such immense strength. And Lu Ying's fair face paled. As she withdrew her sword with one hand, she formed a lightning seal. Zzz. Countless bolts of electricity erupted, and the palm thunder technique taught that morning was applied in combat, startling the birds in the woods. However, Lin Xiao's side palm came even quicker. Chapter 15. A month later. Unlike a prodigy like in Lu Ying, Lin Xiao's gold core strength was forged through arduous effort from the very bottom. Carelessly revealing a spiritual treasure would draw the attention of others. Surviving in a small secret realm would also invite unwanted gazes. Many believed that merely touching the path of cultivation warranted unconditional submission from others, a notion utterly absurd. Indeed, the personality he cultivated, characterized by restraint and concealment, was largely shaped by the chaotic experiences of his past life, along with the influence of those foolish individuals who perished. No one understood the harsh realities of the cultivation world better than he. Thus, when the moment came to shift from the role of master to that of adversary, Lin Xiao's eyes lost all tenderness and warmth, replaced solely with a lethal onslaught. Initially, Lu Ying could barely fend off his attacks, her footwork disordered. Yet soon, she was unable to execute even basic sword techniques, completely overwhelmed. Although Lin Xiao's strikes were not fatal, they certainly inflicted pain, particularly the palm thunder technique. One lapse in defense, and she thought she might meet her ancestors. Master. At last, Lu Ying gritted her teeth, overwhelmed by fury, and burst into tears. Half an hour later, gone was her earlier excitement and confidence. With several bumps adorning her head, Lu Ying wept as she finished 3 bowls of rice. Lin Xiao returned to his usual demeanor, sitting across from her with an air of calmness, as if it were not he who had just reduced the girl to tears, but someone else entirely. Your rapid advancement in realms poses a significant problem in combat, he remarked, offering her a pair of chopsticks filled with spiritual beast meat. From today onward, every evening after training, I shall spar with you until you can defeat me in a direct confrontation. Lu Ying cried once more. To endure such beatings every day in the future? Even knowing that Lin Xiao acted in her best interest, she could not accept it, because it truly hurt. The pain she felt would surely rob her of a restful night. Lin Xiao had little to say about this. In the grand scheme of the cultivation world, where entire families could be annihilated and souls extinguished, physical pain seemed trivial. Yet, Lu Ying appeared quite averse to such discomfort. When next visiting the capital, perhaps she should bring back some candies. After all, even the most resolute disciple occasionally requires gentle coaxing. A month slipped by in the blink of an eye. Since that day, Lu Ying diligently practiced by day and endured beatings by night, never faltering. Her small wooden cottage brimmed with an array of sweets and desserts procured from the capital, along with new robes. Among them was a striking red outfit, specifically for sword practice, which Lu Ying adored, as it complemented the silver hairpin gifted by her master, exuding a sense of coolness. Casting a hurried glance at the wooden hanger, Lu Ying gathered her recently accumulated treats, her expression serious as she nodded resolutely. She dashed out of her room and immediately spotted Lin Xiao seated on a mat, back straight, engrossed in a book. Master, she exclaimed, still as impulsive as ever. Lin Xiao glanced up, his eyes betraying a hint of exasperation. Hee, Lu Ying said, proudly presenting her delectable offerings. Scratching her head, she continued, Master, I brought you some treats. May I have a day off tonight? Lin Xiao recognized the sweets as his own gifts to her, intended to prevent her from harboring grudges after her beatings. Do you have something to share? Lu Ying nodded eagerly. Lin Xiao closed his book. Go on, tell me. Lu Ying's mind sparked with excitement. I heard that the moon is particularly full tonight, and I wish to watch it with you. Lin Xiao responded. In the past month, you Haven Tea descended the mountain. Who told you that? What a silly child, he mused. Deceiving your master is one thing, but remaining so naive once you enter the mortal realm is quite concerning. However, he noted that the intensity of her training had indeed increased. After some contemplation, he decided against being overly harsh and nodded in agreement. Very well, you may have the day off. Remember, just for today, if you wish to descend the mountain, take the communication stone I crafted for you. Thank you, master. Lu Ying was nearly moved to tears. She had no intention of leaving the mountain. After her family's demise, her master was her everything. Yet, even she needed moments of respite. Just as a man may feel out of sorts for several days each month, she too desired a break. For instance, atop the solitary peak. She longed for a peaceful nap, free from all worries. In comparison, the allure of those delightful candies and desserts waned. With excitement, Lu Ying waved her arms as she rushed outside, declaring, Then, master, I'm off to have fun. Return early, Lin Xiao called after her. The child Lin Xiao shook his head and chuckled, sensing her increasing ease. No, she had displayed this demeanor from the very beginning, suddenly recalling the naive expression of Lin Xiao, who always seemed to lack a certain understanding. Lin Xiao shook his head and began to tidy up his belongings. He prepared to set aside some snacks for moon gazing tonight, along with the books. Having completed these tasks, his consciousness once again sank into the system. In the span of a month, the girl's innate talent had flourished, bringing him substantial rewards once more. Foremost among these was a significant elevation in his realm. Having completed 4 tasks, he had propelled himself from the initial stage of the nascent soul to the pinnacle of the transformation stage, drawing near to the legendary Grandmaster of the Great Zhou. However, ever since encountering Yan Yunlu, the cunning elder, Lin Xiao understood that he was, in fact, a whole realm above what the rumors suggested. If one were to argue, Lin Xiao, wielding the Qinyuan sword, could indeed engage him in battle, but that would be outside. On Dufeng Mountain, Lin Xiao received an unforeseen reward as well, an additional boon upon Luing's breakthrough in foundational cultivation. This had directly enhanced his combat prowess on Dufeng Mountain from the initial stage of the sage to the pinnacle stage. One more step forward would lead him to the fabled Sage King. The magnitude of this improvement was not what mattered most. Rather, it was the knowledge that his capabilities could also be enhanced atop this small mountain. In other words, with a period of development, he could attain the path to emperorhood on this very peak. Yet, the fact that he could not leave the mountaintop left him feeling somewhat out of sorts. Nevertheless, in the realm of cultivation, strength ultimately reigns supreme. One need only recall that figure who declares the pinnacle of immortality and stands proud in the world, Lan, who must also support the imperial city. Even if he could not leave the mountaintop, once he achieved emperorhood, what would it matter if he fought while standing upon it? Perhaps then, he might even be dubbed the emperor of the mountain. It did sound a bit rustic. After comforting himself for a while, Lin Xiao's gaze swept over the various items in his inventory. There lay a holy artifact sword, imbued with azure gold divine metal, sharp enough to cleave mountains and part seas. Beside it was a set of quasi-emperor level techniques, crafted by ancient emperors. When practiced properly, these techniques could summon celestial beasts to combat, proving to be exceptionally formidable. Lin Xiao had attempted to cultivate and successfully manifested a peacock king, had he not imposed prior restraint. A mere cry from it would have caused instant demise to the inhabitants of Qingshi town. It was indeed exceedingly precious. However, while he could cultivate this set of techniques with ease, Luing remained less optimistic. Thus far, she could only conjure a few fierce beasts, exhibiting strength comparable to the golden core stage. Even so, Luing was quite content. After all, having someone to endure a few blows for her in daily skirmishes was tremendously useful. As for the final item, it was a tool labeled Genius Recruitment Scroll. As the name suggests, upon use, it could search for the disciples with the lowest fortune, marked in black, within the vicinity. At that moment, he only needed to visit and collect his apprentice. However, Lin Xiao was not prepared to take on a second disciple so soon. Luing was making rapid progress, unless unforeseen circumstances arose. He intended to wait until the girl was on the verge of mastery before officially commencing his quest for revenge and subsequently recruiting another apprentice. By that time, he would undoubtedly possess greater experience and time to properly guide his second disciple. Chapter 16. The Guardian Beast. As the sole mountain surrounding Qingshi town, Dufeng Mountain stood solitary. Its summit surprisingly spacious. Luing had been ascending for quite some time, but had merely lingered near the wooden cabin. Now, with some leisure time on her hands, she promptly transformed into a curious fawn, exploring the area. She meandered around the enchanted fields filled with various crops, her gaze landing upon a lush expanse of forest. Not wishing to soil her garments, she chose to walk along to think it is indeed the flesh of a living spirit beast. Moments later, Luing drooped her ears, cradling the small creature in her arms with a look of discontent. Lin Xiao raised an eyebrow, inquiring, "What's wrong? Do you not like it?" "No, I quite like it," Luing replied, tenderly hugging the little beast. Yet, with a tinge of grievance, she continued, "I originally intended to gift it to my master, but instead, I received it as a present. This little creature was actually placed here by my master. It was meant to be nurtured a bit longer before being given to me as a guardian spirit beast." Luing had never anticipated that her joyous return with this creature would result in such a twist. The gifts she received were increasing. While her master received nothing in return, it seemed utterly unfair. Rising to his feet, Lin Xiao gently patted the little creature's head, which hung low like a puppy that had committed a misdeed, his tone laced with amusement. "At your age, you're already thinking of gifting your master? That's different," Luing retorted, her voice firm in defense. "In the past, my master always gifted me, and I must reciprocate. But you have half a meat bun, right? Well, that's enough." Lin Xiao softened his tone. Your ability to cultivate and remember your master is the greatest gift you could offer me. And Luiying wanted to say more, but upon witnessing her master's unyielding demeanor, she could only nod her head slightly, diverting her gaze to the trembling little creature in her arms. With the body of a deer, the tail of an ox, hooves of a horse, long horns, and scales adorning its skin, the little one appeared rather unattractive. This is a young Qilin, Lin Xiao said with a smile. I had intended for you to meet it when it matured a bit more, but it seems fate has brought you together sooner than expected. For tasks, for rewards. This little creature was precisely what was missing from the inventory. Legend has it that a purebred Qilin, from the moment of its birth, is a formidable being. As it ages, even without cultivation, it can achieve sanctity. It is a natural prodigy. As for how Luiying managed to capture it so easily, it was simply because it was her guardian spirit beast. The system produced it as a reward for breaking through the foundation stage, and only she could wield it effectively. Lin Xiao could also harness it, being her master, but certainly not as proficiently as she could. Most importantly, this little creature would grow stronger alongside Luiying's cultivation. And significantly so, while it might ultimately not surpass her, it would undoubtedly serve as a reliable first line of defense. In the future, when she ventures into the mortal realm, it would be her most adept protector. Lin Xiao chuckled. Shall we give it a name? A name? And Luiying paused, lifting the little creature and flipping it over. It seems to be female, so let's call her Meatball. Having witnessed the entire exchange, Lin Xiao mused. Perhaps I should consider imparting some life lessons to this young girl. At the very least, she ought to know that Qilin cubs will eventually transform. After contemplating, Lin Xiao decided against it. Guiding her towards personal growth would not be an easy endeavor. After all, from a month ago until now, Luiying has maintained her habit of fearing pain. One wonders how she managed to endure the trials of opening her meridians while being so sensitive to discomfort. The bonds of childhood friendship form remarkably swiftly. With just a single piece of candy, the two young creatures, one large and one small, were soon engrossed in play. Lin Xiao sat upon a mat, continuing his study of the Golden Elixir chapter from the Zhuan Emperor's Sutra. Unlike the crude and poorly crafted tome on the transformation of spirit he had previously studied, the Zhuan Emperor's Sutra is meticulous, elaborating in detail on the characteristics and cultivation practices of various profound realms. It could easily be deemed a textbook for practitioners. The Golden Elixir stage, being the period he has grasped in the shortest time, has nonetheless yielded a significant enhancement in his strength. Lin Xiao was both preparing lessons and engaging in self-study, deriving many insights from the text. After digesting the material, he would share his understanding with Luiying, which he believed to be an ideal method of teaching. The sun was soon to set. Lin Xiao set aside the sutra and approached the stove. Before long, two figures, one large and one small, appeared beside the roaring flames. After their meal, under Luiying's watchful gaze, Lin Xiao felled a tree, wielding his sword with precision to fashion two comfortable rocking chairs. He then retrieved two sets of clean bedding from the small wooden cabin. As for the scattered branches and leaves, they were tossed into the celestial field to serve as nourishment. The single bedding from Qingshi town was modest in size, just enough to cover the rocking chairs without slipping off. Lin Xiao moved the snacks and treats over, glancing at the girl with wide, observant eyes. Are we not going to look at the moon? Shall we give it a try? He suggested. Luiying nodded eagerly. Encountering such a novelty for the first time, she felt a rush of curiosity. Tentatively, she touched it and carefully climbed aboard. The unsteady sensation nearly caused her to leap off. But upon seeing Lin Xiao sit comfortably and leisurely sway back and forth, her apprehension subsided, and she began to rock herself. At that moment, a gentle breeze swept through, bringing with it a delightful sensation that made the girl instinctively huddle her shoulders. Looking up, she beheld a dazzling display of stars. A river of stars floated above, resplendent and varied. As she gazed closer, it appeared that a massive celestial body was approaching, its gaseous surface shimmering with brilliance. The girl fell silent, overwhelmed by an inexplicable feeling that surged within her. How beautiful, she murmured. Lin Xiao, too, sensed a tranquility in his heart. His tone relaxed as he inquired, do you truly wish to take a moment to rest? Chapter 17. On the apprentice's treasures. The girl tilted her head to the sky, the moonlight illuminating her face. Her tranquil expression bore a hint of fragility that was more pronounced than usual. Master, I find myself missing my parents a little, she confessed. Lin Xiao paused, exhaling a breath of pent-up emotions. It had been just over a month since he had taken Luiying as his disciple. Aside from her initial tears, the girl had devoted herself to her cultivation almost every day. Through day and night, she persevered relentlessly, even when faced with considerable pain, gritting her teeth and pushing herself to the limits of her potential. The exile, a traveler unable to return home, embodies a different kind of extinction. They will take pride in you, Lin Xiao sighed. And Luiying quietly nodded. The mountain top remained tranquil as ever, occasionally interrupted by a night bird swiftly soaring past. And Lu Qing glanced at her esteemed master, still possessing such an appealing profile, and felt a surge of spiritual energy, inching closer. When Lin Xiao noticed something amiss and turned to look, she quickly said, "Master, could you tell us a story?" "A story?" Lin Xiao pondered. "In the past, my mother would narrate tales to me each night. Well, how about a story from the Orion Nebula M78? The Orion Nebula M78? That is a wondrous nebula, often referred to as Ultraman." As Lin Xiao spoke with increasing fluency, she felt her memories becoming sharper, aligned with her peak cultivation stage. And Lu Qing listened intently, but soon began to feel drowsy. Hearing her master mention that Simon was still pursuing her, she could not suppress a large yawn. "Tired?" Lin Xiao immediately sensed the change in her demeanor, her tone softening. "You should return to sleep early." After entering the foundation establishment stage, the young girl had been meditating every night, having not experienced a peaceful slumber in quite some time. "Master, may I sleep beside you?" And Lu Qing turned to her side. Speaking softly, "I used to sleep holding my mother. Your mother is your mother, and I am your master." Lin Xiao, of course, could not agree. According to local customs, girls aged 13 to 14 were considered of marriageable age. And Lu Qing was precisely that age. Although her helplessness evoked sympathy, with only the two of them on the mountain, it was certainly not an excuse to compromise her virtue. "Oh," and Lu Qing nodded, refraining from further discussion. As night deepened, and Lu Qing suddenly awoke from her nest of blankets. Opening her eyes to gaze at the sky, realizing she had inadvertently fallen asleep. It was all the fault of the rocking chair's comfort. She yawned, straightened up, rubbed her eyes, and prepared to return to her room for sleep. However, just as she stepped down from the rocking chair, she spotted her master peacefully asleep in another chair. Serene and gentle, her master's exquisitely chiseled features bore a slight smile, as if indulging in a delightful dream. With just a glance, and Lu Qing found herself unable to tear her gaze away. After observing for a while, she felt it was inappropriate, a blush creeping onto her cheeks. Turning to take a few steps towards her wooden cabin, she hesitated, then hurriedly returned. Gazing closely, she felt as if she could inhale a delightful fragrance emanating from her master. "Master," and Lu Qing opened her mouth, then quickly closed it, swallowing hard. She furtively scanned her surroundings, trembling as she extended her hands. Just a brief embrace should be permissible, right? Just once. Ah, so warm. The following day, at the break of dawn, and Lu Ying, with a prominent bump on her head, practiced her swordplay under the rising sun. Lin Xiao, wielding a ruler, sat cross-legged on a mat. Whenever there was a moment of transformation, the ruler would strike her palms with increasing severity. "Your sword's trajectory is off. Where is your strength? After consuming so much food daily, has it all been digested into mere courage? Your footwork is incorrect. Do it again." And Lu Ying felt a deep sense of injustice. She yearned to explain that her master was angry merely because she had inadvertently slept beside him for a night. Yet she found herself being punished under the pretext of improper swordsmanship. However, she understood that enduring this punishment for a while was far preferable to receiving a thorough beating after her indiscreet remarks. With tears brimming in her eyes, she maintained the standards of her sword techniques with utmost diligence. Lin Xiao, gripping the brand new ruler, sensed his anger dissipating considerably. After all, a mere embrace did not trouble him. It was not unusual for a master and disciple to have physical contact. It would be abnormal otherwise. But what was the significance of crawling into his bed and sleeping so closely? Was he to relinquish his own innocence? He certainly did not wish to do so. This foolish disciple, and the system, too, was adding fuel to the fire, hinting that she had completed a hidden task of sharing a bed. This ruler was a reward for that task. Ah, the emperor's divine weapon. As long as the recipient was his disciple, he could impose a slight punishment with just a thought. Even if the disciple achieved greatness as an emperor, this divine weapon's might would remain unyielding. However, aside from disciplining his student, this divine weapon was ineffectual in all other respects. In encounters with other cultivators, it was merely somewhat sturdier, yielding little effect. That was somewhat agreeable. What troubled Lin Xiao most was this peculiar hidden task. Sharing a bed. Was it for the sake of strengthening his disciples that he was now being scrutinized for his physical form? Such matters need not be included in the task list henceforth. Lin Xiao spoke with a firm tone. "Increase your effort. You must master the third sword stance before noon, or you shall not dine." Yes. At that moment, a disturbance arose from the clouds and mist outside the peak of Dufeng Mountain. Lin Xiao's thoughts stirred, and his consciousness swiftly transmitted to the source, where he beheld the Grand Master of the Great Zhou being obstructed by the mist. Curiously, he prodded the soft but impenetrable fog, clasped his hands in salute, and declared in a commanding voice, "Grand Master of the Great Zhou, I request an audience with the immortal master." "Why have you arrived ahead of the appointed time?" Lin Xiao furrowed his brow, rising to leave the ruler supervising and Luing's continued training as he descended the mountain. The mist swirled around him, and soon, the two who had previously reached an agreement stood face to face. Immortal Master. Yin Yunlu bowed respectfully and stated directly, circumstances have changed. The secret realm will soon be opened in the coming days. Oh, Lin Xiao raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What has transpired? The Great Chu dynasty has activated the formations near the secret realm using the blood of their heirs, causing the energy within the secret realm to deplete rapidly. By the time I noticed, the secret realm had already become vaguely visible. This truly is an unexpected development. Yin Yunlu originally intended to gather all the resources within the borders of the Great Zhou to forcefully break through the threshold of the Tao, thereby increasing the odds for the impending confrontation. However, following these unforeseen events, he could only resign himself to the situation. After all, when the secret realm emerges, powerful individuals from the surrounding 3 nations will converge. Choosing to forcibly break through at such a time would be tantamount to courting death. As for whether he could enlist the help of an immortal master to rectify matters, he certainly harbored such thoughts. The issue lies in his lack of sufficient leverage to sway such formidable beings. Even if he possessed it, recklessly revealing it might result in being killed for treasure. Yin Yunlu could only make the most of what he already had. Would the immortal master's previous promise still hold? Naturally. Lin Xiao nodded slightly. And Luing had recently advanced to the 8th layer of foundation establishment, and though he initially thought she would miss the opportunity 2.5 months later, it now appeared to be perfectly timed. Coincidentally, this young girl had recently set her sights on him. It was time to let her out for a bit to avoid her engaging in all sorts of peculiar antics. On the day the secret realm opens, bring your disciple, and I shall grant her protection, Lin Xiao stated. Regarding the quota, my disciple will descend the mountain with you on that day. Chapter 18. The behind-the-scenes manipulator Yin Yunlu did not linger. After receiving the promise, he immediately bowed and took his leave. As the last hope of the entire Great Zhou, he bore the expectations of tens of thousands of people. Lin Xiao watched his figure fade into the stone path, shifting his gaze to the shrubs on either side. Since he was here, one might as well reveal themselves. The scene fell silent for 3 seconds, the bushes rustled, and a man emerged, laughing heartily. To think you could detect my disguise. The immortal master is indeed extraordinary. Lin Xiao cast a sidelong glance at him, the disciple recruitment page unfolding before him, revealing the leader of spies from the Great Chu dynasty. Green fortune, mid-yuaning stage. Pass. Without further ado, Lin Xiao turned his gaze to the second cluster of bushes. The scene remained silent for 3 seconds before another man stepped out, laughing jubilantly. To think you could detect my disguise. The immortal master is indeed extraordinary. The leader of spiritual cultivators from the Great Qi dynasty. Green fortune, late yuaning stage. Lin Xiao silently regarded the final position. The Great Qi and Great Chu cultivators, surprised to see each other, had not anticipated that both were lying in ambush at this location. After a moment's contemplation, they nodded slightly, their eyes betraying a foolishness that seemed only natural. Now noticing Lin Xiao's gaze, they instinctively looked over. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. To think you could detect my disguise. The immortal master is indeed extraordinary. The bushes rustled again, and a man emerged, laughing heartily. Undoubtedly, a cultivator from the Great Ping. A green aura tinged with blue, early transformation stage. Old Geo, I didn't expect you to be here too. Ha ha ha, you all came as well. Old Fox. Likewise. The 3 individuals exchanged knowing glances and smiles. Lin Xiao let out a silent sigh, perplexed as to how such a group could pose a threat to the pinnacle of the unity realm, Yin Yunlu. Could there be reinforcements? For now, the strongest among them, the leader of the Daping sect, raised a hand to quell the atmosphere, which was on the verge of transforming into a casual gathering among old friends, and turned to Lin Xiao with a respectful bow. I am Xiao Ruo, a disciple of the Daping dynasty, here to pay my respects to the immortal master. The other 2 followed suit. Although they had overheard Lin Xiao's conversation with Yin Yunlu, they dared not harbor even a flicker of disrespect. After all, regardless of their privileged status, the terrifying aura emanating from Lin Xiao was unmistakable. Even if they did not recognize him as a sage, they understood that he could effortlessly extinguish their existence with a mere finger. Despite their somewhat foolish demeanor, their words bore no trace of irreverence. Lin Xiao, lacking interest in further conversation, directly inquired about their eavesdropping. The same representative from the Daping dynasty stepped forward to respond, clearly the shared intellect of the trio. We wish to converse with the immortal master. About what? The affairs of the Dazhou. Xiao Ruo stated with neither subservience nor arrogance. The Dachu, Daki, and Daping have formed an alliance, and we hope the immortal master will refrain from intervening in the Dazhou matter. Why? Lin Xiao furrowed his brow. This petty internal strife had somehow entangled the enemies of his little disciple? Was there truly a member of the Jiang family involved? No. Recalling the Jiang family's swift and merciless slaughter, Lin Xiao felt this situation did not align with their style. It was likely merely a rebellious faction under their banner. Whether out this matter has been settled and need not be revisited, you may descend the mountain. The leader of the Great Cheese expression shifted markedly, his countenance darkening as he cautiously spoke. We respectfully address you as immortal. Before he could finish, Lin Xiao waved his hand dismissively, sending him away. However, unlike the aspiring seekers who plummeted like leaves in the wind, the three individuals dispatched to the foot of the mountain bore the scorching imprint of a slap upon their faces. Despite such humiliation, they dared not express their anger, merely exchanging furtive glances before scurrying off in defeat. Cowardice? Such a notion was unfounded. In the eastern borderlands, a sage could effortlessly dominate all. Even in the talent-rich central continent, a sage would be akin to a venerable elder, seldom emerging from seclusion. If the backing of the three dynasties truly possessed the power to sweep all aside, would they still need to calculate the moves of Yen Yunlu? Nevertheless, while the conjecture was made with utmost seriousness, it was imperative to ensure that necessary contingencies were not overlooked. Based on the protection afforded by a sacred artifact, Lin Xiao intended to provide Lin Ying with another piece of a Dao artifact and a life-preserving spiritual fruit. With the month's deadline approaching, the treasury's doors would soon open again, marking the time for rewarding disciples. The offensive prowess of Su Yu had proven sufficient. This time, the selection would be more focused on functionality. During lunch, Lin Xiao broached this topic with Lin Ying. The young girl was taken aback. Little did she expect that a nap in her master's embrace would result in being cast away. Her small face immediately reflected her displeasure. She could hardly eat, poking at her spiritual rice with a sense of grievance. Why must I be sent away? I promise I won't do that again. Do you wish to return in the future? Lin Xiao's tone turned serious, the emperor's ruler hovering behind him. And Lin Ying shrank her neck, promptly burying her head. Observing her pitiable expression, as though abandoned, Lin Xiao softened his tone, offering solace. You will merely descend the mountain for some independent training. It will not be for long. Are the people of the Great Zhou good? And Lin Ying inquired, puffing her cheeks. Whether they are good or not cannot be succinctly expressed, Lin Xiao replied. But the adversaries you will encounter will undoubtedly tread a path contrary to yours. A path contrary to mine, the girl murmured, failing to grasp the meaning of his words. Lin Xiao chose not to elaborate further. Hatred does not require guidance. As long as she walks the right path, the girl will ultimately rise against the current, becoming a thorn that the Jiang family cannot ignore. As for him, he need only fulfill the role of a competent master, occasionally offering protection when necessary. Do not dwell on such matters. Focus on your meal. Okay. And Lin Ying promptly dug into her food. After lunch, Lin Xiao took Lin Ying to the treasury once more, heading straight for the door of the Dao artifact. The threshold for functional Dao artifacts is relatively low, given Lin Ying's aptitude. She could at least activate it 23 times, which is quite a respectable trump card. After a selection process, they ultimately acquired a red silk ribbon, capable of storing items and resisting minor damage. It is of considerable importance that there are 3 active effects. To simplify, these effects enhance combat prowess, increase burst speed, and summon 3 phantoms to assist in battle. Most notably, whether worn around the waist or as a headband, it complements her fitted attire exquisitely. This is primarily why Lin Ying was chosen. She also has a slight penchant for beauty, as was evident when she repeatedly gazed at his profile during the apprenticeship. Subsequently, the two ventured to select spiritual plants. In this regard, there were no lofty expectations. Survival was the only requirement. Amidst a dazzling array of spiritual flora, Lin Ying chose a jade leaf herb, reputedly capable of resurrecting the dead, making it one of the few medicinal herbs with significant efficacy when consumed alone. Chapter 19. Descending the mountain the following day, in the early morning, Lin Ying reluctantly swallowed the last morsel of spiritual porridge. She tilted her head, observing her master, who was busily packing spiritual beast jerky and pure water into the storage space of her ribbon. With each mention of food, water, and healing elixirs, corresponding items shimmered in his hands. After a dozen or so flashes of light, Lin Xiao finally grasped the ribbon with satisfaction. His first attempt at packing was executed with such meticulous care. Indeed, he was a natural-born master. Feeling quite pleased with himself, Lin Xiao disregarded any master-disciple boundaries and summoned Lin Ying to his side. He wrapped the ribbon around the girl's waist, applying a gentle tug to form a graceful bow. Clad in red and standing at a height of 1.60 meters, the petite girl, adorned in her favorite fitted attire and silver hairpin, bore a striking resemblance to a red-clad heroine, reminiscent of a moon hanging at her waist. If only this heroine could exude a bit more confidence rather than shyness. Master, Before I leave, may I embrace you? A day without contact had left her yearning for that warm presence. Lin Xiao remained silent, with the imposing figure of the Emperor's ruler subtly looming behind him. And Lu Ying pouted. If it was not possible, then so be it. Why resort to violence? Everyone knew her greatest fear was pain. Outside the mountain, the mist swayed with a palpable disturbance. Lin Xiao stood, gently ruffling the girl's hair as a substitute for the embrace that could not be. Go now. Remember what I told you. Prioritize survival above all else. Should you engage, remember to reduce your foes to ashes. In the realm of cultivation, there are not many variations. Yet the methods of survival are numerous. To prevent the accumulation of enemies and to deal with unscrupulous individuals who resort to seeking aid from the old when faced with defeat. The tradition of annihilating the enemy and refining their souls on the spot began with Lin Xiao's generation. Indeed, it commenced with this very lineage. All right, and Lu Ying, though uncertain of the reasons, was convinced that her master's teachings were undoubtedly correct, and she nodded in agreement, her small chin lifted. Lin Xiao smiled and nodded in return, quite pleased with his little disciple. No one is perfect, everyone has their flaws. As a new generation of youth in the 21st century, as long as the disciple does not disrespect the master or rebel against the teachings, most shortcomings can be tolerated. Perhaps Lu Ying harbors no such thoughts. She merely feels comfortable in his presence. However, Lin Xiao, being an adult, is acutely aware of what is appropriate and what is not. For instance, holding hands is a perfectly normal gesture between a master and disciple. Lin Xiao grasped Lu Ying's hand and descended the bluestone steps. Shortly thereafter, they spotted Yan Yunlu and a young girl, who was his disciple, in the distance. Her name was Lu Yinyin, 3 years older than Lu Ying, endowed with a purple aura and possessing a foundational cultivation of the 6th level. In her prime, aside from Lu Ying, her aura was already the most formidable in the surrounding regions. Master, they greeted in unison upon seeing the pair descend the mountain. Lin Xiao nodded, releasing Lu Ying's hand to introduce them. This is my disciple, who will accompany you to the secret realm. Yan Yunlu blinked in curiosity. Aren't you coming? Lin Xiao shook his head. Just as Yan Yunlu furrowed his brow in confusion, a golden glass lamp whirled into the air. 3 beams of golden light erupted and enveloped the young girl. Yan Yunlu was taken aback. Thank you, master. Realizing what had transpired, his face brightened as he bowed to Lin Xiao and turned to Lu Yinyin. How do you feel? I have gained an additional ability, Lu Yinyin exclaimed in astonishment. If I encounter danger, I can activate it either actively or passively. How remarkable. Thank you, master. She too bowed to Lin Xiao, mirroring Yan Yunlu's gesture. It is merely a contract. Lin Xiao waved his hand dismissively, his expression calm. I would, however, appreciate it if you could keep an eye on my disciple. You are too kind. Yan Yunlu sighed in relief. And Lu Ying walked over to Yan Yunlu's side, reluctant to part ways. She knew that one day she would descend the mountain to explore the world, but she never anticipated that this day would come so soon. She felt a pang of sorrow, eager to return to savor her master's cooking and receive his guidance. Lin Xiao gently reached out to ruffle her hair. Your master is waiting for you on Dufeng Mountain. Yes, and Lu Ying took a deep breath. I will return soon. Off you go. Yan Yunlu and Lu Yinyin turned and walked down the mountain. And Lu Ying followed behind, glancing back occasionally. Finally raising her arm to wave vigorously until her small figure was completely obscured by the bluestone steps. A smile graced Lin Xiao's lips as he waved back a couple of times. After a brief pause, he turned to ascend the mountain, for reasons unknown. Despite having grown accustomed to solitude, upon returning to the meditation mat, he unexpectedly felt a sense of loneliness. It seemed as though the peak of Dufeng Mountain had lost its vibrant colors. With the presence of a disciple, life is indeed different from that of a solitary individual. Lin Xiao cast his gaze towards the now vacant wooden cabin and let out a sigh. It is for the best that they have departed. His disciple requires progress. And as a mentor, he too must strive for improvement. It is time to embark on his own cultivation journey. Lin Xiao took a deep breath, reflecting upon the key concepts of flow of my heart, and began to deduce and explore a path that suits his advancement. The sun shone brightly. A small Qilin cub nestled on the grass before him, yawning widely. Meanwhile, after descending the mountain, Lu Yinyin warmly engaged in conversation with Lu Ying. The latter, initially feeling despondent, was instantly invigorated upon hearing Lu Yinyin speak of information regarding the secret realm. According to her mentor, this expedition into the secret realm was primarily to adapt to cultivation, which would greatly benefit her future. Once they descended, she would have to rely upon herself, making information exceedingly vital. In the past, she had taken a risk to climb the mountain after hearing from a passerby about a celestial master residing atop the solitary peak, ultimately gaining favor. The two, each harboring their own thoughts, rapidly progressed in their relationship, and within minutes, smiles adorned their faces. So Lu Yinyin inquired curiously upon entering Qingstone town, just how powerful is that celestial master? And Lu Ying pondered for a moment before shaking her head. I am not certain. It seems as though my master can accomplish anything. Was that artifact he used earlier a sacred weapon? Lu Yinyin asked further, and Lu Ying continued to shake her head. She truly did not know and was not particularly concerned. All right then, Lu Yinyin pouted. I heard that the requirements for discipleship under that celestial master are exceedingly stringent. Many cannot even gain entry. That is indeed true, and Lu Ying affirmed, speaking earnestly. When I first entered, I endured quite a bit. What kind of ordeal? Lu Yinyin inquired hastily. A half-meat bun, and Lu Ying replied seriously. Several question marks appeared above Lu Yinyin's head. Upon arriving at the temporary quarters of the National Master's residence, Yin Yunlu briefly exchanged a few words with the station cultivators and did not delay further. Setting off immediately, the group boarded the flying vessel, each assigning themselves to separate quarters. According to estimates, they would reach the ruins of the former dynasty in approximately half a day. During this journey, and Lu Ying encountered several other cultivators selected to participate, all seemingly at the 5th level of foundation establishment, varying in age but closely aligned. She remained vigilant, quietly noting their appearances, and chose the outermost room. Chapter 20. Entering the secret realm simultaneously, within a room adjacent to the flying vessel. No, Lu Yinyin shook her head, her vigilance strong. She could not extract any information. And Lu Ying appeared rather naive, seemingly indifferent to much of the conversation, yet her silence was alarmingly tight-lipped. Lu Yinyin believed she had engaged in conversation quite well. Yet she could not even ask the simplest question of age. On Lin Xiao's side, he had garnered no effective information, only receiving vague responses. It appears that securing the Celestial Master's assistance is beyond reach. Yin Yunlu, upon hearing this, could not help but shake his head with a sigh. This competition is unlike any previous one. It is imperative to exercise utmost caution within the secret realm. Unless absolutely necessary, one must refrain from employing that ability. And what of you? Lu Yinyin inquired, her heart fraught with anxiety. Unless unforeseen circumstances arise, the battle will commence as soon as you emerge from the secret realm. Yin Yunlu nodded, stating, I shall take the initiative to strike first, aiming to neutralize the formidable forces of the other nations. Once you exit, gather the others and consume the feather speed pill, then flee in the opposite direction. You may encounter peril, but it should not prove excessively troublesome. And what of the faction behind us? Lu Yinyin continued to probe. If I survive, I can instigate a threat. If not, Yin Yunlu refrained from finishing his sentence. The outcome was painfully evident. Should he fall here, bearing the weight of the entire dynasty, everything would vanish into oblivion. However, should he endure, he could leverage his considerable individual strength to turn the tables on the other nations. Survive together or perish together. With a sigh, Yin Yunlu tenderly ruffled her hair. If truly cornered, perhaps you could beseech that celestial master. Your talents surpass ours, and there is a chance you might be accepted. He is formidable. He may possess a powerful lineage that could help him evade catastrophe. Lu Yinyin's eyes brimmed with tears, her fists clenched tightly. If only a few more years could pass, she would have the confidence to stand alongside Yin Yunlu and confront this calamity together. Yet, in this world, there are no ifs. Ethereal energies drifted through the air, and Lu Qing, seated upon her bed, slowly opened her eyes. The heart flow technique, akin to the breath of the forest, allows for the refinement of natural spiritual energy, subtly absorbing the whispers of others. Aside from the need for disguise, which complicates matters slightly, even a sage's past could be concealed. At that moment, she overheard the conversation between Yin Yunlu and Lu Yinyin, gaining insight into certain matters. Ah, it seems they are the ones being oppressed, and Lu Qing mused, pinching her chin thoughtfully. Her experiences as a wanderer had instilled in her a cautious demeanor. While this may not be evident in her interactions with Lin Xiao, once outside, her mind would race, adeptly analyzing any information presented. Yet, the identities of those standing behind the three nations remain elusive. Surely, her master, being so formidable, has unraveled the truth? Recalling the words Lin Xiao had shared with her, a weight settled heavily in Lu Qing's heart. The ties of fate have been severed. Now, aside from her master, all that remains is her hatred. Could it be that those scoundrels are orchestrating mischief here? She clenched her small fists tightly. Just then, a marked spiritual energy seeped into the room of her companions. And Lu Qing hastily closed her eyes, eavesdropping on their telepathic exchanges. Her small face grew increasingly serious. Remarkably, there is even an insider among them. The flying vessel swiftly arrived at the periphery of the ruins. The members of the other three nations were already present. As they gazed at the descending vessel, they could not suppress their mocking laughter, barely disguising their disdain. Once Yin Yunlu and his disciples disembarked, a cultivator from the Great Chu burst into loud laughter, proclaiming, "The Great Zhou is truly declining by the day. In the past, they would arrive earlier, but today they are half an hour late. Can it be that even the flying vessel has lost its way? If this continues, the end of their nation will not be far off." As can be seen from the left chancellor's residence, the cultivators erupted into laughter. The unexpected situation at the left chancellor's residence had provided them with an opportunity, prompting countless cultivators to seek self-preservation by abandoning the Great Zhou and choosing the other three nations instead. And Luiying clenched her small fist, casting a cold glance at him. The expressions of the other Great Zhou cultivators were equally grim. However, they had prepared for this and knew that they could not afford to provoke a conflict at this moment, so they all endured the humiliation. Yin Yunlu did not even spare them a glance. Instead, he produced a blue-green jade hairpin and calmly stated, "Let us begin." The idle chatter continued to echo around them. The cultivators from the other dynasties, reveling in the spectacle, hesitated for a moment before slowly retrieving their respective tokens. As spiritual energy was infused into them, the tokens began to emit a brilliant radiance. A mysterious realm gradually materialized before everyone's eyes. "This is your token." Lu Yining handed a golden badge to An Luiying, explaining that with it, she would be shielded from the chaotic fluctuations of space upon entry. An Luiying nodded and accepted it. Soon, the space stabilized, and the prepared cultivators began to emerge one by one. Among them, the Great Qi had 4 slots, the Great Ping had 5, while the Great Chu had the most, with 7. It was said that the royal family of Great Chu possessed bloodlines from a previous dynasty, making it permissible for them to enter without a token. And Luiying glanced around, but did not see the figure that had mocked the left chancellor's residence. Her small hand rested on the ribbon at her waist. "Luiying, once we enter, we are likely to be separated," Lu Yining whispered as she noticed others beginning to move inside. "These individuals may harbor ill intentions. They might even target you. You must be cautious, and it would be best to act together." "No need," and Luiying shook her head. "My master has trained me well. I am more than capable of handling any unforeseen circumstances." Lu Yining's expression stiffened for a moment. Just as she was about to respond, it was their turn to enter. She could only squeeze An Luiying's hand reassuringly before heading towards the entrance of the mysterious realm. An Luiying silently followed behind. A gentle breeze brushed by. The moment Lu Yining stepped inside, 3 ethereal figures suddenly appeared, rushing towards the Great Chu's formation with drawn swords. "What is happening? Damn it, they are moving too swiftly. We cannot stop them." The apparitions instantly captured the attention of many. However, as they made their move, the phantoms deftly evaded the oncoming attacks with intricate footwork, their sword shadows slicing through the air as they targeted the individual who had mocked the left chancellor's residence. The opponent, taken completely by surprise at the sudden ambush, stood frozen in place, aghast. "How dare you?" The most formidable cultivator of the Great Chu, the chief overseer Jinji, drew his sword with a swift motion, unleashing a fierce wave of sword energy. Yet, it proved futile. The phantom moved with an ethereal grace, as if traversing an alternate realm of time and space. It appeared to have been struck, yet it suffered no harm. In an instant, the sword's edge gleamed, and 3 wounds appeared upon the body of the assailant. What? Blood spurted forth, and the onlookers gaped in disbelief. "Heavenly Master, save me." In a moment of desperation, the Great Chu cultivator evaded a fatal blow, enduring the pain coursing through him as he rushed towards Jinji. However, scarcely had he taken a step before he suddenly collapsed. His head rolled downward, akin to a ball, and tumbled to a stop at Junji's feet. The 3 dreamlike figures gradually faded away, with An Luiying disappearing into the whirlpool of the secret realm. "Cursed be it." Junji seethed with fury, turning to Yin Yunlu, whose face mirrored his astonishment, his expression darkening with each passing moment. "Young Yin, do you truly believe I would hesitate to act against you?" Yin Yunlu offered no explanation, merely chuckling coldly as he cradled his sword in his arms. "You may certainly attempt it." A solitary figure. He was well aware of the schemes of the 3 factions and felt no trepidation. Jinji observed him with a cold gaze, ultimately refraining from acting out, and instead directing his cruel attention towards the Great Chu cultivator who had yet to enter the secret realm. Chapter 21. Ambush within the secret realm, an ethereal mists world. An Luiying stood upon a hillside, her presence akin to the moon partially revealing its brilliance. She had entered. For a fleeting moment, her gaze wavered, only to be replaced by a resolute determination. The act of taking a life proved far more bearable than she had anticipated. Her master worried that she would shy away from violence, oblivious to the myriad of malevolence she had encountered while wandering from the capital to Qingshi town. Those who mocked her family had indeed courted their own demise. An Luiying pressed her lips together, her grip on the sword tightening. Before her lay a lush, ancient forest. Adhering to her master's teachings, She first consumed the detoxifying and vitality-preserving pills before drawing her sword, the moonlit blade, and embarking on her exploration of the surroundings. Simultaneously, an increasing number of individuals found themselves randomly scattered within this secretive space. The moment she landed, Lu Yinyin activated the secret technique bestowed by her master. Sensing the positions of the other three, they were not too far apart. They could converge. Lu Yinyin exhaled in relief. In such a perilous environment, collective action was evidently the safer option. Regrettably, Lu Ying had left no trace, making it impossible to confirm their locations. Having entered the realm earlier, Lu Yinyin remained unaware of the incident involving the young girl's sudden violence, harboring concerns for her safety. Despite the presence of such a formidable master, her youth rendered her somewhat inexperienced. All she could do was pray that they would not encounter cultivators from the other three nations. Channeling her spiritual energy, she sent a message of convergence to the remaining three. With swift movements, Lu Yinyin darted forth, covering a distance of over 100 paces, heading towards the nearest cultivator of the Great Zhou. 3 minutes later, she came to a halt before a frigid pool. To her astonishment, there lay the icy crystals of the frigid heaven. Lu Yinyin inhaled deeply. These were precisely the alchemical materials required for her master's breakthrough. Lowering her gaze, she succinctly explained the delay in assembly, then unleashed a blade of sword energy that struck the icy waters of the pool. Under Lu Yinin's astonished watch, the crescent-like sword energy froze upon nearing the surface, unable to penetrate further. The fact that even spiritual energy could be frozen was indeed remarkable. Taking another deep breath, Lu Yinyin retrieved several pills, swallowed them, and tightened her skirt. Without hesitation, she leaped into the frigid depths. The cold was piercing. After an indeterminate time, Lu Yinyin emerged from the water, her body chilled to the bone. Her mind was blank, devoid of any thoughts as she sat cross-legged, channeling the scriptures she had practiced. Gradually, as the cold was expelled from her body, her consciousness began to return to normal. Phew, that was close. She almost didn't make it back. Opening her clenched right hand revealed a piece of azure ice crystal. A faint, strained smile graced Lu Yinin's pale, bluish face as she carefully stored it away. Suddenly recalling the assembly, she quickly activated a secret technique to locate the whereabouts of the other three. Sensing that they had already gathered, Lu Yinyin breathed a sigh of relief. It was a comfort to know they were together. Using her transmission ability, she informed them that she would arrive shortly. Lu Yinyin took several deep breaths, suppressing the cold that had invaded her body. There was no time to eradicate it completely. She needed to move toward their gathering point. The cold poison could not be resolved in an instant. Uniting with her companions as swiftly as possible was paramount for her safety. As she contemplated this, and Lu Ying, lingering at the edge of the gathering point, sensed a distinct fluctuation in spiritual energy. As a practitioner primarily focused on both internal and external cultivation, she was acutely aware of the energy emitted by different cultivators. From over 100 meters away, Lu Ying detected 4 or 5 waves converging, instantly alerting her senses. Such a number could only indicate cultivators from the other 3 kingdoms. Assuming they were gathering treasures, the young girl's eyes sparkled with curiosity as she moved closer. However, after advancing several dozen meters, Lu Ying sensed the presence of other cultivators and abruptly halted. Her brow furrowed as she carefully discerned the fluctuations she sensed. 3, 4, 5, 7. Excluding herself and another, all other cultivators had indeed converged at this spot. Something was amiss. Instinctively, Lu Ying slowed her breathing. Though she had only been in the cultivation world for a month, her exposure to Lin Xiao had left her with a profound understanding of the treacherous designs among cultivators. Now, faced with a direct encounter, she felt both intrigued and instinctively concealed her presence. Confirming her suspicions, she cautiously approached the area nearest to her. It was a small team of 4. It appears that a monk from the Great Qi is currently laying ambush, holding their breath and reducing their presence. Among them, a foundational cultivator is lacking in skill, repeatedly making mistakes and drawing the ire of others. Are you a fool? You cannot even manage something as simple as holding your breath and focusing. How did you even get selected? Zhang, he seems to be the nephew of the national master. Brother, just put in a little more effort. Success is imminent. As long as that fool remains unaware, victory is ours. And Lu Qing concealed herself behind the branches, her gaze flickering. Based on prior intelligence, the 3 kingdoms of Great Qi, Great Chu, and Great Ping harbored ill intentions towards Great Zhou, manifesting with equal fervor among the cultivators. Thus, they were indeed ambushing the cultivators of Great Zhou. However, considering the hidden traitor within the ranks of Great Zhou and the current circumstances, Lu Qing leaned towards the notion of it being a trap, specifically, one targeting Lu Yinyin. This indicated that apart from her, the only individual missing was the disciple of the national master of Great Zhou. Lu Qing treaded lightly, cautiously retreating to a safe zone. Lu Yining had been quite amiable towards her. If possible, she would naturally extend a helping hand. Furthermore, having eliminated that great Chu cultivator before entering the secret realm, they now shared a common enemy. One more ally could provide additional security, clarifying the causal relationships, and Lu Qing took a deep breath, gaining some enlightenment regarding the perils of the cultivation world. Indeed, as her master had said, cultivators were often entangled in convoluted schemes of interception and elimination. The specifics of the secret realm remained unclear. It was best to refrain from rash actions. Should Lu Yining be within reach for rescue, she would lend assistance. If not, she would rely solely on herself. Although her cultivation level was the highest, combat had always been her weak point, and she had not gained much from her master over these many days. Perhaps she could learn from them, like a mantis stalking a cicada, with a yellow bird waiting in the wings. Her mind raced. My heart flows like the wind, leaving no trace, silently treading upon the branches. She leaped to a suitable position for ambush and fell silent. In just a moment, the jungle returned to its original quietude. The hunters awaited patiently while the prey remained in a state of panic. Sensing the proximity of her location, a smile crept onto Lu Yining's pale face. Upon entering a small clearing, she instinctively spoke, "Li Shi, you three." Her words were abruptly cut off. Lu Yining widened her eyes in disbelief as she beheld her two fallen companions, unconscious and unknown if alive or dead. "Sister Lu, come quickly," exclaimed the cultivator named Li Shi, crouching beside the two, urgency lacing his voice. Junior brother Bai and junior sister Su were poisoned while gathering spiritual herbs, and the usual detoxification pills have proven ineffective. Their condition is worsening. How could this be? Lu Yining, unaware of the anomaly, instinctively moved forward when suddenly, and Lu Qing's clear voice echoed in her ear. "It's a trap. Do not approach." In an instant, her steps halted. "Sister Lu?" Li Shi, filled with confusion, raised his head and urged, "You must possess the antidote refined by our master. It can surely alleviate the poison afflicting our junior disciples. We cannot afford to delay any longer." On one side stood his fellow disciple, whom he had known for several months, while on the other was a celestial apprentice he had only just met. Lu Yining, her face pale, neither advanced nor retreated, but shook her head, revealing her nearly exhausted arm, and tentatively spoke. "I have been afflicted by cold poison while gathering the frost crystal, and I need some time before she could finish." Li Shi lunged forward, his eyes gleaming with fervor. The sword light surged rapidly, carving a brilliant arc in the air. "Why didn't you say so earlier? You've kept me on edge, damn it." Chapter 22. Despair Starry Constellations. The moon descends, the stars sink. Sister, surrender your resistance. Our master's path leads to a point of no return. The clash of blades echoed around them. Lu Yining, mustering her last breath, raised her sword to parry, executing a move called Endless Snowfall to push Li Shi back, only to unleash a torrent of curses. "You're talking nonsense. Betraying your kin and laying ambushes. Li Shi, you will not escape retribution." Her words were fierce, yet her heart felt as cold as ice. The cold poison coursing through her veins obstructed her spiritual energy. Merely wielding her sword had become a struggle. If this continued, she feared the unknown consequences. Even if she triumphed, she would be left alone, unable to contend with the other cultivators from the three kingdoms. Despair gradually filled Lu Yining's heart. Why persist in futile resistance? Li Shi sneered repeatedly. The powers of Deqi, Dechu, and Deping are flourishing, and with the aid of Wuhui Cliff, what can the already doomed Dezhou possibly counter with? You cannot, and neither can our master. I am seeking a path to survival for you, a chance to grasp a new future. Sister, seize this opportunity." Hidden amidst the treetops, and Lu Qing, with her delicate and adorable cat-like ears, quivered slightly. Wuhui Cliff, is that their source of confidence? It sounded far from the majestic allure of their master's celestial sect. The young girl inhaled deeply, her footwork silently activating as she prepared to rescue. Meanwhile, upon hearing the name Wuhui Cliff, Lu Yining's already ashen face grew even paler, almost resembling a corpse that had lain for 7 days. Simply mentioning Wuhui Cliff seemed to denote a mere cultivation sect. Yet, as a direct disciple of Yan Yunlu, she understood the formidable power that name carried. The left ministers and family had been obliterated by them. When that sword was swung, the heavens dimmed. Such power was beyond the reach of cultivators from their small locality. In days past, countless fellow disciples had been left heartbroken, choosing to flee to Zhongzhou. But no matter how formidable the adversary, their master could surely withstand it. Having witnessed that figure since childhood, she believed there was hardly anything her master could not handle. He was not someone to be easily defeated. A resolute glint flickered in Lu Yining's eyes as she spat. "Damn you all. He is merely a cowardly wretch. My master had long perceived your flawed character." When we first encountered you by the roadside, you should have been pierced through with a single sword thrust. Li Shi's countenance darkened as he raised his sword once more. Senior sister, I hold you in great esteem. Do not mistake my respect for a willingness to accept punishment. He had become separated from his family in the chaotic borderlands, where he had endured hunger and abuse from passers-by. It was only through the pleas of the young maiden, Lu Yinin, to the national master that he was rescued from the depths of despair. Since that day, Lu Yinin had illuminated his life like a radiant beacon, her brilliance only intensifying with the passage of time. However, as calamities besieged the Great Zhou, the nation began its gradual decline, rumored to be nearing its end. The national master endeavored to alleviate the suffering, only to discover that the entire realm had been devoured from within, with empty granaries and corrupt officials prowling the streets. Now, the left chancellor's residence had entangled itself with an unfathomable force, heralding the impending doom of this beleaguered dynasty. To choose abandonment would ensure safety. Yet the national master sought to pursue a sliver of hope, with Lu Yinin determined to accompany him. Li Shi could not bear to witness her march towards destruction. Huh? Lu Yinin scoffed. If you truly respected me, you would end your life before me. Senior sister, you are mistaken. Li Shi lunged forward again, a flicker of desire dancing in his eyes. I shall make you understand the exquisite beauty of living. Lu Yinin swiftly retreated, unleashing a meticulously prepared flash of sword light. After conversing for so long, she had managed to suppress the cold poison within her, gaining a measure of strength for resistance. With her superior cultivation, coupled with her master's teachings, she wielded more spiritual artifacts and elixirs than Li Shi, an ordinary disciple. Despite the affliction of cold poison, she could still engage him in a fierce exchange, nearly turning the tide on several occasions. As she severed Li Shi's sleeve once more, he staggered back several steps, wiping the blood from his face, his eyes reflecting a steely resolve. Senior sister, should this continue, I shall not hold back. Huh, indeed. Lu Yinin responded with her actions. Though her condition was dire, the cold poison was showing signs of resurgence, compelling her to continue suppressing it for the moment. Once safe, she would need to expel it swiftly. Li Shi's complexion turned ashen as he cast a glance toward the nearby thicket. Suddenly, for auras of cultivators materialized from thin air, 3 men and 1 woman, moving with an enigmatic grace that surrounded them. Sensing these presences, Lu Yinin's expression shifted dramatically, and she seethed. Li Shi, I curse you. You traitorous wretch, may you suffer an ignoble death. Not having strangled you sooner is my folly. If I can escape, I shall surely kill you, feeding your remains to the spirit beasts, even refining your soul into a puppet. Hey, this little lady has quite the fiery temperament. I wonder if she sounds this loud in the throes of pleasure, chuckled a middle-aged cultivator, grinning lewdly. Li, do not forget the price of our intervention. Furrowing his brow, Li Shi replied, afterward, we shall erase her memories, leaving only the recollection of me. Upon hearing this, another young monk burst into laughter, exclaiming, brotherly, how carefree. I shall grant you your wish at the first opportunity. With such a disposition, what great endeavors could possibly elude you? Disgusted, she retorted, you lot are truly despicable. Their crude banter echoed around her, causing Lu Yinin's heart to plummet. She had initially believed that Li Shi's discontent was solely directed at their master's decision, wishing to take her far from the Great Zhou, but little did she realize he had turned traitor. 5 foundation-building cultivators. Had it been in her prime, she would have been confident in her ability to escape. Yet now, Lu Yinin felt her eyes welling with tears of regret. If she were to activate the bestowed blessings from her celestial master, she could indeed survive. However, that protection would only last for a limited time. If she managed to endure this moment, she would surely be captured by a stronger opponent the instant the secret realm concluded, serving as leverage against her master. At that juncture, it would be her true demise. The 5 cultivators cautiously advanced, their eyes radiating malicious intent. Gritting her teeth, Lu Yinin unleashed a crescent-shaped sword aura, then lunged towards the closest and weakest female cultivator. Star plucking and constellation shifting. 3 beams of sword light erupted instantaneously. The female cultivator, caught off guard by Lu Yinin's refusal to concede, hastily countered but only managed to block 2 strikes, blood oozing from her shoulder. Seizing this moment, Lu Yinin propelled herself off the ground, her figure blurring as she dashed into the dense forest. This was dire. Curse it, do not let her escape. With the cold poison enveloping her, there was no way she could break free from the encirclement. Lu Yinin forged ahead, deftly retrieving a vial of pills. Swallowing 2 that could suppress the cold poison, her speed suddenly increasing. Among those present, she was already the most formidable, and now, with her heightened velocity, she was quickly fading from view. Li Shi, in a state of urgency, called out loudly, Daping, Daju cultivators, come to our aid. Boom. The sound of fists and palms sliced through the air, completely obstructing her path forward and backward. Lu Yining summoned every ounce of strength within her, executing her most potent sword technique. Spiritual energy surged forth, their strikes clashing violently, the force rebounding onto her, causing her to spit out a mouthful of blood. 5 figures. 7 figures. A total of 12 blinding silhouettes obliterated the light in the vicinity. Chapter 23. The moment to strike despair. Helplessness. Lu Yining never imagined that Li Xiao would go so far to capture her. All the cultivators had converged. In her current state, even activating her Master's protective shield would offer no hope of escape. With over a dozen cultivators, their mere strikes could completely subdue her. Much like a turtle pressed against its shell, unable to flee, Lu Yining had lost all will to resist, allowing the cold to seep back into her body. Tears of ice streaming down her cheeks. There had been a possibility. If only they could unite and overcome this crisis together. Any challenge could be resolved under their Master's guidance, just as it had been before. Why had it come to this? 17 monks encircled her, their gazes either indifferent or teasing as they looked towards Li Xiao. Brotherly, do you truly think this lady can endure such a multitude of brothers? She is indeed pleasing to the eye, yet a pity it is. Tattered as she is, it can still provide a certain amusement. This boldness is a novel experience. Li Xiao's countenance darkened. After considerable effort, he had persuaded the monks from the 3 kingdoms to assist him in thwarting the ambush. He had hoped to subdue them with but a fraction of their number, yet the cost was far greater than anticipated. Nevertheless, as long as his senior sister ultimately remained his, that sufficed. His troubled heart was soon engulfed by fervor. Li Xiao released his clenched fist, flexed his fingers, and gradually approached Lu Yining. Fear not, senior sister. I shall place a binding on you, such that you will believe you are with me. It shall alleviate your discomfort. Just endure, it will soon pass. Just as Li Xiao's hands were about to reach Lu Yining, she moved once more, with the swiftest of sword techniques. At such a close distance, she pierced through his heart, throat, and brain, divided into 3, at the brink of acquiring his long-desired object. Li Xiao entirely forgot that the Lu Yining he admired was a girl who would never cease her resistance. Past, present, and future. Fool, act quickly. Without that scoundrel in the way, she is ours. Once we are done, eliminate her. Not a single spawn of the great Zhou dynasty shall remain. The other monks from different dynasties were taken aback and immediately sprang into action. The sword's edge descended. That last move had already drained her of all spiritual energy. Now, with her energy exhausted, Lu Yining raised her head, quietly awaiting the death that approached. At that moment, a clear and melodious voice resonated in her ears, pulling her from her daze. Xianyao, go quickly. The Xianyao, entirely composed of spiritual energy, lunged forth, charging directly at the monks of the great Chu dynasty. In a moment of negligence, the Xianyao breached their ranks, swiftly tearing open a monk's throat. There are still enemies. Cursed be, this bird is too powerful. Brother, save me. The formidable transformation attack sent the monk formation into disarray. 3 phantoms surged forth, wielding their swords gracefully, instantly raising a spray of blood. And Lu Ying, with deft footwork, maneuvered past the enemies in close proximity, lifting Lu Yining effortlessly into her grasp. Turning, she drew her sword like a crescent moon, shattering the weapon of an enemy who had drawn near. The sword energy surged forth, sending him flying. With the sword tip realigned, she unleashed her ultimate technique. My heart flows like the moon in the heavenly realm, culminating in a brilliant explosion of sword energy. My heart aligns with the Tao. The advancing monks felt a chill run down their spines, each summoning their most powerful abilities. The onlookers were taken aback, disregarding the entwined Xian bird and ethereal shadow. They hastily fled into the distance. Boom! The sword aura shattered, and 12 figures simultaneously spat out blood, careening backwards. The few fortunate souls not engulfed by the sword energy gasped in shock, quickly glancing towards the center, where the crimson figure had vanished without a trace. With utmost determination, I activated the heart flow technique, expelling a breath of turbid air, astonished at my ability to rescue Lu Yining so effortlessly amidst a throng of cultivators. This was indeed my first formal encounter with life and death against cultivators. I had prepared meticulously, anticipating a fierce battle. Yet these individuals couldn't withstand even a single stroke of sword energy. One after another, they fell short of my Master's prowess. Truly, my Master's might stood in stark contrast to these nefarious beings, the girl murmured to herself. As for Lu Yining, after being saved by Lu Ying and witnessing her injure 12 cultivators with a single strike, she succumbed to unconsciousness. The chilling aura's impact was far greater than anticipated. Her earlier resolve had already reduced her to a state of utter exhaustion, and Lu Ying dared not delay. She swiftly found a seemingly secure cave and, with a single stroke, vanquished a ferocious bear-like spirit beast within. She promptly set about rescuing the girl. First came the elixirs. Given by her master, she hesitated, but ultimately fed Lu Yining 2 pills before channeling the foundational techniques of heart flow. This realm encompassed 2 accompanying minor secret arts. One governed destruction, growing stronger with the number of gazes upon her, while the other emphasized nurturing, with heightened effects corresponding to the number of those who remembered her. Having just felled several cultivators from the 3 kingdoms and severely injured 12 others, alongside her master, she had garnered quite a few memories. Soon, specks of phosphorescent light appeared in her hands, slowly merging into Lu Yining's body, expelling the frigid energy. And Lu Ying then administered a qi-nourishing pill to hasten Lu Yining's recovery of spiritual energy, simultaneously suppressing the cold. Each elixir was precious, and she felt a pang of regret with every one consumed. She had no choice but to reach into Lu Yining's clothing to retrieve her storage treasure. Casually erasing the markings, she utilized her elixirs. Indeed, it seemed that the elixirs from the National Master's estate were particularly potent, as Lu Yining's complexion quickly regained a healthy hue, and her breathing stabilized significantly. And Lu Ying silently increased the flow of spiritual energy. In less than 2 minutes, Lu Yining, who had been sprawled on the ground, opened her eyes and sat up abruptly. I'm not dead. Indeed, and Lu Ying sighed in relief, responding seamlessly. I took advantage of their inattention to launch a surprise attack and rescue you. Did you forget? And no, I didn't forget. Lu Yining, still a bit dazed from awakening, quickly recalled her experiences before losing consciousness, her gaze now astonished as she swept over the formidable girl before her. So powerful, a solitary figure confronted 16 cultivators, dispatching 3 and grievously wounding 12. Should she linger a moment longer, it seemed all would fall beneath her blade. All were of the same exalted realm. Yet the disciple of that celestial master was astonishingly formidable. What are you staring at? And Lu Qing waved her small hand in front of her, curiosity piqued. Are you dazed by the chill? No, I merely feel a bit overwhelmed, Lu Yining replied, rubbing her face to calm the tumultuous emotions within. Well, I'm not quite sure what to say, and Lu Qing scratched her head, displaying a foolish grin. Congratulations on personally vanquishing that villain. What is there to celebrate? In an instant, memories of the recent encounter flooded Lu Yining's mind. She intended to respond thus, but found her eyes welling with tears. Everything was lost, the legacy of her master, the aspirations for dragon essence, her exceptionally gifted junior disciples, all gone. Even her own life had nearly slipped away. All her perseverance, resistance, and resilience shattered by that simple statement. Lu Yining threw herself into Liu Qing's embrace, weeping bitterly. Chapter 24. The grievances of the younger generation. A flurry of activity ensued, and Lu Qing held Lu Yining, who had fallen into a deep slumber, her cheeks still stained with tears, and sighed reflectively. Was this how her master once comforted her? It likely was not. Given his temperament, he would have pinched the flesh at her nape with one hand, simultaneously expressing disdain while offering solace. Recalling that aloof master, who chastised her with a ruler, the young girl pouted. Humph, if you won't hold me, then so be it. I don't care. Lu Yu stepped forward, leveling nearby stones to create a resting place for the weary Lu Yining, and Lu Qing sat cross-legged beside her, replenishing her depleted spiritual energy while adjusting her state after her first battle with fellow cultivators. Meanwhile, not long after the secret realm opened, several divine carriages drawn by ancient beasts halted at the base of a cliff. The beasts roared, and the divine flags fluttered. The townsfolk of Qingshi observed from afar, their senses entranced by the sight of the 3 overlapping flags, as if nothing else existed in their field of vision. Is that the cliff of no regrets? Even the illiterate, like Ergo, could read it, truly a testament to celestial artistry. Stop boasting. Is no one curious why they have come? They surely harbor ill intentions. I have heard that to establish a sect, one must report to the dynasty. Who are you to speak? You've never left Qingshi town. Where did you hear that? From your father's grave. The 2 cultivators seated in the divine carriage exchanged glances. The one on the left, with a glint of cold light in his eyes, muttered, "How tiresome." The one on the right, with a benevolent expression, replied with a smile, "There is no need to engage with the uncultured peasants of this borderland, Lin brother. It is unfathomable what sort of unruly sect might arise in such a place." The monk on the left continued to hum, asserting that they should charge forward directly. Those who dared to oppose Wuhui Cliff had already chosen the path to their own demise. The elder, however, approached the situation with caution, acknowledging that the art of divination possessed its merits. The figure on the right smiled subtly, suggesting that if that immortal truly was weak, what harm would it be to sever them with a single sword stroke? Should an errant wisp of sword energy inadvertently be cast towards a nearby town, It would provide some relief from the incessant clamor surrounding them. Just as he spoke, a sudden torrent of blood erupted from within the divine palanquin, followed by a series of weak coughs. Elder Zhang. The two men were taken aback, hastily rushing into the palanquin. There, they found Elder Zhang in disarray, his garments tattered, with streaks of crimson resembling lightning snaking across his body, oozing blood incessantly. The air was thick with the stench of blood, and the elder's complexion was ashen, completely devoid of his former ethereal grace, appearing almost as if he had succumbed to madness. Was this the backlash of the divination? Exchanging a glance, their eyes were filled with trepidation. Indeed, Elder Zhang took a moment to regain his composure, waved his sleeve, and retrieved a handful of elixirs which he promptly consumed. You two, go teach the savage beasts a lesson. Do not make a ruckus. They hurriedly dashed out. Elder Zhang managed to suppress his injuries, a flicker of fear evident in his gaze. There were principles to the art of divination, if directed at an individual. It was best not to delve too deeply, but rather to focus on matters related to them. Just moments ago, he had chosen to concentrate on the peak of Dufeng Mountain rather than the immortal Lin Xiao. However, the instant the vision materialized in his mind, a man at the very summit of the stone path cast a fleeting glance in his direction, as if sensing his scrutiny. Before he could fully process the shock, the entire divination technique abruptly faltered. Had it not been for the inherent flaws of the technique, the backlash would have been far more precise. Indeed, that mere glance could have resulted in his immediate ascension. It is crucial to understand that the visions produced by the art of divination were glimpses into the future. Gazing upon the past from the vantage of the future, how formidable was this immortal? Elder Zhang dared not speculate further, nor did he wish to voice his thoughts. Although Wuhui Cliff had established its sect long ago, it had only ever produced a single sage to date. The current cliff master was merely a seeker of the Tao, lacking the foundational strength to rival the major sections. If confronted directly by a sage, even with assistance, they would be utterly outmatched. After all, whether or not that individual sought vengeance for Wuhui Cliff was another matter. Inciting the wrath of the powerful figure atop Dufeng Mountain was tantamount to courting death. With such thoughts, Elder Zhang hastily exerted his energy to suppress his external injuries. He issued a few casual commands, urging caution, then donned a fresh robe adorned with Taoist insignia, beginning his ascent towards Dufeng Mountain. To demonstrate his respect, he refrained from flying and instead ascended the steps with reverence. Standing humbly amidst the clouds and mist, Lin Xiao, of course, took note of the presence of these practitioners from Wuhui Cliff. However, he did not rush to make contact. The mist enveloping the peak of the lone summit was protected by the power of saints, beyond their reach. He was immersed in the contemplation of sacred texts, forging his own path. Although his comprehension was not as profound as that of his young disciple, he excelled in personal diligence, steadily progressing forward. Only upon overcoming a minor obstacle did he open his eyes. After a brief moment of organization, he descended the mountain step by step. Soon, the respectful figure of Elder Zhang appeared before him. Lin Xiao remained hidden, shrouded in the ethereal mist, revealing only a vague silhouette. Nevertheless, even in this obscured state, Elder Zhang dared not show any negligence. He bent his waist, exhibiting agility uncharacteristic of his age. I am Zhang Lianfeng of Wuhui Cliff, here to pay my respects to the esteemed sage. Indeed, he had discerned Lin Xiao's cultivation level. As one of the elders of Wuhui Cliff and a sycophant of the ancient Jiang clan, Zhang Lianfeng's insights were evidently unmatched by the cultivators of the four dynasties. Lin Xiao had never concealed his saintly prowess, so upon their first encounter, Zhang recognized him immediately. In his heart, he felt a profound shock, prompting him to bow even lower. As far as he knew, powers as renowned as the Jiang clan were led by mere Taoist cultivators. If one were to categorize them further into the ranks of great powers, saints, kings, and half-saints, they would merely be at the level of saints. Despite the shared title of saint, the disparities in strength were vast. Naturally, given the Jiang clan's deep-rooted legacy, it was not impossible for saints to exist within the family. However, regardless of their presence, such beings typically refrained from intervening lightly, should they be provoked. Even the annihilation of Wuhui Cliff might not rouse the Jiang clan to action. Contemplating this, Elder Zhang lowered his head even further, nearly touching the stone steps before him. Lin Xiao mused, is this the highest form of tribute when meeting a saint? His expression remained unchanged, yet internally he acknowledged the strict decorum of the cultivation world. Even a mere introduction required one to bow their head to the ground. Clearly, there were many things he had yet to encounter. He nodded slightly in acknowledgement. Accepting Zhang's homage, Elder Zhang's spirit surged. Perhaps the sage was quite approachable? They could engage in dialogue. Without reservation, he divulged the situation regarding the Great Qi seeking their assistance to annihilate the Great Zhou in order to curry favor with the Jiang clan. promising them a share of 5 spirit stone veins. Concealing the truth before a powerful being was an exceedingly foolish act, as a single disagreement could cost him his life. The best approach was to exhibit a posture of submission and frequently invoke the formidable reputation of the ancient Jiang clan to ensure his survival. Lin Xiao nodded. The reality was very much in line with his thoughts, oppression and the exchange of interests. As for this elder's intentions, observing Zhang's timid demeanor, Lin Xiao remarked indifferently. Regarding the grievances of the younger generation, if the rules are adhered to, I shall not intervene. Elder Zhang's expression brightened with joy. Just as he was about to express his gratitude, he heard the voice resonate in his ears once more. However, this time it was about the Jiang family breaking the rules. After the matter was resolved, he would personally demand an explanation. As for you, descend the mountain and embrace your own future. Chapter 25. The Targeted Treasure Vault Elder. The elder has come down. How did the negotiations go? As Zhang Lianfeng descended the mountain in a daze, the disciples who had been quietly waiting at the foot of the mountain surrounded him with eager voices. The incident of the backlash from the heavenly secrets had already been disseminated by the two. They no longer exhibited the arrogance they had at the beginning. Even the ancient ferocious beasts lay docile on the ground, no longer daring to flaunt themselves. Noticing Elder Zhang appearing somewhat lost in thought, an impatient disciple stepped forward to inquire, "Elder, what is the strength of this immortal master?" Elder Zhang, regaining his composure, managed a wry smile and replied, "A saint." A collective shock rippled through the assembled crowd. A saint? To think that such a formidable being, comparable to the strongest figures of their sect throughout history, would linger upon this humble mountain. It felt as though a colossal hammer had struck their ears, akin to discovering a massive piece of tiger head gold in a garbage dump. Incredulity and disbelief washed over them. The few cultivators who had initially been arrogant enough to charge forward exchanged glances, both fearful and relieved. Who could have anticipated encountering such an exalted predecessor in this remote locale? Even in the central continent, where cultivators were most active, saints were considered supreme existences. The cultivator responsible for driving the carriage secretly tightened on the other side, and Luing opened her eyes, her gaze shimmering with brilliance. After officially engaging in combat with cultivators, her strength had ascended to a new level. Although these adversaries were relatively weak, collectively they posed less of a challenge than a single hand of her master. Yet, the reality of battle was vastly different from mere sparring. It was only after one's hands were stained with blood that one could truly comprehend the path they tread. She murmured to herself, feeling the chill on her backside. Rising to her feet, she found the stone beneath her hard and cold, far from the comfort of a cushion. She wondered how Lu Yining managed to fall asleep under such conditions. Meanwhile, the unconscious Lu Yining had turned restlessly in her sleep. And Lu Ying circled the vicinity a couple of times, finding no immediate danger. Within the cave, she ignited a fire and began to prepare the black bear she had slain with a single strike. Although the bear appeared formidable, it was merely a spirit beast of the foundational stage. Unsure of her culinary skills, she opted to cut only the more appealing portions and skewered them for roasting. Before long, the enticing aroma of grilled meat filled the cave. The flesh of spirit beasts had this remarkable quality. Even without seasoning, it emitted a delightful fragrance, devoid of the gamey scent typical of wild animals. Taking a bite, and Lu Ying hugged her knees, feeling a pang of longing for her master. Despite her stern demeanor, her master always brought her an abundance of delicious food, and much of the daily meals found their way into her stomach. Lu Ying? At that moment, Lu Yining approached, rubbing her forehead. "Yes, I'm here," and Lu Ying waved. "You've awakened. How do you feel?" "So cold," Lu Yining replied, having been roused from her slumber. She settled beside Lu Ying, drawing close to the campfire, and gradually began to feel warmth enveloping her. And Lu Ying offered her a skewer of roasted meat. After taking a bite, Lu Yining fell silent. The two of them sat in a contemplative daze, staring into the flickering flames. Once the meat was fully cooked, Lu Yining turned her head, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Thank you for saving me," she expressed sincerely. "Without your help, I would have faced dire consequences. You are a good person and should not meet such an end in this place." And Lu Ying nodded in agreement. Beyond cultivation, her master had imparted many worldly truths to her, filled with wisdom that belied her master's striking appearance. Lu Yining fell into silence again, hugging her legs, still grappling with the betrayal she had experienced. In a sense, she and Lu Ying were quite similar. Since following Yin Yunlu, she had seldom seen her parents. The national master's residence had become her second home. Now, with a spy among them and her fellow disciples having met tragic fates, only she and her master remained. Like weeds swept away by a river's current, and Lu Ying found herself at a loss. After another bite of the skewer, she felt overwhelmed and decided to break the silence by inquiring about the secret realm. Although Lu Yining was not in the mood for conversation, She understood that wallowing in despair was not an option. In a gentle tone, she began to introduce the situation. It was her first visit. Yet as a direct disciple of Yin Yunlu, she was privy to a wealth of internal information, due to its history as a battlefield. This secret realm offered two distinct means of exit. The first involved obtaining the legacy of a bygone dynasty, which could manifest as either martial techniques or treasured artifacts. Among these, the most captivating was a key, said to unlock a hidden treasury filled with rare treasures and medicinal herbs, concealed before the Great Cataclysm. The second method hinged upon reaching a specific level of vitality. If the number of deaths within the secret realm surpassed 90, this option would be activated. However, the legacy of the previous dynasty was not particularly difficult to locate, often found within the abandoned districts with minimal effort. Thus, the second method was rarely realized. At least in Lu Yinin's recollection, the most catastrophic incident resulted in just over half of the participants perishing. A treasury? And Lu Qing's large eyes sparkled with curiosity. She had already conceived ideas for a gift for her master. Even though her master's treasury was vast and could take days to explore, the allure of fine treasures was universal. Her master would surely appreciate them as well. Lu Yinin nodded, but this matter is merely a legend. Its authenticity has been questioned for a long time, and even my master is uncertain about the existence of such a key. Then let us seek it out. And Lu Qing beamed with enthusiasm. No matter what, we must take action and set a grand goal. It will surely motivate us. Lu Yinin gazed at her radiant smile, feeling inexplicably awakened. The girl seemed to possess a kind of magic that instantly inspired her, urging her body to move forward. A thrilling adventure sounds delightful. Meanwhile, on the other side, the cultivators from the Three Kingdoms, terrified by Lu Qing's formidable sword strike, hesitated to part ways. After a brief yet intense discussion, they unanimously decided to delve deeper into the ruins in search of the legacy, thus concluding their expedition to the secret realm prematurely. Although they failed to capture Lu Yinin and fulfill their senior's request, surviving was a commendable outcome in itself. Li cast a glance at his companions, who bore various injuries and appeared dejected, and sighed inwardly. The girl's singular strike had severed their fighting spirit as cultivators. Even now, none could regain their composure. As young elites representing their respective nations, why was she so remarkably talented? And that was merely one sword strike. If she hadn't been in a hurry to leave, and didn't have Lu Yinin as a burden, wouldn't she have effortlessly dispatched all 10 of them with just her sword? They were unaware that Lin Xiao held the girl to an exceptionally high standard, one reserved for true prodigies. Perhaps due to her youth, she fell slightly short of the pinnacle of genius. However, with the passage of time and diligent practice, one can undoubtedly catch up. Those individuals, however, are hardly even stepping stones. The true stepping stones for Lu Ying are the numerous cultivators of the regretless cliff. Before long, the group arrived at the ruins of the former capital. The cultivators from the Three Kingdoms each possessed several precise locations provided by their esteemed elders. They exchanged glances, uttered a word of caution, and then parted ways. And Lu Ying perched atop the treetops, waiting for the last cultivator to vanish from sight. Then turned to look at Lu Yinin beside her. How are you faring? The cold poison has been largely eradicated. Only a negligible amount remains. Lu Yinin took a deep breath and unsheathed the sword at her waist. Which team shall we target first? And Lu Ying wrinkled her delicate nose. She was not well acquainted with these factions and was solely interested in that treasury. Which of them do you think might possess information about the treasury? The treasury? Lu Yinin furrowed her brow in contemplation. If I had to choose, the Great Chu would be the most likely, as their royal family is descended from the former dynasty. Then it shall be them, and Lu Ying declared promptly. To prevent the exit from being activated prematurely, let us incapacitate the other two teams first. Lu Yinin swallowed hard. If we were to kidnap them, could we threaten our master? What if we were to abduct so many cultivators who have similarly amassed their power through resources? Could we not threaten them in return? Lu Yinin suddenly felt that her cultivation path was shifting simply by walking alongside Lu Ying. However, while the style of their journey could change, they must remain vigilant. 3 minutes later, they had subdued the last cultivator from the Great Qi, sealing his acupoints and binding his limbs. The two young women exchanged a glance and soared into the air, heading towards another team. In the Great Chu team, Li walked at the forefront, feeling an inexplicable sense of unease. He glanced back at the cultivators trailing behind him, channeling his spiritual energy to sense any anomalies, yet found nothing amiss. However, the more he felt this way, the less assured he became, as if a fierce beast were lurking in the shadows. Senior brother. A severely injured young cultivator gasped. Should we take a moment to rest and conserve our strength? This area may be home to spirit beasts. The others, already fatigued, quickly echoed his sentiment. Li had initially wished to press on, But realizing that continuing without recovery might leave them all incapacitated if they were to encounter a spirit beast, he reluctantly halted, saying, "Let us rest for 5 minutes to regain our spiritual energy. Once the time is up, we shall proceed." The cultivators promptly sat cross-legged. In such perilous surroundings, it was better to conserve strength than to complain. Nonetheless, Lili remained on high alert. He signaled to the other 2 cultivators who still had some energy left, unfurling the map to scrutinize their route. Compared to the other 3 kingdoms, Great Chu's safe routes were marked with exceptional precision due to its connection to the former dynasty's descendants. Following this path, they would soon reach the first site of inheritance. The marked text refers to an ancient sword manual. Such markings, of which there are 5 in the catalog, provide the Great Chu with 5 opportunities for unscathed explorations into the secret realms. Initially, it was presumed to be a siege against the Great Zhou, but unexpectedly, this time it was to be enacted. Lili extended his hand to caress the mark in the catalog, his heart filled with endless sentiment. Who would have thought that a single individual could force them into a position where they lacked the key? A crisp female voice suddenly resonated in his ear. Lili felt a surge of alarm. Without a moment's hesitation, a powerful surge of spiritual energy erupted from his core, pushing aside the figure beside him. "Do not move." On the other side, Lu Yining stood with a sword in one hand, poised over the already unconscious Great Chu cultivator at the center, the blade resting against the neck of one of the fallen cultivators. "If you dare to resist, I will kill him instantly." Lili's eyes widened in disbelief. He reacted swiftly, glancing at the red-clad girl standing nearby, radiant like the cold light of the moon, and then at the indifferent Lu Yining, bitterly asking, "When did you follow us?" "5 minutes ago," and Lu Ying replied, tossing the jade tokens of the cultivators from the Great Qi and Great Ping nations at his feet. "Do not even think of resisting. No one here can aid you." "Indeed," Lu Yining added, producing rope as she echoed, "answer our questions correctly, and we may spare your life." "Ask away," Lili replied with remarkable decisiveness. There was no other choice. He could neither fight nor flee. He had to quickly profess his loyalty to ensure his survival. And Lu Ying sheathed her sword and immediately inquired, "What do you know about the treasury key?" Lili paused for 2 seconds before responding. "I do know some hidden legends, but that place is perilous, teeming with golden core demon beasts." And Lu Ying's heart leapt with joy, though she remained vigilant. Secretly forming a hand seal, she adjusted her attire and commanded, "Lead the way." "Are you truly going there?" Lili was momentarily taken aback, seemingly perplexed by their audacity to court death. Golden core demon beasts are not easily dealt with blood as sustenance. "We should be able to avert calamity," Lu Yining scoffed, shaking the bundled cultivator. Lili took a deep breath, intimidated by their demonic demeanor. He was no virtuous man. He had committed murder, arson, and had abducted virtuous maidens on numerous occasions. Yet to liken fellow cultivators to mere blood food, offering them to demon beasts, regardless of their enmity, left him with an unsettling chill. After all, those blood offerings were his own brothers in the sect. "Are we not moving yet?" And Lu Ying withdrew her sword again. Lili inhaled deeply, offering no resistance, and immediately took flight toward the distance. The 2 women promptly followed suit. In their haste, they chose not to take a longer, safer route, instead leaping over the nearest crumbling walls and debris. They startled countless spirit beasts along the way. However, with just a single strike, and Lu Ying could transform peril into safety, resolving crises effortlessly. Lili watched in astonishment, utterly unable to believe that she was merely at the foundation establishment level. Such formidable prowess can indeed keep pace with the predecessors of the Golden Core stage. It is evident that only by attracting Golden Core beasts can this predicament be resolved. Casting a discreet glance at the 2 beautiful figures behind him, Lili once again awakened a slumbering spirit beast. Roar! The powerful mountain demon burst forth, and as it let out its first furious roar, a sword aura as bright as the silver moon cleaved its head in twain. And Lu Ying swiftly unleashed another sword aura, brushing closely past Lili. "Should you dare to recklessly summon spirit beasts again, I shall strike you down." Lili's figure became increasingly disheveled. Lu Yining and Lu Ying exchanged a glance, their footsteps gradually synchronizing into a unified yet ethereal rhythm. Chapter 27. The Imperial City. Soon, a more resplendent yet perilously charged district appeared before the trio. The colossal red walls stood in a state of disrepair, and as Lili stood at the periphery, his steps suddenly took on an extraordinary nuance. After several leaps, as if recalling something, he turned back and instructed, "The perimeter of the Imperial City is protected by formations. Follow my lead closely and tread carefully." And Lu Ying and Lu Yining offered no response, maintaining their pace to keep up. The latter discarded an empty pill bottle, which bounced on the ground before being obliterated into fragments by a torrent of sword energy. Lili chuckled softly and continued onward. following the safe passage he provided. They soon laid eyes on the true imperial city, desolate and barren. As the two approached for a closer look, Li's body seemed to traverse an invisible barrier, landing upon the soft earth. And Luing followed closely, only to be thwarted by an unseen wall. Just as she furrowed her brow, a sudden sense of danger enveloped her, causing her to widen her eyes. The crescent moon unsheathed, unleashing a myriad of sword lights that collided with the sword energy emanating from the air, resulting in a deafening explosion. Once the tumult subsided, and Luing returned to Lu Yinin's side, her complexion pale, several sword marks marred her crimson attire, with faint traces of blood seeping through. "It is a trap." Lu Yinin abruptly glared at Li, her expression grim. "Do you dare to deceive us?" Li shook his head, his gaze towards Lu Ying laced with both surprise and regret. "This layer of formation has thwarted countless cultivators attempting to delve deeper. I did not expect you to evade the onslaught of sword energy." Though she appeared considerably weakened, her life was evidently not in peril. However, contemplating the nature of this formation, a cold smirk crept upon Li's face. No matter how powerful, on this path where one can only advance and not retreat, it has indeed reached its conclusion. I have spoken nothing but the truth. This is the sole route of entry. If you must assign blame, let it be directed at your lack of the previous dynasty's bloodline. Lu Yinin's expression darkened. "Are you not afraid that I might slay your disciples?" "Afraid? How could I not be?" Li shrugged, a chilling smile adorning his face. "Yet if I could bring you along to share the grave, it would be a fitting end." And Lu Ying refrained from probing further with words. Instead, she hastily stepped back, attempting to retreat. However, before long, the myriad sword energies erupting from the void inflicted new wounds upon her once more. "Do not attempt it." Li laughed heartily. "This path permits only forward movement. I advise you to accept your fate and embrace death. Otherwise," his words were abruptly cut off as he unleashed a sword energy. And Lu Qing drew her sword. And in the next moment, a multitude of sword energies reappeared. She hastily defended herself, risking activation once more as she sent a beam of sword light towards Li. But it was undoubtedly thwarted by an invisible barrier. "Feudal," Li grinned, laughing uproariously. "Here, I am invincible." And Lu Qing took a deep breath, assuming a sword stance. As a colossal sword energy emerged, akin to a resplendent full moon ascending the skies, Li's complexion turned pale, instinctively prompting him to flee. The sword energy hummed, the barrier taking shape, enduring immense pressure, nearly on the verge of shattering. Yet in the end, it remained unbroken, steadfastly holding its form. Li swallowed hard, exclaiming with wild joy, "It's useless. Such a scale of formation cannot be broken by mere techniques. Do not harbor thoughts of resistance. Your survival is impossible. Unless you sign a master-servant contract with me, you shall meet your demise." Indeed, it posed a considerable dilemma. And Lu Qing exhaled, sensing the spiritual energy of her avatar gradually depleting. With 2 more assaults from the formation, she would likely reach her limit. She turned to Lu Yinin and said, "Dissolve the avatar. It is not difficult, and we may attempt it." Lu Yinin nodded, their figures gradually fading in color, ultimately transforming into a pure essence of spiritual energy, dissipating into the cosmos. Li stared blankly at this scene. An avatar? When did this happen? He suddenly sensed the precariousness of the situation and turned to flee deeper within, but soon realized it was too late. Boom! The sky darkened abruptly, as though an invisible giant hand had completely obscured the sunlight. In the darkness, there stood a singular, breathtaking figure, basking in the final rays of light, as if she were the sole protagonist of the universe, capturing the attention from all directions. And Lu Qing, adorned in red, merged with that figure, her heart's flow intensifying. Like the moon elevated high, casting forth a brilliant sword light. A sense of impending doom enveloped Li entirely. "I cannot withstand this. Absolutely cannot." He wished to escape immediately, yet found himself inexplicably rooted to the spot, staring dumbfounded at the chilling sword energy. With almost no resistance, the sword light pierced through the barrier, cleaving Li's body in two. In his dying moments, the elevated silhouette of the girl became the last sight he beheld. The formation was forcefully breached, and light returned to this realm. Lu Yinin's eyes widened in astonishment as she beheld the seemingly sovereign empress in red transform back into the somewhat naive and Lu Qing, her mouth agape in disbelief. "Is this an omen?" And Lu Qing nodded, slightly troubled, and remarked that this technique consumed too much spiritual energy. It was best to avoid it if possible. Lu Yinin had no retort. She finally grasped the true essence of genius. When news of her master's unworthiness as an immortal teacher reached the capital, she had dismissed it, deeming that immortal teacher short-sighted. Now, it was evident they were merely frogs at the bottom of a well. It was said that only the direct disciples of significant sects possessed such abilities. This was true genius. The formation had been erased by that previous strike. And Lu Qing flexed her wrist and smiled, suggesting they explore for treasures within. Gathering her scattered thoughts, Lu Yining nodded repeatedly. She had heard that few had ventured here, implying many treasures awaited discovery. And Lu Qing's small head immediately began to radar, buzzing with excitement. Treasures? Let us gather them all and present them to our master. The two leapt across the ruins, unencumbered by time with a captive in tow, resting whenever fatigue set in. The probing ability of the Emperor's Sutra helped them evade numerous perilous beasts. Lu Yining relied entirely on this seemingly younger girl. There was no other choice. She was simply too reliable, silent yet decisive. With formidable strength and a quick mind, she swiftly detected Li's schemes, employing a wondrous doppelganger to scout ahead, thus avoiding dangers along the way. Except for the occasional naive chatter and her constant mention of their master, and Lu Qing had no discernible flaws. Suddenly, she furrowed her brow and halted. Ahead appeared to be quite dangerous. Lu Yining followed suit, looking up to behold a magnificent palace before them. She was taken aback. This was the Imperial Palace. The Imperial Palace? And Lu Qing wrinkled her small nose, asserting that they were indeed within the palace. No, this was the Emperor's audience hall. Lu Yining could hardly believe that amidst such ruins, a grand and intact palace could be found. Why had this place remained untouched? What dangers lurked within? Could the former emperor still be alive? Or had he transformed into some otherworldly being? She dared not ponder further, instinctively edging closer to the girl, feeling a lack of security. Yet, and Lu Qing's large eyes sparkled with excitement as she stepped onto the stairs. The emperor? Perhaps there would be treasure to uncover. Lu Yining gasped, unable to stop her in time. Not daring to remain alone, she stomped her foot and pouted, following after her. Wait, don't rush ahead, Wait for me. Chapter 28. Return. This was in Lu Qing's first time in the Emperor's audience hall. She gazed around, taking in the novelty of her surroundings. Though she was the daughter of the Chancellor of the Great Zhou, she had been meticulously sheltered since childhood, remaining untouched by the tumult of the political arena. The majority of her days were spent meandering within the confines of her family estate or venturing to the streets with her maidservants to indulge in culinary delights and visit taverns. Otherwise, it would be inconceivable for Yan Yunlu and Lu Yining to remain unfamiliar with one another. Lu Yining followed closely behind, her heart pounding with trepidation. In a short while, a dark and foreboding gate loomed before them, and Lu Yining paused momentarily, sensing no immediate danger, before stepping inside. Initially intending to send her doppelganger forward, Lu Yining found herself compelled to follow instead. In the vast hall, only the sound of their footsteps echoed against the stone floor, resonating in the stillness. Neither too far nor too close, the grand dragon throne, flanked by ascending steps, soon came into view. A faint radiance filtered through the openings surrounding the throne, illuminating the space and revealing the figure of a middle-aged man draped in a dark robe, resting his forehead against his hand. Lu Yining's eyes widened in shock, her body stiffening in place. And Lu Yining, however, exhibited no fear and advanced 2 steps further. The crisp sound of her footsteps seemed to rouse the slumbering emperor. Slowly, he opened his eyes, as if a dragon's roar echoed through the heavens. Who dares disturb my slumber? He inquired, sitting upright and casting a gaze upon the two below. The weight of his imperial presence made Lu Yining's knees tremble, nearly causing her to kneel. And Lu Yining, maintaining her composure, followed her master's teachings and cupped her fists in respect, stating, I am Lu Yining, here to request the key to your treasury. The middle-aged man seated upon the dragon throne regarded her with a complex mixture of emotions. You are not my offspring. Did they fall to you? He inquired, his voice laced with intrigue. I struck them down at the city wall, and Lu Yining replied. Lu Yining whispered, is such honesty truly wise? The formation beyond the city wall was formidable. Their defeat was no disgrace. The middle-aged man exhaled deeply. Though this safeguard is weak, it is not easily breached. Such is the nature of time and fate. Alas, a being such as I, long departed, should not overly concern myself with the mundane world. The future belongs to the living. After a moment of reflection, his gaze turned to Lu Yining, and he smiled. You seek only the remnants of my treasury? Are you not interested in sacred artifacts or scriptures? Sacred artifacts? Lu Yining, hidden behind Lu Yining, shuddered in astonishment. In the previous dynasty, only one sacred artifact existed, the small cauldron left by the former emperor upon founding the nation. It was regarded as a national treasure, possessing immense power. During the schism of the court, it briefly emerged, decisively quelling the rebellious clans that sought to overthrow the established order, decimating the main forces that aspired to establish a new dynasty. Though it could not avert the ultimate fate of division, its fearsome reputation still instilled dread in many. Yet, such a weapon held no allure for Lu Yining. Her master possessed a vast treasury of sacred items. A single artifact would bear no significance. The scriptures, too, were of little interest. The scriptures of the previous dynasty cannot possibly rival the esteemed emperor scripture bestowed upon her by her master. Undoubtedly, they pale in comparison. In light of this, the contents remain a mystery, yet the prospect of an intriguing treasure trove holds a certain allure for her. She promptly responded, expressing her singular interest in the treasure. A faint smile graced the middle-aged man's face as he waved his hand, conjuring a radiant golden key into existence. Pinching it between his fingers, he remarked with a grin, "Though I may grant it to you, it is not so simple. The array I have personally designed is not something just anyone can breach. If you can land a blow upon me using your most formidable technique, this key shall be yours." After a moment of contemplation, Enluing drew her sword, Ruyu, and traced an arc through the air. "Forgive my rudeness. Now, let us begin." She closed her eyes as twilight descended, and the image of the crimson-clad empress, sovereign of all, reappeared, with an extraordinary phenomenon unfolding. She invoked the heart flow secret technique, binding it with the Taoist artifact, enhancing it with Ruyu, culminating in her most powerful sword strike. A myriad of abilities converged, radiating a brilliance that even her master could momentarily breach, gradually enveloping the entire blade. Suddenly, Enluing opened her eyes wide, swinging the sword forward, its edge erupting in dazzling brilliance. "My heart touches the moon." The slender blade buzzed incessantly, resembling a swarm of bees. Although merely a tiny point, its presence was overwhelmingly grand. The middle-aged man raised a single palm to defend, the ensuing gust scattering his hair. Lu Yinin's eyes widened in astonishment, her body trembling involuntarily. She had initially believed she stood before the last emperor of the previous dynasty. However, the visage before her was that of the sage she had encountered in her readings. In a state of panic, Lu Yinin exclaimed, "You are the founding sage." Yet, neither Enluing nor the middle-aged man paid her any heed. Their focus entirely on their contest of strength centered around the sword's edge. Ultimately, Enluing, merely a cultivator at the foundation establishment stage, could only sustain her effort for a minute or two before her figure quietly retreated, withdrawing all enhancements. She exhaled, preserving the last vestige of her spiritual energy to guard against potential traps from her opponent. In contrast, the middle-aged man's presence had significantly waned, revealing the backrest of the dragon thrown behind him. He gazed blankly at his palm, chuckling softly, clasping his hands behind his back as he sighed. "What an extraordinary individual." "Give it to me," Enluing declared, extending her hand to claim her reward. Overwhelmed by astonishment, Lu Yinin felt a sense of numbness wash over her. "Take it," the middle-aged man said without hesitation, tossing the key towards her. "Your prowess merits this reward." As Enluing caught the key, she immediately sensed its exceptional material. Seemingly crafted entirely from spatial stone, akin to the principles of storage bags and rings. Yet, this sizable piece of spatial stone promised an expansive interior. No wonder it was heralded as a treasure trove, with the key firmly grasped in her hand. Enluing began to anticipate the moment she would present it to her master upon her return. Meanwhile, an extraordinary force of spatial energy began to envelop them. With the acquisition of the inheritance, it was time to depart. The middle-aged man, with a kind gaze, had intended to converse a little longer, to hear tales of the future. Yet, with no opportunity for further dialogue, he bestowed upon them the blessing of enduring longevity in the path of immortality, a sentiment regarded as the highest form of well-wishing within the realm of cultivation. Thus, both Enluing and Lu Yinin clasped their fists and bowed respectfully. "Thank you, senior." "Thank you, senior." Their figures gradually grew faint before vanishing entirely. In the outside world, during a moment of temporal instability, the seated practitioners opened their eyes in unison. The three nations of Dachi, Dachu, and Dupeng exchanged glances, subtly forming an encirclement around the central figure of the Grand Master of Dezhou. The only apparent gap, seemingly the best avenue for survival, concealed the greatest peril. Yan Yunlu appeared oblivious, simply rising to his feet and fixing his gaze upon the vortex of the secret realm. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Gradually, a dozen ethereal figures began to materialize. The practitioners from Dachi, Dachu, and Dupeng erupted into cheers. "Victory! I knew it! Ha ha ha!" The cultivators from Dachu cast amused glances toward Yan Guisher, remarking on the unfortunate predicament of his beloved disciple. Initially, Yan Yunlu's expression was grim. However, as the apparition solidified, a sense of relief began to wash over him. Particularly, with the emergence of several ropes, he couldn't help but chuckle. This little girl had become their fortunate star. At that moment, many cultivators sensed something amiss and gasped in astonishment. The two female practitioners in front were seemingly tethering a dozen individuals with ropes? No, it was inconceivable. How could they possibly achieve such a feat? Yet, the time left to them was indeed running short. And Lu Ying tugged at the rope in her hands, her innocent, youthful face tilted upwards as she fiercely proclaimed, "Hey, this is a robbery." Chapter 29. Battle, battle, battle. The entrance to the secret realm had completely sealed. And Lu Ying and Lu Yinyin, hand in hand with the figures of the dozen-bound practitioners, emerged into the view of the cultivators from the four nations. A profound silence fell over the scene. Everyone stared in disbelief at this spectacle, unable to comprehend the situation. A dozen practitioners, the strongest newcomers from the three nations, had been so effortlessly subdued and bound. Prior to entering the secret realm, they had envisioned numerous possibilities, the cultivators of Dazhou hiding away, failing to eradicate them all, complications arising from disputes over interests, allowing Dazhou to slip through the cracks. Yet, they could never have anticipated the outcome of a dozen practitioners being entirely captured by two young girls. It was simply unfathomable, hard to believe. The gathered crowd remained in stunned silence. Only Yin Yunlu smiled as he exclaimed, "Such splendid scenery. It seems my fate in the great Zhou is not yet sealed." With a thunderous roar, before anyone could react, Yin Yunlu laughed heartily while a formidable cultivator from the great Qi unleashed a fierce attack. A massive azure hand swiftly formed and descended violently towards Lu Ying and Lu Yinyin, the overwhelming aura of the powerful cultivator enveloping the heavens and the earth. Yin Yunlu summoned a treasured ruler, which expanded hundreds of times, intercepting the colossal hand. "Mission accomplished, you may leave first." With his hair billowing wildly, he drew his sword and charged at the great Qi cultivator. And Lu Ying was taken aback. She had not anticipated that the adversary would disregard the captured cultivators and launch a collective assault to eliminate them. Her master's words rang true. These wicked cultivators appeared to uphold righteousness, while harboring no semblance of mercy or virtue. With her wide eyes darting, the girl grasped Lu Yinin's hand, leading her and the bound cultivators to flee. The clash of powerful cultivators sent tremors through the surroundings, prompting the perceptive cultivators to swiftly evade. However, a few were caught off guard, struck by beams of radiant light, leaving only a piercing scream as they perished. Thunderous crashes ensued as Yin Yunlu cleaved a small hill into fragments, stones flying in all directions. And Lu Ying held onto Lu Yinin, followed closely by a group of burdensome companions, soon to be pursued. The Great Qi, the Great Ping, the Great Chu, and cultivators adorned with cliff-like emblems on their chests. Two golden core cultivators, with the rest being foundation establishment practitioners, and Lu Ying quickly assessed the strength of those present, her heart gradually sinking. It was her first attempt to challenge golden core cultivators with her foundation establishment strength, and the outcome remained uncertain. Lu Yinin reacted swiftly, grasping a nearby rope, drawing her sword, and coldly surveying the encroaching crowd. "Let us go, and these people may live, otherwise they shall perish." Not all in the three kingdoms were devoid of compassion. Yet, despite their evident tension, there was no sign of compromise. Instead, more individuals pressed closer, gradually encircling the area. And Lu Ying's gaze was fixed on the cultivator leading the throng, adorned with a mountain peak motif on his chest, and she inquired, "Can these lives be exchanged for ours?" Unexpectedly, the cultivator nodded, pointing at the dazed Lu Yinin, stating, "She cannot." "Why?" And Lu Ying furrowed her brow. "With the great Zhou facing imminent ruin, allowing her to escape only increases the variables." "Am I not a variable? To leave or stay is your choice," the cultivator from Wuhui Cliff replied, his tone lofty, as if to imply that her fate was inconsequential to this matter. The two golden core cultivators had not accompanied Elder Zhang to visit Lin Xiao. They had only heard from returning peers that, if possible, it would be best to spare Lu Ying. In this remote region, neither felt the slightest arrogance. Instead, it seems that such leniency is already a considerable grace bestowed upon her. Before Lu Ying could utter a word, a nearby cultivator from the great Qi sect bellowed, "If you are permitted to leave, then depart swiftly. The Wuhui Cliff is not a realm that a mere foundation establishment practitioner like you can contend with. Are you aware of the left Prime Minister's residence? That place was obliterated by a single sword strike from Wuhui Cliff. If you do not wish to follow in their footsteps, then be gone." And Lu Ying stood frozen in place, the clamoring of the great Qi cultivator fading into near silence. The words of her master echoed in her mind as she contemplated the left Prime Minister's residence. Lu Yinin tightened her grip on the hilt of her sword, astonished by the cold-heartedness of these individuals who disregarded the lives of dozens of their colleagues. When her junior brother rebelled, her heart shattered for her fellow disciples with whom she had shared countless days and nights. As fellow cultivators, this group exhibited a complete lack of compassion. "Lu Ying, you should leave first." Taking a deep breath, a resolute glimmer shone in her eyes. To have these individuals accompany her into the fray was worth it in this lifetime. And Luing did not respond, quietly drawing her sword. Ryue, her tone icy and piercing. These two are mine. You hold off the others. Lu Yining felt a jolt of shock, sensing the chilling intent behind those words. In mere seconds, she could hardly reply, hastily unsheathing her treasured sword. The cultivators from Wuhui Cliff, from a distance, naturally heard and Lu Ying's murmured declaration. Among them, an older figure shook his head repeatedly, drawing his slender sword with an air of arrogance. Humph, this child is beyond redemption. Very well. Let me demonstrate just how vast the chasm between Foundation Establishment and Golden Core truly is. Boom. Without warning, the battle erupted instantaneously, and Lu Ying formed a hand seal, summoning a white tiger that charged forth, its gaping maw agape. Simultaneously, 3 phantoms surged forward alongside Lu Ying, their sword edges slicing through the air in a fierce assault. Lu Yining clenched her silver teeth, manipulating the ropes, as a dozen bundles flew in all directions. Some drew their swords, mercilessly slaying those defenseless cultivators, while others severed the bindings, cradling the captured practitioners in their arms. Senior brother. The cultivator lying in the embrace of his junior brother shook his head repeatedly. And in the next moment, a talisman activated, flames consuming the entire battlefield. Clad in red, and Lu Ying radiated with myriad beams of sword light, harmonizing with the summoned white tiger and 3 phantoms as she engaged 2 golden core cultivators in combat. The ground trembled, and trees toppled. The girl advanced over the shattered stones, her sword light forging a path. Her unique and formidable heart flow inflicting 3 deep wounds upon the golden core practitioners in an instant. Crack! Thunder roared, engulfing the girl's figure. One of the golden core cultivators, caught off guard, felt his arm ensnared by the white tiger's fierce grip, just as he prepared to crush the approaching beast. And Lu Ying appeared behind him, her sword descending from above, emitting a piercing white light. Boom! The earth quaked. Powerful cultivators in the distance unleashed their true fire, causing the very ground to lament. Nearby, with merely a fleeting encounter, the disciples of Wuhui Cliff found themselves gravely injured, their eyes widened in disbelief. What sorcery is this? The girl before them appeared to be merely at the 8th level of Foundation Establishment, a seemingly fragile figure capable of being crushed with a single hand. Yet, upon engaging in battle, it was they who sustained injuries. They exchanged glances, a shared sense of foreboding settling between them. Esteemed friend, let us cease hostilities. We can pretend this never transpired. Indeed, if this skirmish continues, the disciples of Wuhui Cliff will undoubtedly take notice. This is your sole chance for survival. But I intend to eliminate you, the girl retorted coldly, as a flurry of sword light descended upon them. Chapter 30. The pursuit and interception. The earth trembled and dark clouds gathered ominously. In the distance, the mightiest cultivators from various nations clashed with the elders of Wuhui Cliff, a dazzling array of radiant light erupting amid the chaos, while the echoes of ancient artifacts reverberated through the ground. Nearby, and Lu Ying cleaved through the oncoming radiant light with her sword, retreating rapidly as she cradled the nearly exhausted Lu Yining in her arms. The remaining Foundation Establishment cultivators dared not advance, all retracting their swords in retreat. A brief stalemate ensued. The 2 Wuhui Cliff cultivators appeared disheveled, their garments tattered and riddled with countless sword wounds. The elder bore a grievous gash from his left shoulder to his right leg, exposing the very innards beneath. Once emanating a formidable aura as a golden core cultivator, he now seemed utterly diminished. Among the 30 or so Foundation Establishment cultivators surrounding them, only a handful remained after the relentless onslaught, and Lu Ying's condition was similarly dire. Throughout the successive confrontations, her crimson attire had become marred with injuries. Despite her innate talent, her relatively brief period of cultivation rendered her more fragile than the average Foundation Establishment cultivator, possessing high offense but low defense. Had she not been accustomed to enduring Lin Xiao's assaults, she might have struggled to maintain her grip on the sword. Lu Yining fared even worse. She could no longer hold her sword and had slumped limply against Lu Ying, though a disciple of Yan Yunlu with considerable potential. Facing over 30 Foundation Establishment cultivators proved to be an insurmountable challenge. If Lu Ying had been even a moment later, the last vestiges of Lu Yining's protective barriers would have undoubtedly activated. I apologize, Lu Yining murmured, her pale face betraying her distress. I have hindered you. Not at all. Lu Ying replied, shaking her head as she felt her spiritual energy begin to wane, refusing to succumb to despair. The slaying of Li and the struggle against the phantom had drained her significantly, and now, engaging an opponent beyond her level had nearly exhausted her reserves. Such experiences would surely earn her praise from her master. Do not lose consciousness, and Lu Ying urged, noting Lu Yinin's weakening voice. I still possess the strength for one final strike. Our fate hinges upon this sword. With gritted teeth, Lu Yinin, disregarding the pain coursing through her meridians, began to channel her energy anew. You strike, and I will ensure your escape. Very well, and Lu Ying exhaled deeply, gently closing her eyes. Suddenly, the fierce winds from the distant battlefield were abruptly severed from their vicinity. Two cultivators at the Golden Core stage sensed something amiss and instinctively cast their gazes forward, only to be met with an expanse of darkness. No, it was as if something was consuming the very light around them. The moment this realization struck, their hair stood on end, and they turned to flee. Yet, a voice seemed to echo in their minds, compelling them to look ahead. The mentally unstable cultivators, unable to resist, halted their steps and found themselves unable to move. In an instant, the sound of their footsteps faded, leaving only the presence of one another. Alarm bells rang in the hearts of the two cultivators from Wuhui Cliff, incessantly repeating the mantra of not looking back, as they dashed away with swift footfalls, until they could no longer hold back, their gazes fixated upon the source of light. Bathed in a singular radiance stood the crimson-clad empress, as if she were at the center of the world. With a graceful gesture, she brought down her sword. The crescent moonlight cascaded like a waterfall, illuminating the faces of every cultivator present. Meanwhile, Yin Yunlu, caught in a near-manic battle, finally sensed the two had left his perceptual range. A manic smile crept across his lips as he casually discarded the head of the Grand Master of Dechu. Even with disheveled hair, his formidable aura remained unmasked, having endured until this very moment, at the pinnacle of the harmonization stage. Several elders of Wuhui Cliff stood solemnly together, astonished that such a powerful cultivator could arise in such a remote location. They had anticipated only facing a peak transformation stage cultivator and had dispatched only a few inner sect elders for this mission, never expecting to encounter such a situation. The lofty Wuhui Cliff was not as formidable as it seemed. Yin Yunlu chuckled coldly, vowing to remember today's debts, declaring that once he breaks through to the next realm, he would pay a visit to the sect. In an instant, several elders sprang into action, unleashing a kaleidoscope of colors that spewed forth the essence of death. The might of the harmonization stage left Yin Yunlu hesitant to engage directly. Utilizing his footwork, he narrowly evaded their attacks and soared upwards on a flying sword. Don't run. Stop. The elders pursued swiftly, unwilling to let such a powerful adversary escape. For Wuhui Cliff, a potential enemy capable of breaking through to the next realm was already a formidable presence. The Grand Master of Dechi also sought to give chase, only to be halted by the temporarily stationed elders of Wuhui Cliff. He issued a few terse commands, gesturing toward the direction of the prior chaotic skirmish, before hastily following in pursuit of Yin Yunlu. The Grand Master's expression shifted several times, and he sighed, heading swiftly toward the scene. As he drew near, the acrid scent of blood caused his brows to furrow. So many had perished? Truly, appearances are deceiving. From a distance, he saw a dozen figures standing on the ground, seemingly having concluded their battle. With certainty in his heart, he descended rapidly, just as he was about to inquire about the situation. The sight before him widened his eyes and sent a chill through his veins. The ground lay in ruins, and the scattered cultivators stood frozen in their last moments. Yet their heads had been severed, blood spraying across the ground. The two cultivators at the Golden Core stage met their demise, their essences extinguished, even their spiritual tools shattered into fragments. It was as if an invisible thread of steel had swiftly traversed the space, violently obliterating everything in its path. Were these actions the work of the two young maidens, or was there another hand at play? The Grand Master of the Dechi Kingdom remained in the dark, a wave of regret washing over him. Both the Grand Masters of Dupeng and Dechu had perished in this battle, while cultivators from various nations fell in droves, including those with exceptional talent and promising futures. The prospect of nurturing such individuals anew would require 2 to 3 decades at the very least. Perhaps it was unwise to have acted so rashly against the Dezhou. Yet, with the situation having escalated to this point, there was no turning back. Gritting his teeth, he ascended once more, pursuing the direction in which the maidens might have fled. It was nearly over. Atop the solitary peak, Lin Xiao, having turned the last chess piece black, sensed the presence of Lu Ying. Though she was considerably weakened, the protective barrier remained intact, indicating she had not encountered life-threatening peril. It seemed this had been a worthwhile trial. He nodded with satisfaction. This chess piece was newly crafted by his own hands, and Lu Ying, not particularly astute and somewhat naive, was perfectly suited for enlightenment through the game of Go. Once she had grasped its intricacies, she would be better equipped to think independently, rather than being led by the nose by those cunningly intelligent individuals. How delightful it was to have a disciple cared for by a master. Reflecting on his past, Lin Xiao shook his head and carefully stowed away the chess piece and board. He gently patted the little qilin on its head, urging it to remain calm. Lin Xiao then drew forth the Qian Yuan sword, executing a hand seal as he soared toward the sense location. Time is of the essence. After the initial act of vengeance, the window for his young disciple to seek retribution would only diminish. Moreover, having not seen An Luiying for several days atop the solitary peak, he found himself missing her, though he would never admit such a sentiment. As a master, one must uphold the dignity of their role. Lin Xiao furrowed his brow. Within his perception, the contingency he had placed upon An Luiying and Lu Yining had been triggered. Were they not yet free from danger? Muttering under his breath, he silently increased the speed of his flying sword.